This amazing story begins on a very cold evening, accompanied by severe snowstorms. However, such terrible weather is no obstacle for one warrior who has been steadily moving towards his goal for many years. This warrior comes here to avenge his fallen comrades and to face a very serious enemy. This enemy is already waiting for him in his icy throne room and does not yet suspect who he will face. The warrior nicknamed the Sky Demon angrily pushes the giant wolf away and declares that he has finally arrived. He immediately steps on it, demonstrating with his whole appearance incredible fearlessness and readiness to go to the end. He turns to his opponent, whom everyone calls the Ice Witch, and declares that he will capture her and kill her. The Ice Witch looks at him without any sign of fear, and only a sarcastic smile appears on her face. She slowly rises from her throne and declares that all of this is complete nonsense and empty threats. She states that no one has left this palace alive for thousands of years, and it is unlikely that any exception will be made here. She raises her hand up to concentrate a large amount of ice magic there and prepare for battle. Moments later, giant ice shards appear out of nowhere, and she fights with them with incredible ease. Looking at her opponent, she doesn't even try to find out his name, since all these warriors are of no interest to her. She proudly declares that he will definitely regret coming here and trying to challenge her. She knows perfectly well who he is, but it doesn't matter to her in the slightest, because she has defeated stronger enemies. The Sky Demon dodges this powerful attack and immediately rushes forward, realizing that he will have to fight with cunning here. He quickly runs through a rough draft of a battle with an opponent of this kind in his head. To begin with, he plans to wear down his opponent with a series of sharp maneuvers, as well as test her speed. He comes to the conclusion that the Ice Witch is not as simple as he thought and has amazing reflexes. He also guesses that her magic is strong enough to break through his protective barrier without much difficulty. The Ice Witch creates a massive amount of ice spears, and the Sky Demon realizes that there are too many of them. However, he continues to dodge them thanks to his inhuman speed, but even this has a limit. He quickly realizes that if things continue this way, he will run out of stamina pretty quickly. So he decides to use the Heavenly Step move to rush forward and deliver a powerful blow. From his point of view, it was necessary to quickly close the distance, since that was when he would be able to draw out her most powerful spell. The Ice Witch calls him a rat-like pest and states that the next spell will not be so simple. After a brief pause to prepare, she calls upon the ice spirits to grant her the power to destroy the enemy. The Sky Demon understands that this is the moment of truth, during which he must give his all. He rushes towards her at full speed and does not pay attention to the spell that she is already directing straight at him. He himself prepares an incredibly powerful blow in the hope that he can crush her defenses and cut off her lifeline. However, the witch's protective barrier proves too strong, and the pressure from her spells is added to it. Despite his utmost effort during this attack, he fails to break through her protective field. The Ice Witch just laughs at him and states that all these attempts were useless from the very beginning. The Sky Demon feels several ice shards flying towards his face, but he is not going to give up under any circumstances. Jumping aside, he realizes that this was a missed opportunity, so in the future he must be even faster. After this, he does a few somersaults and lands on the icy floor, waiting for his opponent's next move. He also admits that the speed at which the Ice Witch uses her magic is off the charts. However, for him, such things are within the bounds of what is expected, since he knows for sure that this fight will not be easy for him in any case. The Ice Witch decides to talk a little and states that she wants to ask him something while he is still alive. She reminds him that he is going through a very long journey and is climbing here over the bodies of his many comrades. She asks him what the point of this fight is and why he risks his life, since she never attacks him. The Sky Demon declares that his cult is meant to rule all things and that this is the reason for their existence. He also says that his motives are not only an endless thirst for power, although this is already a secondary reason. He adds that many members of his clan have already been sacrificed, so now he cannot stop halfway. The Ice Witch looks at him with irritation, realizing that in front of her is yet another fanatic, ready to sacrifice everything for the sake of power. The Sky Demon leaps into the sky to level with her opponent and prepare for the second round. The Ice Witch asks him if he really intends to fight to the end, since this fight is pointless anyway. The Heavenly Demon continues to rise higher and higher thanks to spiritual power and becomes filled with energy. He menacingly declares that this time he will definitely finish her off once and for all, and finally become the ruler of the entire world. The Ice Witch declares that this will never happen, as she has no intention of giving in to some worthless creature. She continues to fight and states that he will never be able to get to her, no matter how much he wants to. Immediately after, she uses her Ice Wall skill to stop his rapid approach. The Heavenly Demon understands that this is a defensive technique, as she guesses that a normal spell will not be able to stop it. However, he decides to use the 18th form of Divine Devil Art in order to overcome this obstacle. He delivers a monstrous blow to the giant ice block in order to destroy it and split it into small pieces. In this way, he manages to simultaneously overcome defense and inflict serious damage. The Ice Witch looks at him in surprise and cannot believe that he was able to break through such protection, because no one had ever managed to do this before. The Sky Demon decides it's time to brag and declares that he has united the Muram and conquered the 4 other worlds. He adds that the Ice Witch's world is the last one, so she is just another obstacle in his path that he overcomes. The Ice Witch wonders in her mind if she is finally getting a chance to rest a little. After this, she grabs his hand and declares that it is too early to celebrate victory because she is not dying yet. Immediately after, she creates a giant spear behind her, which is aimed straight at the Sky Demon's back. The Heavenly Demon is very surprised that even with her chest pierced, this girl is not going to give up, and he understands that he needs to leave. The Ice Witch smiles and states that it is too late for that, then adds that it is time to put an end to all of this. The Sky Demon makes several desperate attempts to escape from this icy trap, but he fails. A few moments later, he is pierced through by a huge ice spear, and together with the Ice Witch, they fall down. The Heavenly Demon understands that all this was done for the sake of mutual destruction. He reflects that if he dies first, he will definitely lose, so he must be patient. The Sky Demon knows he needs to at least see her die, but all he sees is her devious smile. After this, he reflects on how terribly offensive it is, because his conquests end here and lead to nothing. His consciousness gradually dissipates, but a strong will constantly keeps him from completely disappearing. The Heavenly Demon comes to the conclusion that he cannot accept the end of his life, as it is based on too great a conquest. After some time, he is awakened by a loud heartbeat, and he decides to concentrate, not realizing how much time has passed. He feels warm and comfortable, imagining that he is in the womb of the mother he almost never really had. The process of slowly restoring lost feelings turns out to be incredibly surprising for him, but everything turns out to be not so simple. The thing is that he quickly feels someone else next to him and understands that he will have a brother or sister. He remembers that in his previous life he had no one and grew up in poverty, which hardens his character to an incredible level. His parents abandon him, so he lives the life of a pathetic cockroach, whom no one cares about at all. He is a poor orphan, but after some time he is taken as a slave into one of the many sects of that time. This becomes the first step that leads him to conquer the world as a heavenly demon, but now he even has a family. The Heavenly Demon muses that once he conquers the world again, he might even be able to trust his brother. The Sky Demon suggests that his brother is incredibly lucky to have such a strong ally as himself. He is happy that in this life he will definitely not lose to the Ice Witch, and after some time, he is born. However, soon after birth, he opens his eyes and feels a very strange and familiar aura that penetrates him to the bones. He decides to take a closer look at his brother or sister, and realizes that fate is playing a very cruel joke on him. Without a doubt, this little girl is the incarnation of the Ice Witch, as she has the same appearance. The Ice Witch also slowly opens her eyes and looks around carefully, after which she lingers her gaze on the Sky Demon. The Sky Demon immediately realizes that his eyes are not deceiving him and that he is once again meeting his worst enemy. He understands that this is an incredibly fateful meeting, but at the same time it is a cruel punishment because now they are one family. However, he decides to take this chance since it will be easier for him to get to her if she is around all the time. Doctors who are closely monitoring these babies smile and say that apparently the twins are very happy with each other. The cult of the Heavenly Demon, which is led by one of our heroes, is a group that worships power and consists of various individuals. This cult consists of a great number of incredible masters who specialize in various martial arts. There are also people there who know how to control poisons and thus spread the influence of the cult in various spheres. The main fighters are the 4 great guardians, each of whom possesses incredible power and is second only to the Overlord. Together with these guardians, he unites the world of martial arts and conquers 4 different worlds with incredible ease. However, right now, the Heavenly Demon is a small child who poses no danger. On top of everything else, he is facing the greatest test of his life, which cannot be compared to anything else. The door to the nursery gradually opens, and he understands that the time for a great test is coming. The mother of 2 little angels comes into the room and asks them how well they slept, still smiling. The Heavenly Demon hopes to avoid this incredible humiliation, but his hopes prove futile. Mom says it's time to change his diaper and praises him for not crying, as if he knew Mom was tired. The Heavenly Demon reflects on how he once ruled the entire world, but now he can't control his own intestines. In this life, they decide to name him Uram, and the Ice Witch now bears the name Yuri. Uram watches her closely, realizing that it has already been 100 days since he was born next to his enemy. Yuri, however, shows no interest in him and acts as if he is becoming an ordinary child. Uram reflects that, according to his calculations, his Dantian should already be formed to collect internal energy. At dawn, he simply repeats the mnemonic of his cultivation technique and enters a state of trance. However, every time he tries to do this, Yuri starts crying nonstop and detracts the attention of the adults. As a result, her father and mother come to calm her down and at the same time take Uram away, assuming that he was also scared. Uram knows perfectly well that this is definitely not a coincidence and that she is doing this on purpose to hinder him. Uram can practically feel her laughing at him and promises himself that one day he will definitely take revenge on her. Oram looks at her intently every time she does something like this, and makes this promise to himself again and again. The thing is, a heavenly demon never gives up, no matter what circumstances may come against him. Oram understands that in order to defeat her, he must train not only his energy, but also his physical body. He cannot calm down for a minute, because in this situation, the winner is the one who is ready to fight first. Yuri periodically watches his grueling training, but behaves completely calmly. From the outside, it seems as if she doesn't care about such things at all, and doesn't see him as the slightest threat to herself. 4 years later, Urim finally gets the chance to face his sworn enemy one-on-one and find out who is stronger. Their mother and her sister decide to go for a walk in order to rest a little and discuss very important things. Urim immediately approaches her and asks how long she is going to pretend she has no idea who he is. Yuri turns around in his direction in surprise and holds his gaze on him for a while, after which he turns away again. Urim says that until now, due to their parents' supervision, they have not had the opportunity to finally clash in a duel. Yuri states that he is already 4 years old, so it would be good if he tried to grow up a little and stop talking about battles. She then turns around and states that there are 3 things to keep in mind going forward. Urim asks her what she wants to say, and Yuri replies that firstly, she is the one who emerges victorious from their past life. Urim claims that these are pathetic attempts to provoke him with vile lies that are incredibly far from the truth. After this, he rushes forward, realizing that in order to win, someone must strike first and crush their enemy. However, a few moments later, his blow hits not Yuri's face, but one of the many plush bunnies. Yuri proves to be surprisingly agile, despite not doing any physical training. Urim understands that even now she makes him wonder, but he still considers himself much more prepared. He delivers a powerful kick, but she quickly jumps to the side, demonstrating incredible skills. Yuri hovers in the air and states that there is one more point that needs to be taken into account going forward. She states that she relies on magical abilities and can therefore use them much earlier than he gets into shape. After this, she orders the toys that are near her to quickly move and pounce on him. Urim is still not very agile due to his childish build, so he immediately finds himself buried under a pile of toys. Urim tries to free himself, but he is unable to do so, and Yuri lands carefully, looking at him carefully. She states that there is a third point that needs to be discussed in order for them to coexist normally. She notes that she doesn't care if he trains again or if he can defeat her, as she only cares about her parents. She states that in this life, they must do everything possible to ensure that their family is not harmed, since parents are the most important thing. Urim says that in a past life they were enemies, and asks her if she is happy with this state of affairs. Yuri looks at him very sternly, but does not try to use magic in any way to influence his brother. She states that his past life doesn't matter, and reminds him that she is his older sister, so he doesn't have to show respect. Urim looks at her with irritation, realizing that he is still too weak to really fight her. After this, night falls, and it is time for the children to finally go to bed and prepare for tomorrow. Urim stares at the ceiling and refuses to use a blanket, as he believes it interferes with the strengthening of his body. He still can't understand why the Ice Witch is acting this way, because such behavior is completely atypical for her. He understands that if this is the same person as in his past life, she will never leave him alone and will continue to bully him. However, now she is showing a diametrically opposite behavior, as if she is not interested in all this at all. Urim wonders if she is implying that he is so weak that he is not worth fighting, or if she considers him her family. Yuri is actually awake too, lost in her dark thoughts about what was once important to her. She recalls that in her past life, all she did was kill a huge number of people indiscriminately and without any particular purpose. However, this comes at a price, as at a certain point she commits an act that she still regrets. Unfortunately, due to certain circumstances, she has to kill a person who is incredibly important to her. Yuri tries hard to close her eyes, thinking about how the past is tormenting her again, even though she is trying to run away from it. She calms down, realizing that this life is significantly different from the world she lived in before. She assumes that the new life she receives is nothing more than a gift from God and a chance for redemption. She firmly decides that she will not lose the people dear to her anymore, even though she has to be reborn. Urim does not quite correctly perceive the witch's words and reflects on the fact that he himself relies primarily on physical strength. Unlike him, she gains access to magic almost instantly, because magic depends on the level of consciousness. However, this only means that he must train 3 times harder in order to succeed. He looks at the ceiling and thinks that this time he will definitely make up for lost time and return to his former glory. Looking at the small dinosaurs above his cradle, he realizes that he is beginning to master the art of the gates of hell. He recalls that mastering the heavenly demon divine art requires the energy of at least 3 cycles. One cycle represents 60 years of cultivation, but in his past life, only 1 cycle was enough for him. In order to accumulate internal energy, he must first form his dantian and give it the correct shape. It's not easy for him, but he finally adapts to this new body and now has complete control over himself. However, now he experiences something unusual, emphasizing to himself that such sensations have never come to him before. Usually the gate of life, located at the base of the spine, opens and connects with the dantian, but now everything is happening differently. He continues to carefully analyze his body in order to find out what exactly is not going according to plan. Urim realizes that for some reason the energy point on the top of his head opens first because babies breathe through it. He understands that the pure body of the baby accepts these changes as they are, and therefore two dantians are formed in him. This gives him an unprecedented advantage that he could not even dream of in his past life. After a while, they grow up a little more, and now they can be sent to kindergarten so that they can meet other children. Parents see their children off and ask them to obey the teachers and not to quarrel with other children. The mother turns to her son and tells him to hurry up because the teacher is already waiting for him. In response to this, the proud heavenly demon throws off his backpack and it falls to the ground with a characteristic sound. He calmly states that he has already learned everything he needs to know and that he has nothing more to learn in kindergarten. The mother apologizes to the teacher and says that her child is a little eccentric and sometimes behaves strangely. The teacher tries to praise him and says that his speech is very well delivered and he shows signs of high intelligence. Yuri looks at him sternly and communicates with him telepathically, telling him to behave normally. Urim gives her a stern look, but understands that in this situation there is no point in making a scene. After that, he gets on the bus, which heads towards the kindergarten quite quickly. Urim reflects on how all this upsets him greatly, but he has to endure it because his time has not yet come. After some time, a neighbor approaches him, trying to say hello and attract his attention. She asks him how old he is, and then asks if he would like to be her friend. Urim sternly states that he is 966 years old and that he has no interest in other children. The girl immediately starts crying because the boy she initially takes for a friend turns out to be a rude person. Urim tries to maintain maximum awareness in order to develop his internal energy in the morning. However, at night he focuses on external training in order to close the gap at full speed. By alternating the work of two energy points, he strains his body to the limit in order to break through to a new level of strength. However, after some time, his plans change significantly as a new person appears in their family. Yuri receives this news with great happiness and looks at his little sister, who was brought home from the maternity hospital. Urim also comes to look at the new member of their family, carefully analyzing her every move. Urim ponders that this child named Yuna does not possess any supernatural aura and is most likely not a reincarnator. Urim also reflects on the fact that there is no guarantee that he and the witch are the only reincarnators. Looking at his sister, he assumes that she must have thought the same thing, but decides not to talk about it. After a while, Yuri calls him over when they manage to get away from their parents for a while. Urim says that if she asks for a duel, he is always ready for it, but she does not answer him. She just pierces him with a condemning look for the fact that he still behaves like a little child and tries to fight all the time. After a short pause, she hands him a small object, and Urim looks at it in surprise, trying to understand what it means. Looking at his hand, he realizes that it is a ring, which looks rather strange and at first glance is unremarkable. After this, he throws the ring away, declaring that this is a very strange trick, which is completely unlike her. Urim also asks her what she thinks about their sister, assuming that she is not a reincarnator. Yuri disappears into space after a few moments and materializes right next to this ring. Picking it up, she explains that it is a pair of ring-shaped spatial gates that will allow them to always stay in touch. After this, she states that Yuna is a normal child, which means that they must protect her if something happens. Urim becomes wary after Yuri talks about it in such a tone as if something is actually about to happen. Yuri talks about how they need to take responsibility for their family, since they are its older brother and sister. She then adds that they must behave accordingly and be vigilant about the safety of their loved ones. Urim accepts this information with great difficulty, since his mind is still filled with the thirst for new conquests. He reflects that no matter what happens, it doesn't really matter, because he needs to focus on himself. He is not too afraid of the prospect of other reincarnators appearing, since he is currently developing his body to the limit. He reflects that once he regains his strength from his past life, all problems will naturally disappear. So the long years of schooling continue, but he does not waste a single day. Finally, he manages to make a breakthrough and achieve 3 cycles of internal energy, which allow him to move forward. He takes a deep breath to focus on the present moment and analyze everything carefully. He realizes that he is now 17 years old, and considering his age, this is an incredible increase in terms of combat power. He also understands that compared to his past life, this is still too little, so he should begin serious preparation. After this, the real drama begins as one of the students named Donald is bullied by his classmates. One of the bullies states that Donald should go and buy them food like usual since he is skipping breakfast and is starving. Donald continues to take the blows and says that he doesn't have the money to buy them anything right now. The bully immediately takes a big mop in order to teach him some sense and force him to get some money. He takes a swing and declares that in that case, he will just keep beating him until he comes up with something. His plans are thwarted as Urim decides to intervene and grabs his hand, ordering him to stop. The bully turns around and asks in surprise who he is and why he is trying to stop him. The rest of his classmates, who had been watching the whole thing with indifference, turned around in his direction in surprise. Oram remains calm and states that he is the man's classmate. He also looks at him with incredible pride and is prepared to fight for a defenseless person if necessary. He looks at him seriously enough for the scoundrel to understand that in this situation, it is better not to try to resist. However, such people get the message very slowly, so he decides to show his character and try to hit him back. Oram hardly listens to him, paying attention only to Donald and realizing that such people are too weak. He also understands that such people are also lonely, since no one can stand up for them and protect them from stronger ones. He remembers himself in the past and understands that people look down on such people and pretend that they do not exist. He looks up in irritation, realizing that nothing has changed now, and this is still the same world as before. The girl says that this is the class president's brother and that they are twins, although they are completely different from each other. The bully continues to try to break free from Uram's grip, but Uram holds his hand too tightly and he is unable to get away. He immediately swings his arm and demands that he be released immediately, otherwise he promises to beat Uram for allowing himself to go too far. Uram calmly dodges this blow, as it is too predictable for his incredible combat intelligence. Immediately after this, he trips him up and declares that he is fulfilling his request and is not going to hold him back any longer. He demonstratively shows his hands and declares that he has let go of him, but for some reason he still loses his balance. The others start laughing at him and saying that he looks like a loser, and the video of this will probably end up on social media. Uram looks at these classmates in surprise and tries to understand why they are pretending that this is not their friend. Immediately after this, he starts walking towards them with a stern look, as if he is going to beat them up too. These guys immediately tense up, trying to figure out what the real intention of this rude schoolboy is. Uram extends his hand to Donald and asks if he is okay and how he feels. He recommends that he get back on his feet and says that everywhere and always there will be pathetic trash that will prevent people from living. These school children look at him in surprise, after which they realize that he has just insulted them and called them pathetic trash. One of them immediately steps forward to teach this impudent fellow a lesson and teach him good manners. He comes closer to him and asks if he has finished his speech or is going to continue. Oram looks at them menacingly and asks if they want him to repeat his words about them being trash. Meanwhile, the main bully tries to quickly get to his feet in order to deliver a powerful blow to Uram. Oram manages to notice the direction of this blow and easily dodges, after which he decides to carry out a counterattack. Oram also asks him if this is all that this man is capable of, even if he strikes from behind. After this, he carries out a counterattack, barely visible to the human eye, which literally knocks the ground out from under the villain's feet. He falls to the ground even more spectacularly and receives minor bruises, which hurt his pride much more than his body. Oram decides to finally destroy this man's self-esteem and steps on him with his foot, pinning him to the floor. The other observers immediately realize that this man is much more serious than he appears and that it is better not to fight him. Oram states that this should be enough to call what happened a warm-up, since it was not a serious fight. He looks closely at his defeated opponent and asks if he agrees with this. The crowd is already preparing to stand up for their comrade, when suddenly the classroom door opens sharply and Yuri walks in. She asks in an indifferent voice if they really decided to start a fight in the classroom when the lesson was about to start. The girl says that her brother is being beaten by a group of people alone and they do it for absolutely no reason. Oram shyly looks away, realizing that he will indeed have to justify himself to his sister for a long time. The girl immediately shows her phone and says that she made a recording that can be shown to the class teacher. Yuri understands that these people clearly do not deserve to be treated normally and resorts to a little trick. Using magic, she instantly destroys the phone so that nothing can be extracted from it. Yuri says that the lesson will start very soon, so it's better to return to your seats and stop messing around. Oram realizes that she has just helped him and mentally thanks her for not standing aside. Meanwhile, the big guy continues to threaten him and says that he will deal with him again in the near future. Oram ignores him and then helps Donald up, stating that from now on, they will be friends. After some time, Yuri asks him what exactly he did and scolds him for trying to show off his strength. Oram says that he wanted to scare these people because they were bullying the student and it was impossible to ignore it. Yuri tells him that this place is different from the world they are used to living in, and that it would be better for him to adapt to it. Oram disagrees with her, and says that, in fact, this world is no different from other worlds he has been to. He also states that instead of turning a blind eye to the imperfections of this world and adapting to it, it is better to change the world itself. Yuri exhales tensely, but understands that in this situation, he is indeed doing the right thing. Donald, meanwhile, finds himself in serious trouble again, because he is too weak to fight back. The hooligans catch him again and decide to use him as a chair to make themselves more comfortable. The main bullies say that they will not let this scoundrel go so easily and will definitely take revenge for the fact that he humiliated them. They are reminded that Oram is a very good fighter, but the main bully declares that next time he will knock the spirit out of him. However, the big guy who is closely watching this fight says that it is necessary to gather as many guys as possible. He adds that this man fights too well, so he must be crushed so hard that he will never rise again. So they decide to beat him up as a whole crowd, after which they turn their attention back to Donald. They ask him if he has listened carefully to everything that he must now do in order to continue living in peace. They order him to bring Aram to the wasteland, and if he refuses, they promise not to leave him alone. After some time, the action moves to a school classroom when the next day has already begun. Aram is sitting calmly in his place when suddenly he hears a voice that is already well known to him, which is gradually approaching. Donald thanks him for helping him earlier, and Aram states that anyone in his place would have done the same. Donald says that as a thank you, he decided to treat him to something tasty, but Aram immediately understands that this is a trap. He looks closely at the abrasions on his body and realizes that, apparently, Donald is now doing what he was ordered to do. Donald is still trying to find the right words to lure Aram into a trap, but everything is already becoming obvious. To the surprise of this poor boy, Aram suddenly agrees to his proposal. He whispers to him that these idiots probably didn't understand his intentions and asks where exactly he needs to go. Donald is very surprised that his plan is discovered so easily, but he understands that he has no other choice. After some time, he reaches a place where a large crowd of hooligans is already waiting for him, ready to beat him half to death. They turn towards him with smiles and say that he has finally arrived, and they also cannot believe that he did not chicken out. Then they ask him if he is the guy who supposedly knows how to fight well. Aram looks at them with a smile and asks if they really sell teokbokki here, noting that this is exactly what he came here for. They take him for a fool and say that he was lied to, since they don't sell anything like that here. Aram says with a smile that he knows this very well, since there is only a collection of garbage and waste here. The bullies call him a cocky idiot who is completely out of his mind if he expects to get out of here alive. Aram says that they need to stop hesitating and attacking, because if he is late home, his sister will worry. It's gradually getting dark, and one of the lanterns turns on in a very opportune place to illuminate the upcoming fight. Aram calmly waits for one of his opponents to approach him in the blind hope that he will be able to strike. This opponent is overconfident because he swings so openly without worrying that his movement can be easily read. Aram takes a slight step to the side in order to simultaneously dodge the attack and trip up the villain. One enemy is already out of action, but after a while, it is the turn of another bully, who also moves forward. Aram tries to maintain maximum concentration on what is happening and dodges this blow with incredible ease. He already feels much less pity for this bully and charges his blow to break through his defense. Aram reduces the force of the blow several times in order not to finish off this person and not to get into even more trouble. However, this is enough to knock him out instantly, as the blow lands on the lower part of the jaw. Aram looks at them with a smile and asks why they are standing still, recommending that they attack faster. Unable to withstand the serious tension, the villains rush forward, saying that they must attack him with the whole crowd. Aram meets the first of them with a powerful blow, and understands that this fight is unlikely to be difficult for a man like him. Alternately dodging attacks and delivering powerful counterattacks, each of which knocks out the enemy, he moves forward. None of them can even scratch him, since they are several dozen steps below his level. Aram decides to use this fight as training to further hone his moves. Every blow these scoundrels strike has no chance of success, although they try to compensate for their lack of confidence with loud screams. Aram puts his hand forward again in order to change the direction of his opponent's strike. After this, he delivers several powerful blows towards his opponent to make him lose his balance. In this way, he already gets rid of several enemies, and all that remains is to finish off those who still hesitate to rush into battle. Aram immediately apologizes to them, saying that he was trying to contain himself but was too excited. The opponents look at him in surprise and try to understand how this is even possible, because he defeats everyone too quickly. Aram beckons them with his finger, saying that they are not actually finished dealing with this situation yet. However, seeing such a powerful fighter, they are in no hurry to fight him because they understand that they are already doomed. Aram looks at them with irritation and says that this is precisely why he cannot tolerate people like them. He notes that individually, they can't do anything, but in a pack, they bully the weak and then tuck their tails between their legs. He says that these children have barely learned to shave, but they are already pretending to be big bandits, although in reality, they can't do anything. One of the villains, who has come to his senses, takes a water pipe, realizing that thanks to this, he can gain an advantage. He quickly rushes into the attack, hoping that Aram will continue to rant and not pay the slightest attention to him. Aram continues to lecture these people, telling them that nothing good will come of them if they continue to live this way of life. So, in a few moments, this pipe is dangerously close to his neck. However, Aram is too fast even for such a movement, so he intercepts the pipe with his hand and stops it. He asks the attacker if he doesn't understand that such objects can kill a person if you hit him too hard. Immediately after this, he delivers a powerful counterattack, which is soft enough not to kill the opponent. After this, the bully immediately falls to the ground, feeling that his muscles no longer obey him, and loses mobility for a while. Uram says that it looks like he will have to teach these scoundrels a valuable lesson for them to learn. The remaining hooligans understand that now they will definitely not be able to cope with this martial arts monster. The next day, all sorts of rumors begin to spread around the school, which the students happily discuss with each other. They say that someone punished the school bullies, noting that this is why it is unusually quiet today, and they all end up in the hospital. They wonder what happened and say that more than 10 hooligans were defeated by one person. One of them expresses skepticism, but is immediately told that someone's friend saw it on the way to school, but did not see who it was. Yuri walks past these people, carefully catching every rumor that reaches her ears. She exhales tensely and realizes that she might have a serious conversation with her homeroom teacher. Meanwhile, Uram decides to meet Donald in a quiet place where no one will disturb them. Uram says that he has nothing to worry about anymore, because if the bullies bother him again, he can tell them about it. Donald asks if the rumors are true, adding that Uram is dealing with them single-handedly. Uram says that these are all empty rumors since he is simply talking to them properly, and therefore they change their minds. Uram says that he shouldn't spread these rumors anyway, and Donald immediately apologizes to him. He says that he shouldn't have dragged him into this, but he couldn't do anything because he was too weak and pathetic. Uram says that it is not he who is pathetic here, but those people who are trying to put pressure on him with numbers. Donald says that he heard that these people are very dangerous because there are real bandits behind them. Donald says that if something happens to Uram because of him, he will never forgive himself because there is nothing he can do. Uram gets to his feet and says that everything can always be discussed, so there is no need to worry in this situation. Donald immediately thanks him and says that he was always alone, so no one was embarrassed to beat him up. He also states that Uram is the first person who stands up for him when he was bullied by almost everyone. Uram thanks him for deciding to befriend him, as this is the first friend he has in this life. Immediately after this, he says that they need to continue to be friends since they have a lot in common. Donald asks him if he reads manga, adding that his way of speaking is somewhat unique. After some time, Uram returns home to take part in the family dinner with the others. Yuri sits quietly at the table with the others and tries to pretend that he doesn't hear what's going on. The mother tells her youngest daughter that she should eat her carrot, but she says that it is not tasty. Mom says that if she wants to be as smart as Yuri and as tall as Uram, she needs to eat right. Afterwards, the father asks them both how their school life is going, hoping that everything is going well. Yuri says that life has hardly changed for her, and little Yuna says that her sister always comes first. Uram continues to eat in silence, after which his father asks him how his affairs are going. Uram talks about restoring justice in the world and even making a friend named Donald. He also says that compared to winning first place in some test, this is a much greater achievement. Immediately after this, Yuri thanks them for the treat and says that he will probably go on to study further. After everyone leaves, the mother of the family says that she is very worried about her son. She notes that he is already 17 years old. He does not care about his studies, but he also does not worry about his future, which is incredibly important. However, his father says that there is no need to rush him, as he should grow at his own pace. Uram continues to train physically in order to become even stronger and reach the next level. The father assumes that he is unlikely to get into trouble, when suddenly several people in suits approach Uram. They look at each other and wonder if this is the person they were all talking about. Uram asks them if the people standing before him are really the same bandits who patronize pathetic hooligans. One of these suspicious people says that he is saving them from unnecessary trouble and then tries to introduce himself. He also says that it would be better for them to talk somewhere else, as they don't need prying eyes watching them. Uram says these words are music to his ears as a small group of criminals lead him away from his comrades. After some time, the action moves to a remote place, which is located several kilometers from Uram's house. Two criminals look at him and say that this place would be perfect because there is no one extra here. Uram asks them if they are sure about this, because if he fights seriously, then they will definitely be in trouble. One of the bandits looks at him closely and says that he wants to ask him if he is a reincarnator. Uram is very surprised by what he hears, since the last thing he expects is for someone else to be reborn with him. The bandit looks at him happily and says that, judging by his reaction, he really is the one who is being reborn. Uram can't believe what's happening when suddenly a powerful energy flow rushes past him. This stream is sent by one of the bandits, who all this time is trying to impress him and find out who he is. Uram understands that this power belongs exclusively to people who awaken their inner energy. The bandit says that he would be happy to see what he is truly capable of in this life. Due to the very loud noise, the birds immediately take to the air and try to leave the place, obeying the instinct of self-preservation. Uram fights his opponent almost automatically, as he has very serious food for thought. He realizes that everything is turning out exactly as he expected, and that it is not only he and the witch who are returning to life in this new world. One of the bandits leans to the side after a blow from Uram and manages to avoid serious damage. He guesses that Uram is lost in his thoughts, which is why his attacks look careless and inaccurate. Urim continues to fight this opponent and realizes that this fight is beginning to seem unimaginably boring to him. Meanwhile, the bandit misinterprets his behavior and assumes that he was simply scared and fell silent. Urim blocks his most powerful blows with unprecedented ease and does not feel the slightest tingling on his skin. He understands that there is nothing special about this enemy, so he can calmly find out who they are. The second bandit, watching what is happening, says that he expected much more from him, and this looks disappointing. Another bandit says that there is no point in dragging out the fight and that we need to deal with this scoundrel as quickly as possible. He notes that the assignment was to finish him off quickly, so the whole thing turns into a pointless farce. Urim notes that his opponents use martial arts and asks them who they are. The bandit says that if he wants answers, he should dodge this attack, and then maybe he will tell about it. Urim decides to fall for this trick, while the enemy tries to strike as quickly as possible. Moments later, a powerful energy explosion occurs, obscuring the battlefield. The bandit, who is watching what is happening, continues to stand motionless and carefully watches what will happen next. This blow turns out to be powerful enough that the bandit doesn't even realize whether he has achieved his goal. He asks his opponent if everything is okay, and Urim, who ends up behind, says that everything is fine. This makes the bandit very surprised, and he immediately turns around, trying to understand how this is possible. Urim says that in this case he should get an answer to the question of who they really are. The bandit answers him with a counter question, trying to understand how he dodged this attack, because it was very fast. He immediately assumes that this is not a newbie in front of him, and adds that ending everything quickly would be boring. Urim indignantly wonders why they are simply ignoring his question, since he already asked who they are. However, the bandit quickly sets new conditions for him, saying that if he wants to find out about this, he must defeat him. However, a second before the situation fully unfolds, his hand is intercepted by one of his comrades. Urim continues to remain calm, knowing full well that he can dodge this blow if necessary. An aura was already beginning to gradually accumulate in his hands, which would allow him to turn the tide of this battle in the blink of an eye. The attacking bandit turns out to be very surprised that the elder decided to stop this fight and not allow him to deal with Urim. He looks at him in surprise and asks why he decided to do this, since he was just starting to warm up. The elder reminds him that they are not here for this, and their mission must be above personal scores with random people. Afterwards, he apologizes to Urim, saying that they should have assessed his abilities, not arranged a fight. The bandits look at him appraisingly, after which they finally decide to reveal who they are. He notes that they are a group of reincarnators called Hunter Hall, and Urim is very surprised by this. He asks them if there really is a whole organization of reincarnators, and how they knew he was one too. The bandit says that, judging by what they heard from the guys he had already attacked, this certainly doesn't sound like a normal person. He also says that if he had not reacted to the word reincarnator, they would have simply left and not done anything to him. Urim asks them why they track other reincarnators, and they state that it is because of competition. He explains that there are many reincarnators in this world, and some of them act secretly to control everything. Urim finally realizes that the number of reincarnators is much greater than he expected, and his former comrades are probably here too. Urim asks how many reincarnators there are, but they say they don't disclose that information. They add that they can share it if he joins them, and Urim asks why he would do that. After this, he looks at them appraisingly and says that he will never serve people who are weaker than him. After this, the older bandits begin to laugh sincerely, realizing that this man is too self-confident. He takes a few steps forward and says that there will always be someone who doesn't know their place. He rushes forward to deliver a powerful attack and says that they will teach him a real lesson. He also jokingly states that this will be a kind of initiation, since now he must learn to know his place. We will omit the details of this battle, since it is obvious who emerged victorious from this unequal fight. Instead, we are transported several hours ahead to the city where Yuri is walking and continuing to read the book. Suddenly, she hears Urim's voice asking her why she is constantly learning a huge amount of information. He adds that she remembers this meaningless nonsense that has no relation to real life. From his point of view, this makes no sense at all, but they continue to compete to see who has remembered the material better. Yuri says that this is how society here is structured and asks him what he wants to say. Urim says that she should try her best not to be surprised by new information, adding that they are not the only ones who have reincarnated. Yuri says with absolute indifference that she knew about this perfectly well, but it doesn't bother her at all. Urim asks her how she can turn a blind eye to this, and adds that the ice witch should not behave like this. Yuri briefly loses her temper and orders him to stop calling her that, reminding him that she's just a high school student. Urim stops in surprise and watches as passers-by also try to understand why the two started arguing. Yuri says that she is no longer the ice witch he once knew, and is now just an ordinary high school student. She states that if anyone tries to ruin her current life, she will not forgive them, and this even applies to Urim. After some time, another school day begins, and Urim heads to school, constantly thinking about the recent events. School life is as carefree as before, so he has excellent time to reflect. Oram continues to keep a close eye on Yuri, who almost never lets the book out of her hands. He comes to the conclusion that she really likes the life she has now, when suddenly he hears a familiar voice. Donald comes closer to him and says that he is withdrawing into himself again and not reacting to what is happening around him. He hands him one earphone and asks if he would like to listen to the music he is currently listening to. Oram asks him why he would do that, and Donald states that it is music from a band he likes. At first, Oram doesn't pay any attention to this, but decides to listen to music to support his friend's request. However, after some time, he begins to hear a painfully familiar text that he has already heard dozens of times. This song takes him back to the distant times when he was still a heavenly demon and commanded a huge army. Those times still remain incredibly warm memories for him, as he was at the top then. Almost every morning he would go out to some cliff with his followers for a strange ritual. He spoke loudly about how they would take possession of everything under the sky, since he himself was the sky. He declared that he himself would become the highest of the heavens, while his followers did not understand the meaning of this self-admiration. Oram realizes that this song clearly refers to those times and wonders who wrote it. Donald shows him the author of this song, and it turns out that she is a stunningly beautiful girl who has built a career in music. Oram watches the singer's performance on his phone, trying to figure out if he knows her. Donald says that this song is by a girl group called Fairy, which already has cult status. Oram looks at her carefully and says that for some reason this face seems incredibly familiar to him. Donald claims that they are on everyone's lips and that the girl in the center is Irene, who wrote the lyrics to the song. Oram looks closely at her facial features and asks if this girl really wrote all the lyrics to the song. Donald says that she is originally from China and is therefore popular both in her homeland and in Korea. Oram realizes that this text is almost identical to his speech before the battle with the Alliance, which means that Irene is a former reincarnator. Oram recalls that at that time the cult already had several followers, which meant that she became a singer in this world. Watching her performances, he understands that this is precisely why he felt a note of sadness in her seemingly bright smile. Oram asks where he can meet her, and Donald states that he needs to go to a fan meeting. Oram says that this is a simply amazing idea, and suggests going there in the near future. Donald asks him if he really wants to go there right now, since they are in class now. After some time, the action moves to the main building of Hunter Hall, which they were trying to recruit Yoram. The sounds of a fierce battle can be heard nearby, as the bandits have obviously failed and are now getting a scolding. One of them is thrown aside and is unable to withstand the pressure of an even more senior boss, who is clearly dissatisfied. The red-haired bandits look at them and say that they couldn't cope with one high school student and returned with nothing. The bandits look at him in surprise and say that there is a perfectly logical explanation for this, even if it is implausible. One of them says that he turned out to be much stronger than they thought, so they had no other choice. The red-haired bandit tries to teach them a lesson, but after a while, another short man looks out from the balcony. The boy turns to the red-haired bandit and says that they have all probably realized one very important thought. He notes that for such reincarnators, age means very little in this life, and perhaps he was a big shot in the past. The bandit understands that the head of the leadership has come out in front of them, and says that this man was incredibly strong. Immediately after this, he decides to use his power, and says that, however, this does not change one fact. The bandits immediately fly into the air, unable to resist this incredible pressure, and now their fate is sealed. This stern boy says that they were useless because they couldn't cope with a simple task. He says they are incompetent idiots because they treated him like a petty hooligan and made things difficult. After this, he says that he will go there on his own because he does not want to make an enemy out of this person. After killing 2 of his subordinates, he says that he will try to recruit him, but they need to find out everything about him. The red-haired bandit understands that it is better not to anger his boss now, so he promises that everything will be done in the best possible way. After a while, evening comes and we are transported to another part of the city, not far from the house of our heroes. Yuri calmly returns home, immersed in thoughts so disturbing that she doesn't even keep a book next to her. Oram's phrase about how they are not the only reincarnators and that there are others like them here continues to spin around in her head. For a moment, she is transported to the distant past before she became the legendary Ice Witch. She lived in a small settlement of refugees who moved from place to place and pitched tents to live. The Ice Witch was a small child, so she had to resort to any tricks to get food. All possible methods were used, including stealing from other traders under cover of night. After some time, she reached a large tent in which the light from several candles was burning brightly. She carefully squeezed inside, saying that she had finally brought everything that her sister had asked her to get. The Ice Witch's sister asked her what she had brought, and the Ice Witch told her that she had brought bread and some alcohol. After that, they left the tent to find something very interesting, according to the Ice Witch's sister. After some time, they reach a small wasteland where an improvised shelter stands. A small rat appears near this shelter, looking around in search of food. Quite quickly, she discovers a small centipede that is ideal as a food source. The rat immediately heads towards its victim, accelerating to maximum speed to prevent it from escaping. However, a few moments later, a man hiding in ambush pounces on her and grabs her. He happily holds the rat and says that he has finally got himself some food and asks it not to twitch. Immediately after this, he creates a small fireball in his hand to quickly kill his prey. After a while, he hears the voices of girls approaching, one of whom joyfully calls him grandfather. He immediately turns around and releases the rat, trying to figure out who has come, and is relieved to recognize his student. This student's name is Lena, and her mentor was really looking forward to her coming to him to share supplies. Lena asks him how long he waited for her return, after which she hands him a piece of bread. She says that adults have not shared food with them as often lately, so they were not able to visit him earlier. The Ice Witch asks him why he lives here alone and without food, after which Lena addresses her by the name Sui. Lena immediately says that Sui is her little sister, whom she has already mentioned more than once during previous visits. The mentor clears his throat and then says that Sui is a very cute name for such an inquisitive child. After this, he shows her a fireball and says that this is the reason why he lives alone. Sui was very impressed by his knowledge of magic, but later it seriously changed her life and led to what she is now. Yuri wonders if her life would have been different if she hadn't gotten involved with that man and remained an ordinary girl. After some time, she approaches her house and discovers that a strange figure in an arrogant pose is standing next to the gate. Yuri takes a few steps towards him and asks what he is doing in front of her house, after which the boy turns around. He smiles proudly and says that he heard that it was a guy, but apparently the situation has changed. He asks her if she is his little sister, and the Ice Witch senses a suspicious energy from him. He decides that immediate action is necessary and declares that his assumption is fundamentally wrong. After this, she creates a heavenly seal to awaken her magical abilities to full power. She also tells him that she is the older sister of the boy to whom, apparently, this scoundrel came. After some time, a small cat runs past this place, looking around in search of food. Giant portals appear before his eyes, appearing as if they are pulling space into themselves. After some time, this barrier closes, and the boy says that installing such a barrier is not a simple spell. After that, he says in an irritated tone that his useless subordinates claimed that there were only ordinary people around the boy. Yuri asks him who he is and why he is here, snooping around in front of her house and trying to look for her relatives. The boy says that there is no need to strain yourself, since they can join them, those who came to this world for the sake of destruction. Yuri states that she will be the one asking the questions here, and asks who they are and why they are being hunted. The young man assumes that Yuri's younger brother didn't tell him anything, and declares that now they can clear up the misunderstanding and just chat. Yuri demands an immediate answer, adding that depending on the answer, his head may roll on the ground. This boy says that all reincarnators are by default incredibly rude and arrogant, beyond all measure. He also adds that these reincarnators stop acting arrogantly only when they feel a difference in strength. After this, he switches to combat mode and says that in this case, their conversation becomes simply impossible. Yuri also decides to prepare for battle and says that she has already received her answer and now she will simply finish him off. The boy jumps towards her, saying that he will be interested to see how long she continues to act so insolently. We briefly flash back to the Ice Witch's memories of the moment she first awakened to her magical talent. She happily informs her relatives that she too can create magical particles and control elemental magic. The mentor chuckles and says that they both have extraordinary talents and can manipulate magic. He adds that Lena can command the spirits of fire thanks to her inclination, and Sui can do the same with ice. The mentor says he never would have thought that they would be able to connect with other spirits so easily. Sui happily asks Lena if they will really become magicians, and she replies that they need to try hard to achieve this. Lena says that if they become the Empire's mages, they will never have to go hungry again, and Sui promises to train. She asks if their mom and dad will come back if they become famous so they can finally see them. Lena asks if she still wants to see them, and Sui states that they are her family, so she really wants to meet. Lena quietly says that such a family is really worth meeting after they become magicians. Meanwhile, Yuri's opponent summons the spirits of light to answer his call and grant him more power. Taking careful aim, he sends a technique called Shining Arrow towards her to break her defense. In the place where the Ice Witch had just stood, a powerful explosion occurs with steam, completely obscuring the view. However, after some time, Yuri, as if nothing had happened, climbs out of the protective dome and asks if this is really all he is capable of. The irritated fighter says that this is just the beginning, after which he again calls upon the priests for reinforcement. Taking a few steps forward, he swings his hand and uses the light blade skill to cut down his opponent. Yuri continues to monotonously cast the spell she has already honed to the limit, borrowing the power of the ice spirits. After this, she creates another magical seal to form more ice chunks and refract the blade of light. Thus, this man's next spell has absolutely no effect on Yuri. She asks him in surprise if he really calls this pathetic spell a difference in power that should teach her something. The irritated opponent says that he understood everything perfectly, and now he will not stand on ceremony with her. He states that he initially wanted to deal with her more gently, but now he has no choice but to eliminate her. Immediately after this, he summons a giant light elemental that absorbs his body to grant him control. He looks at her proudly and says that he will now show her the way to the afterlife with the help of his most powerful spells. Yuri continues to look at him, showing boredom from fighting such a bland and uninteresting opponent. Finally, she tells him that he can try to do something similar, but it will not work. The light elemental leaps forward to tear its opponent to shreds. Gradually, the energy of light tries to absorb the energy of ice, but after some time, it completely loses. However, this boy has a few tricks up his sleeve, and he declares that such tricks will not work anymore. He rushes forward and says that he will finish her off, despite the increasing level of ice. Yuri looks at the approaching threat and continues to maintain an icy calm, knowing it's just a bluff. Finally, he turns to the icy winds and commands them to whirl immediately to stop her. After this, she summons an advanced seal and states that the power will now consume him entirely. In the real world, this battle manifests itself in the form of sudden changes in weather and sudden snowfalls that surprise those around them. The mother of the family and Yuna meet this snowfall and are surprised that winter is still far away, but this phenomenon cannot be confused with anything else. However, they understand that this is clearly some kind of anomaly, but they stay in place longer to observe it. Yuna happily says that it is snowing, and she is very happy about it, since she already misses the cold weather. In the dimension where the battle takes place, it also begins to snow due to Yuri's incredibly powerful spell. Yuri remains standing as the villain's attack doesn't even manage to reach her, let alone scratch her. Yuri looks closely at the ice sculpture left behind by his enemy, trying to figure out what to do with it next. She continues to move forward and is not at all worried that this statue might melt and the enemy will escape from captivity. Even the sacred energy is unable to escape Yuri's captivity and ends up sealed in this tomb. Yuri continues walking, feeling how the snow gradually settles on the ground in several layers. The fight is obviously over, but she is still trying to find out the necessary information from the enemy. After this, she decides to rise into the air thanks to her innate ability to levitate in order to continue the interrogation. She carefully lowers herself down in front of her still living opponent, who looks at her in surprise and cannot believe what has happened. He asks who she is and how she was able to defeat him in battle without putting in much effort. Yuri makes a sharp movement with her finger, indicating that she will be the only one asking questions. However, this has not yet dawned on him, and such disrespect for a more powerful enemy costs him dearly. After this, he turns his attention to his body and realizes that his limbs are starting to crumble. He looks at his severed hand in horror and asks how she was able to cut it off so easily. Yuri says that it was her first question that he refused to answer, and that's why he lost his limb. She demands that he tell her everything he knows, otherwise she will continue to torment him. This man says that after death, they went through the process of reincarnation and were sent far into space. Thus they were reborn and sent to an unknown place to fulfill an unknown purpose. So they found themselves on Earth, transported from a parallel universe or another dimension. Almost everyone who ended up here was a ruler in a past life and, for various reasons, achieved their goals. And yet, for some reason, they were reborn into this world in a completely new place with new rules. Adapting to this atmosphere was not so easy, but the general laws of the past world still worked here. They lived for a long time, hiding their true nature and not being seen by other people. However, the power they brought with them from their past lives gradually began to manifest itself, and people began to notice it. The world's rulers publicly denied everything, so as not to increase the level of tension among the general population. However, secretly, almost all rulers decided to hunt them from the shadows in order to quickly eliminate the threat. Those who were exposed fought against government forces to somehow survive in a world that had turned against them. Even though ordinary people were weak and could not use magic or martial arts, this did not affect the outcome of events. They were well organized and methodical, which allowed them to eliminate many threats with minimal losses. The weapons they wielded were very powerful and ruthless, and it was much more difficult to dodge a bullet than an arrow. Eventually, the reincarnators were defeated, and only a small number remained who continued to resist. However, in order to counter this threat, they had to make concessions and unite with each other. Alliances of reincarnationists began to form out of ill will, but the result of this unification was the salvation of their remnants. Later, they decided to combine magic and martial arts to become stronger and stronger. In this way, they were able to come closer to preserving themselves as a species and continuing to exist. Many exceptional individuals emerged, and each of them began to act to seize control of this world. In order to increase their power, they began to gather competitors hiding in the shadows, but this turned out to be not so easy. Most small organizations eventually disintegrated due to rivalries and resentments left over from the past. The warrior says that now in every country powerful groups of reincarnators with leaders have formed. He adds that they secretly gain influence, manipulate world leaders, and form complex alliances to survive. Yuri asks him how many people actually know about the existence of these so-called reincarnators. He tells her that very few, as the world's rulers are hiding it, knowing that the truth would cause mass panic. Yuri says the information he received is enough to continue living and planning his actions. and she adds that in exchange for information, she is ready to give him a painless death instead of continuing the torture. Meanwhile, the mother of the family calls the father and says that the news reported that this only happened in their area. She adds that she was just returning from the grocery store when these huge snowflakes suddenly started falling. She also says that her youngest daughter is outside trying to make a snowman out of the fallen snow. Yuna continues to joyfully hum some songs, hoping that she will make the biggest and most beautiful snowman. However, after a few moments, a large portal opens in front of her, pulsating with strange energy. An unsuspecting Yuri emerges from the portal as her surprised sister looks on. Yuri quickly notices her and asks what she is doing outside, since she should have been home a long time ago due to the cold. However, young Yuna does not understand all the subtleties of the complex world and is only glad that her sister has magical abilities. She immediately rushes into her arms and calls her her beloved older sister. After that, she asks her if she really is a fairy, like Tinker Bell from the cartoons she watches. Yuri tries to get out of this situation and says that she really is a real fairy and can work miracles. After this, she makes her promise that she will not tell a single living soul that she is a fairy. The next day the snow melts, and Urim and Donald head to a concert that happens to be nearby. Urim looks at the giant posters of the singers and says he has never seen anything like it. Donald says he's going to the bathroom and advises him not to get into trouble since they don't even have tickets. Meanwhile, strange people continue to be on the roof of the stadium, watching what is happening. These people turn out to be the same criminals who went on reconnaissance to learn more about Uram. The red-haired leader turns his attention to one person and asks if this target is that person. They say that this man looks exactly like him, and also find that he came here with a friend. They decide to turn their attention to this man, as he can be used to blackmail Uram. Meanwhile, we move into the concert hall, where the staff are trying to do their jobs. The fairy group's manager comes into their dressing room and tells them that they shouldn't worry about the large number of fans. He adds that they just need to do what they always do and gradually raise their voices at the right points in the songs. Afterwards, he wonders where Irene went, and one of the singers says that she went out to get some fresh air. She promises that there is nothing to worry about, as she will be back before the performance as usual and everything will go well. Meanwhile, Irene continues to carefully examine the concert hall, searching for the strange aura she felt. Looking around, she tries to figure out if she imagined it, but her senses remain acute. Continuing to look around, she says that she felt a presence, but now it is felt faintly. After some time, her attention is drawn to several silhouettes on the roof, although there should be no one there. She continues to watch them, and soon these people jump from their place as if they had built-in engines. Irene looks at this carefully and says that this movement definitely does not belong to ordinary people. Urim continues to watch what is happening and reflects on the fact that he now has complete confidence in his theory. He assumes that if everything continues to happen exactly as it is now, he will no longer have any doubts. Urim continues to think about his good friend, who for some reason still hasn't returned. After a short pause, he methodically comes to the conclusion that this guy must have very serious problems. The bandits kidnap Donald and tell him that all they can do is wait for the branch manager to continue their actions. Suddenly they hear a voice behind them trying to get their attention. The red-haired bandits look around in surprise, trying to understand how another person could have ended up here since they didn't see him. Irene says that the kidnapped student looks very much like one of her fans, so it's better to let him go. The bandits comment on how she looks like a real reincarnator and express delight, noting that they should bring her too. Meanwhile, an unknown voice loudly announces that the entrance to the arena is opening and asks to prepare ID and tickets. Urim continues to wait irritably for his friend and tries to understand whether he is really setting up a new toilet there. In his opinion, any normal person would have already gone to the toilet and returned, relieved and calm. However, after some time he begins to feel a strange presence of various energies that should not be here. He immediately turns around, realizing that he feels the collision of two powerful energies. He guesses that there is a battle going on nearby, but now he needs to wait for his comrade at all costs. He tries to dissuade him from doing this, saying that it is better to simply not interfere so as not to get into trouble. He also understands that his sister is unlikely to be thrilled with him continuing to fight and attract attention. However, after a few moments, he decides to rush out to scout out the situation and understand what is going on. Meanwhile, Irene destroys her opponents with incredible ease, leaving no trace of them. Urim moves through the air from side to side and discovers that there is a strange girl on the roof. He looks closely at the other people who are there and realizes that this is clearly some kind of collection of strange bandits. However, he also discovers his comrade there and realizes that he is probably in serious danger. He immediately lands on the ground and begins to look around carefully, first of all deciding to check on Donald. Putting his fingers to his neck, he realizes that he seems to be simply unconscious, since his heart is beating normally. After this, he looks at the girl and asks if she really did this to him, and Irene states that she saved him from the bandits. Urim looks closely at the girl, who also looks back at him, and realizes that she seems familiar to him. He realizes that this is the girl Donald once showed him, calling her an incredible idol who conquered the whole world. He realizes that she truly is an incomparable beauty, capable of attracting the attention of any man. She continues to look at him intently, as if waiting for him to explain the purpose of his visit. Urim asks with a smile whether she is a member of the Heavenly Devil cult or has never heard of it. Irene's expression changes dramatically after these words, and it becomes clear that this means a lot to her. She asks irritably if he is one of those people, emphasizing that she is tired of dealing with such people. She sternly states that, apparently, he is a friend of her devoted fan, so she will show mercy. Taking a few steps forward, she says that she is giving him one last chance. He must get out of here. Taking a fighting stance, Irene declares that if Urim takes his friend and simply leaves, she will let him live. Urim happily says that this is a wonderful mood, as befits a member of the cult of the Heavenly Devil. After this, he declares that he is not going to stand on ceremony with her just because she is a woman and will fight. Irene asks if he is really serious and understands that they will have to fight. Urim rushes to attack, although it is unclear why he would fight a member of the Heavenly Devil cult, since she is supposed to be his ally. Perhaps it is critical for him to check how strong his followers remain even after incarnation. Irene blocks his attack and easily stops it with a simple move that anyone can do. Immediately after this, she squeezes her fingers to block his further advance. After this, she rushes forward and says that she has found another gap in his defense, trying to strike quickly. The blow successfully hits its target, and Urim is sent flying into the air, taking serious damage. Urim tries to break, but he fails and crashes backwards into a pile of rocks. Irene asks him if he really admitted to having such modest skills, and there is disappointment in her voice. Urim falls silent for a moment and tries to recover, feeling that this opponent will indeed be very strong. After this, he says that Irene is much stronger than he thought, and now he will also give it his all to defeat her. Irene claps her hands joyfully and says that this is the most joyful news she has heard in the last few days. After this, she again takes a fighting stance and says that she hasn't warmed up for a very long time and would like to test her strength. Urim also feels an incredible delight and excitement, which he had missed for a long time, since he had not met a serious opponent. Irene continues to look at him intently, while a slightly frightening smile spreads across her face. Urim decides not to think long about his next steps and immediately rushes forward to continue the fight. He also says that things are serious now and advises her to try her best to stay on her feet. Irene blocks this attack and feels that the enemy has indeed begun to behave more dangerously. Urim unleashes multiple blows on her, but he fails to penetrate her defense. Irene, meanwhile, realizes that this fighter is actually quite good, as he has an aura that can penetrate defenses. In response, she uses powerful, quick spinning kicks, and Urim quickly jumps to the side. Urim tries to tease her and asks if she doesn't have enough breath to withstand this onslaught. Immediately after this, he prepares a powerful punch to hit her in the face and instantly take her out of the fight. Irene just smiles, realizing that this was a clear plan that Urim had been following perfectly all this time. Urim is surprised by her change of mood and tries to understand whether this is really a trap that he has fallen into. Irene dives down sharply to avoid his prepared grab and prepares a powerful blow from below. She smiles again and says that she has found another gap in his defense, for which he will definitely be punished. Urim doesn't even have time to react in time and realizes that now all he can do is take another blow to the body. This comes as a serious surprise to him, as he has become too proud and already believes in his superiority. This blow is incredibly powerful, and even a strong person like the Heavenly Demon is sent flying to the side under its inertia. It doesn't just fly off to the side, but flies several dozen meters to the roof of another building and stops only there. Urim managed to remain conscious after such a hard landing, but this means that he will have to fight even more seriously. However, he understands that this fighting technique is very specific and could only belong to one person. Irene, meanwhile, begins to breathe loudly to restore all the energy she spent. Urim rises to his feet and says that this is the highest art, which is called the diamond body technique. Irene says that he is quite strong, but he still cannot match her fighting skills. Urim speculates that the creator of this technique was a mountain fist king named Sangwan, who was his subordinate. He recalls that this man was also known as a foolish giant who was now reincarnated as a girl. In the beginning, he only had a strong body, and he was a man who reached the top only through tireless work. This man once challenged him and stood for about 400 days without moving from the spot so that he would accept his challenge. Sangwan was a great warrior who earned the respect of countless people thanks to his achievements. The duel with him lasted almost endlessly, since their forces were equal and no one could gain the upper hand in this battle. Urim himself does not remember exactly how many days their battle lasted, since it lasted indecently long for such fights. It seemed to him that this battle would continue until one of them died, since no one wanted to give up. It was a bloody battle to the death and a brutal exchange of blows with a man who hardly ever tires. This brutal battle ended only when he, having miraculously escaped death, dealt the final blow to his opponent. Only then did he barely manage to crush this god of war, who seemed invincible, and it became his last battle. Once the battle began, he turned into a real demon, but he had one very surprising feature for such a warrior. He had a genuine and rather silly smile that could not be confused with anything else, and this gave him charisma. Sangwan was his faithful comrade. He almost always covered his back if the situation required it. Oram asks him if he really has an invincible warrior standing before him and wonders what kind of warrior he is. He continues to stare at him, wondering what happened to him that he became a girl. Irene says that given that his past identity has been revealed, it fundamentally changes her strategy. She says that just a moment ago, she was still thinking about letting him go, but now everything has changed. Irene states that since things have gone so far, she can no longer let him go because she must keep the secret. He says that if nothing has changed in their situation yet, and she still has incredible self-confidence. He adds that this won't do, and suggests that she could use a little discipline to remind her who's boss. After that, he decides to use the Divine Devil Art skill, which is his signature technique. Irene immediately realizes who is in front of her and understands that there is no point in fighting this person with full force. Oram decides to use the first form of his art simply to demonstrate his power. He then flies into the air to use Dragon Slash and pounce on Irene. Irene looks at him joyfully and says that this is indeed the head of the cult that she has been looking for so long. After this, she smiles and says that very pleasant memories of past battles immediately came over her. After this, he decides to fight his comrade in order to once again test the strength they had accumulated. Their fists touch, and the moment arrives for the ultimate test of who has become stronger in this life. Oram possesses an all-consuming power that even now manages to surpass his comrade, who has existed here for a long time. Irene notices how her defenses are gradually beginning to weaken, and a small part of her sleeve simply splits. Oram jumps to the side, and Irene takes a few steps back to keep her balance and not fall. Oram lands on the ground and looks at her carefully as she rubs her hands after the powerful blow. Oram put in all the effort he had, and it didn't go unnoticed, as he was very tired. He reflects that it is still too difficult for him to use the Divine Devil Art in this body. However, Irene does not continue to fight him, and simply falls to her knees to greet him. Oram looks at his comrade in surprise and tries to understand why she is acting so strangely. Oram tells her to raise her head, as it is not appropriate for her to behave so humiliatingly in front of him. Irene turns to him happily and says that quite a long time has passed since they saw each other. Oram asks why she is laughing, adding that she couldn't even understand who she was fighting until the last moment. Irene asks him what he is talking about and states that she missed him incredibly much, calling him her big brother. Oram decides to ask her what happened and why he looks like a woman, and Irene states that it is normal. He adds that as soon as he grew up, he turned into a killer beauty and began to attract the attention of other people. Irene also says that she then decided to become an idol, so that its fame would attract the revived cult members. Oram says it's a stupid decision, but Irene says it's a great decision because that's how they met. He also states that Jun Hogui also found him, and Oram realizes that this is another overlord who served him. Oram immediately asks where this man is, and Irene states that she does not know where he is now. Irene emphasizes that since they met once in China, she has never seen him again, but he asked her to deliver a letter. Oram wonders if he has adapted too well to this body, then reads the note. The note says that Sang Gungwan is a fool and won't remember anything, and Oram suggests that this is too much of an attempt to put on airs. Irene looks at him with the same idiotic look, as if nothing in this life matters to her anymore. Oram says that Jun Govi has always had an outstanding understanding of other people's natures. The note states that not all of the Heavenly Devil's cult were reborn, but others turned to him after reincarnation. Oram reflects on the fact that the reincarnated are forming alliances, and one of them has been trying to prevent him from living for several days. Crumpling the paper, he realizes that there are several more unions like the one they just destroyed. Oram comes to the conclusion that the witch's fears have been confirmed, and all the loved ones he holds so dear are in danger. Oram wonders what he should do, and Irene says that there is something she needs to tell him. After a while, she suddenly asks him if he managed to get rid of this ice witch. Irene says that the Heavenly Devil cult is uniting right now, and he still holds a grudge against her for killing him. Irene says that the witch probably defeated them by uniting the entire world, and Oram tries to figure out how to explain this to him more gently. After some time, he feels that the ring that was on his finger begins to behave strangely. It looks at him in surprise, and he realizes that it has become hot, as if trying to signal danger. This ring has a special built-in function for warning of danger for one of the wearers, and for communication with a comrade. Oram is thinking hard about what happened, and Irene is trying to figure out why he suddenly looks so worried. Oram hopes that other hunters have been sent after his sister, and that if anything happens, she will be able to defeat them. He also suggests that perhaps they have taken a family member hostage, and that is why the Ice Witch cannot do anything. Oram stands up abruptly and says that they will talk to each other later, noting that he has a lot to do. After this, he decides to use this ring to dissolve into thin air, placing the responsibility for everything on him. Irene watches this in amazement and understands that the head of the cult was able to master even magic that was previously beyond his control. Yuri is in a pocket dimension at this point and is indeed in serious danger. All this time she is fighting an unknown monster who has come to destroy her once and for all. However, we are transported to their home, where Yuri is attacked at the moment when she least expects it. Aura materializes in her room and looks around to find out what is going on. He understands that this is his sister's room, which he almost never visits, but there is one nuance here. This nuance lies in the giant portal that leads to an unknown direction and is the key to Yuri's disappearance. Orem takes a few steps forward to test the portal's safety and reaches out, feeling himself being pulled inside. Before he can think of a plan, he feels his body begin to dissolve and be transported to another place. And immediately after that, he finds himself in an unknown space and sees the same giant monster in front of him. Yuri prepares to fight this monster, and Orem guesses what this strange creature is. This monster is called the Reaper and resembles the image of death that commonly appears in popular culture. Orem immediately runs forward to take the blow and protect his sister, trying to figure out where the monster came from. The Reaper barely reacts to the appearance of a new enemy and tries to finish the attack with a blow from his scythe. He is armed with very fast and deadly weapons, so our heroes will have to give it their all to avoid dying in this battle. Yuri knows the beast's habits very well, as she is connected to it much more closely than one might imagine. She asks him how dare he attempt to take her life, and creates a special ice shield around her hand. This defense proves strong enough to withstand even a blow from this deadly creature. However, such protection cannot boast of durability, and under sufficient pressure, the Reaper breaks it quite quickly. Yuri jumps back, thinking that this creature was much stronger than she initially thought. The Reaper tries to pull her towards him and then pushes her back, throwing her off balance and opening her up for another strike. He waves his hand and menacingly declares that he will finish her off and put an end to this long-standing feud forever. After a short pause, he delivers a powerful blow that sends her flying and causes serious damage. Yuri screams as she feels blood start to spurt out from the injury as she suffers internal organ damage. Orem understands that if things continue like this, his ally will simply be destroyed and he will be left all alone. Yuri is trying to recover from internal injuries using magic, but there is little time left. Orem quickly figures out what he needs to do, and then turns to the divine devil art. He takes advantage of the fact that the Reaper is almost completely ignoring his presence, and gets the opportunity to prepare a strike. After this, he uses the Dragon Slash skill to knock the opponent off balance. Yuri looks at him and tries to understand why he ended up in this place, although his appearance was very opportune. She asks him why he even decided to intervene when she could have handled it on her own. Orem starts to scold her and says that he actually saved her life and asks what the hell the Reaper is doing here. The Reaper is the guardian of the ice castle, and in a past life, he was served by a witch, and he was quite a formidable opponent. Almost half of the Heavenly Devil cult was killed before they even reached the fortress, and Yuri claims to have made a contract with him. Yuri says that she summoned him again to protect the house, and Orem replies that it is a great responsibility. Yuri states that in reality, she had to resort to such measures solely because of his stupidity. Yuri claims that the reincarnator came to the house to find him, but fortunately, she quickly dealt with him. She also states that this would not have happened if he had behaved decently and not gotten into trouble at the first opportunity. Yuri states that if their address is no longer a secret, then a guard dog is needed to protect the family, and this creature is perfect. The Reaper asks them why they are not paying attention to him, but the pair only continue to sort things out. The Reaper tries to bring them to their senses, but they pretend he doesn't exist. The Reaper states that in that case, he will simply finish them both off if they continue to ignore him and argue in vain. Orem asks his sister why the creature is so angry, and Yuri states that she has no idea. The Reaper calls them impudent worms who dared to forget about him and declares that they will pay for their sins. Yuri advises him not to interfere, as he will interfere with the ritual, and Orem reminds her that she has already been knocked down by one blow. However, his self-confidence quickly evaporates after he feels a sharp decline in strength that is impossible to fight. He feels like his body is running on its last battery, and he can't even use his internal chi energy. He understands that he cannot relax with such an opponent and must get rid of him, even if it means taking risks. Despite the severe pain, he tries to turn to his inner strength in order to obtain resources. Meanwhile, Yuri calls upon the local spirits to grant him the power to destroy this enemy. Orem thinks that the witch is probably preparing a powerful spell, so he must protect her. The Reaper rushes to attack him, and Orem decides to turn to the divine devil art of the fourth form. After charging it up properly, he tries to use Heavenly Dragon's Wrath to parry the blow. The Reaper tries to unleash all his power on Orem's protective spell, but his scythe proves too fragile and is destroyed. Orem understands that he has given it his all, and now it's only up to Yuri. Yuri, in turn, uses his leader skill to summon a giant weapon to his aid. The Reaper looks up in surprise and discovers several blades pointed in his direction. Yuri menacingly declares that he will finish him off with one blow, and all those blades instantly crash into his gigantic body. After the outcome of this duel is decided, she says that everything is finally over, and the ritual can continue. Immediately after this, she approaches Urim and says that they can continue the conversation from which this creature distracted them. Urim doesn't answer, and Yuri asks him if he's really exhausted and can't fight properly anymore. Urim loses consciousness right before her eyes and simply falls down, leaving her alone with her thoughts about how this is possible. Yuri sincerely cannot believe that this man could have ended up in such a state and lost consciousness. Urim has lost too much strength after the duel, and now he needs a long recovery period to heal his wounds. Yuri analyzes him with a cold gaze and realizes that he has Qigong fever, which needs to be treated immediately. Reflecting on the fact that this man is still as reckless as in his past life, she understands that this will bring trouble to their family. Yuri wonders if it would be better for him to die now to make life easier for his family. In this world, there is a realm of demons, and the highest level being among them is the Reaper. The one people once called the God of Death was once summoned by the Ice Witch to perform menial tasks. The Ice Witch was extremely dissatisfied with his level, adding that she had worked long and hard to summon such a weakling. The Reaper immediately became angry and declared that she was an insolent mortal who did not know her place. The Ice Witch immediately initiated a ritual, according to which the loser would become the winner's servant. The Ice Witch stated that the contract would last until one of them died, and Reaper agreed to take part in it. He arrogantly declared that she would become his slave and experience all the suffering of this world for eternity. He lost rather quickly and shamefully, and the bitterness of that defeat still haunts him thousands of years later. After becoming the witch's servant, he was given the task of guarding her ice castle from any intruders. The Reaper destroyed every single person who tried to conquer this land from other worlds on a daily basis, and it began to bore him. Besides everything else, he also drove away the Empire's punitive detachments, but they were all too weak, and it was boring. The Reaper tried to fight the witch again, but she refused to even talk to him about it. The Ice Witch had no intention of changing her position, and only looked at him with irritation every time he came to her. All he gets is a piercing look and cold words, but he still feels like he needs to hold on a little longer. The Reaper understands that the Ice Witch may be very powerful, but her life will still soon end. He understands that the time allotted to people is a moment, so he only needs to wait a little. The contract is simple. This has been going on for 1,000 years, and the Reaper continues to destroy generations of warriors who come here. At this time, he continues to reflect on the nature of this phenomenon, since people have always seemed to him to be weak creatures. He wonders if this creature has overcome the limitations of the human body. It seems to him that this watchtower will never end, but at a certain moment, the one who leads the cult appears. This man is heading with his army to destroy her, and the reason is obvious. The Reaper immediately realizes that there simply cannot be two suns in the sky, since there is too little space for them. The heavenly demon cannot allow another extraordinary being that is similar to him in strength to live in this world. The Ice Witch simply lives year after year in the permafrost and does not try to conquer anything, but she is too strong. The heavenly demon cannot even bear the thought of her existence, as she insults him by living. The Reaper fights fiercely as ordered, but, as per the contract, he loses and is sent back to the demon realm. Upon returning, he never for a moment forgets the humiliation and enslavement, and therefore devotes many years to training. He vows to never lose to a pathetic human again, so he fights a huge number of monsters. However, even despite numerous attempts and training, he still cannot win this fight. This time, he is overcome by the surviving witch, who defeats him twice, which irritates him even more. The Reaper tries to save face and says that this time everything doesn't count because their ritual was interfered with. Yuri orders him to be quiet, so he quickly calms down, realizing that in this situation it is better not to anger her. However, he cannot help but notice that the most incredible turn of events is happening, which he could not have predicted. It turns out that the heavenly devil is also reborn and becomes the younger twin brother of this witch. Reaper asks if he is absorbing the aura, noting that the creature's predatory nature seems unchanged. The Reaper immediately thinks that perhaps the witch will start scolding him, but she replies that this is exactly what is happening. At first, he finds this strange, as it is definitely out of the usual pattern of behavior of the Ice Mistress. The Reaper realizes that the witch is cooling the Sky Devil's aura with her ice to weaken the effects of the severe fever. He guesses that this should be enough to prevent any physical damage. The Reaper watches this procedure closely and finds it hard to believe that he is apparently saving his sworn enemy. Yuri says that she is finished, then kicks him and demands that he stop arguing and get up immediately. Urim wakes up instantly after such a beating, but his physical condition is still far from ideal. Urim complains that his whole body hurts, but Yuri states that he should stop complaining about his life. Urim asks if she tracked the hunters home, and Yuri says it's all his fault. Urim turns angrily towards her, and Yuri says that she just wants a quiet and peaceful life away from these conflicts. After this, she wonders why they won't leave her alone, and why even after her reincarnation, some freaks come after her. Oram understands that her dreams of a quiet life are really quite touching, and it is a pity that they are excessive. Yuri suddenly rises to her feet and says that she has already made her decision, and Oram asks her what she has decided. Yuri says that she will not sit idly by if she is not left alone, and Oram understands that she has decided to act. He asks her what she plans to do, and Yuri assures her that she will let him be part of her plan this time. She says that from now on, he is her first subordinate, and the heavenly demon acts as her second subordinate. Oram cannot believe such disrespect and asks her why she decided to call him her subordinate. Yuri instantly decides to teach him a lesson and charges magic into one of her fingers, which she intends to use to deliver several blows. Immediately after this, she makes several sharp attacks and says that his complaints will not help him. After he completely loses his power, he promises that he will one day take revenge on the Ice Witch, but Yuri demands to call her sister. The Reaper continues to watch them and comes to the conclusion that everything has now become crystal clear to him. He suggests that, apparently, the great beings he knew before have simply ceased to exist. Yuri says that we need to gather important information about the Hunter's Hall, since there is definitely an informant among them. After a while, a very expensive car stops near their house, and the passenger door quickly opens. Irene happily jumps out of there to go meet her beloved cult leader. After this, she approaches the gate, but Yuri comes out and looks at their new guest in surprise. Irene greets her politely and says that she came to meet Uram. Yuri mentally calls her an idiot. She calmly says that Uram will be back soon, so she can wait for him in the house, in the living room. Yuri steps forward, greeting a girl he doesn't know, and continues walking, unsuspecting. The Reaper carefully analyzes Irene and reflects on how her aura is different from that of the witch, but still stands out from the rest. After this, he turns to his boss and says that this girl, apparently, is one of the reincarnators. Yuri immediately turns around to look closely at Irene and analyze his subordinate's words. Irene freezes in place, after which she also feels strange vibrations in her energy channels coming from Yuri. Yuri asks who she is, and Irene quickly guesses that the aura in front of her belongs to her enemies. Irene wonders menacingly if the Ice Witch has targeted the Sky Demon and is trying to set up an ambush. Irene realizes that this is a tremendous opportunity to meet her worst enemy again and finally settle the score. Yuri wonders irritably where her brother picks up all this trash that she has to clear out. She creates a portal to transport herself and her opponent there, adding that they need to sort this out quickly. Irene looks around and realizes that this is the perfect space to give it her all. And she's happy about it, because someone created a barrier, so ordinary people won't suffer from incredible destruction. He immediately rushes forward, realizing that he must finish off this witch with one blow, using all his strength. However, a giant blade appears in his path, which is supposed to block his path and interrupt his attack. Irene continues to move forward, but feels the cold metal touching her body, but it cannot penetrate it. Irene decides to use the body acceleration technique in order to greatly improve her strength and physical power. Quickly rushing forward, she intercepts the blade with her throat, but this time she uses a supreme aura skill. Immediately after this, she intercepts the weapon and wonders how the pathetic creature dared to interfere. She quickly knocks the Reaper off balance and sends him flying out of control into distant and unknown distances. Yuri admires the fact that Irene was able to block the Reaper's attack and also strike back at the creature. She states that Irene is not that simple, so she cannot allow her to survive because she does not need such opponents. Irene doesn't hesitate and goes into a defensive stance, saying that Yuri can attack with all his strength. Yuri looks at her arrogantly and says that she will do it even if she is not asked to. She then takes aim at Irene and creates a giant ice sword that continually grows in size. Suddenly, little Yuna appears in this space, asking her little sister to stop fighting with Irene. Yuri quickly turns towards her and wonders what she is doing here, since outsiders are not allowed to enter this place. Yuna runs towards Irene completely carelessly, in the blind hope that she can somehow protect her. Irene also understands that some child was able to penetrate this space, which means something needs to be done urgently. Yuri fearfully extends his hand forward in the hope that she will have time to push the blade aside, but it is all in vain. We flash forward a few hours to Uram, finally deciding to return home after his walk. He opens the door and says he's home, looking around for anything suspicious. He immediately notices some unknown boots that may belong to his sister's friend. His mother approaches him with a smile and says that his friend decided to come visit, and Uram tries to understand what this means. His mother says with a smile that she didn't know her son was famous, and Uram guesses that the situation is just terrible. Irene immediately greets him happily, calling him the head of the cult, and Yuna is also happy that her brother has come here. Uram calls Irene by her former name, and his mother tries to understand why her son became the head of the cult. Irene also says that he has already exchanged greetings with the witches, and they were quite fiery. Irene also says that she never would have thought that the Ice Witch would be reborn as the older sister of the cult leader. Yuri knows that the last thing she wanted was for the situation to reach this point, but she had no choice. She reflects on the fact that she doesn't like Irene, but there would have been a lot of trouble if she hadn't saved her sister. She also understands that the diamond body technique was used by one of the 4 guardians, so this person will be useful to them. Yuri looks at her carefully and understands that she is acting like an idiot, but Yuna gets along very well with her. Irene also says that the cult leader has a kind and sweet younger sister, as well as a very good and beautiful mother. Irene is happy that the cult leader, who was an orphan, now has a new family to take care of. She can't take it anymore, and tears start to well up in her eyes, and Urim understands that if this continues, it will look strange. Mom asks Yuri what all this means, and she replies that Uram joined a role-playing board game club. Irene thanks their mother for raising their cult leader, and Uram pulls her into his room to keep her from talking too much. Uram wonders why she came here, and Yuri says she has no ideas, but Irene reassures them. She proudly states that she accidentally managed to get hold of the board members of the Hunters Hall, which is why she decided to come here. Uram looks at her in surprise and says that he is very interested to know how she managed to achieve this by accident. Irene says she had a fan with unusual inner energy, so she decided to follow him and learned about his work. Yuri says that he could very well be lying and that a personal meeting is needed, and Irene replies that she asked him for a meeting in advance. She states that they should take her car to go to him and have a proper talk. After some time, they meet a very handsome, richly dressed young man named Kim Moo-jin. He says that he is indeed a representative of this hall, but he wonders why they are so interested in this organization. Yuri calmly says that she wants to destroy this organization, and therefore needs information about it. Kim Moo-jin looks at them in surprise and wonders if they are serious about challenging them. He points out that this is impossible, as there are at least 30 great masters in the Hunter's Hall, but Irene stops him. She says that in front of him are the Ice Witch and the Sky Demon, who are the greatest existences. Kim Moo-jin looks at them in surprise and says that he can't believe he met such people. He adds that in his past life he was a Buddhist monk in a temple, so he was not aware of such legends. He also adds that in a world full of turmoil, he chose the life of an ascetic, training day after day to hone his skills. That is why in this life, he decided to enjoy the opportunities to the fullest and lead a very dissolute life. Urim and Yuri mentally understand that this man is a little strange, but sincere and honest. Kim Moo-jin says that this is why this Hunter's Hall is also a serious obstacle for him. He complains that they demand money from him and use it for dirty work that he does not like. He also states that if they really are those legends, then they can easily destroy this guild. Yuri says that first he needs to tell them everything he knows about this organization, so they can plan their next move. Kim Moo-jin says the organization is reaching out to construction and trade, increasing its influence. He also says that their headquarters are located in the building of a diversified trading company. Urim understands that if they use illegal methods, then they are criminals, so he can act directly. Yuri says that's a bad idea, noting that if they go in blind, everyone will scatter and take advantage of the confusion. Kim Moo-jin says that most of the company's employees are civilians and should not be implicated. He announces that there will soon be another council meeting where all the key figures will be present, and Yuri decides that this is the perfect opportunity. A few days later, the events shift to a diversified trading company, which is the target of their group. Urim comes closer to take a closer look at the building and realizes that this is their headquarters. Yuri says that they must get rid of them once and for all so that they never get close to them again. Urim suggests destroying them all right now, but Yuri says that they need to deal with the video surveillance system first. Through magic, she begins to influence electronic objects in order to disrupt the structure of their operation. She emphasizes that if they want to destroy everyone at once, then they must act carefully, without any initiative. Gradually, they move from one observation point to another, slowly disabling video cameras with the help of magic. However, after some time, their mother calls them to find out how they are feeling and if everything is okay with them. She also says that she needs to leave urgently, so Yuri should go back to look after Yuna. Urim says that Yuna is already an adult, so there is no need to take such great care of her, because there is no need for it. Yuri says that if this is what happened, then they should change their plan and postpone their revenge for a few hours. Urim states that he will wait for her here, and Yuri expresses skepticism that he is capable of fulfilling her demands. Urim states that she has nothing to worry about, after which she vanishes into thin air, leaving him alone with his thoughts. After this, he looks around to find an opportunity to break the promise he made to his sister. He takes his cap out of his pocket and says that he is so drawn to it that he cannot resist the temptation. He states that he can handle this task on his own, so he doesn't have to rely on his sister's help. After a while, the action moves to one of the entrances to the building, where several guards begin to greet each other. They say that the shift will be over soon, so they can have a drink when the council meeting is over. Urim makes several high jumps, making sure no one is watching him, and quickly gains altitude. Thus, it rises so high that it can only be seen by chance, and there are no video cameras at such a height. A few moments later, he jumps onto the roof, continuing to hide his face with the peak of his cap just in case. After quickly looking around and making sure there were no cameras here either, he makes a swift dash forward. He stops near a small door intended for descent to the technical floors. Oram slowly walks inside, thinking that his plan is going very smoothly, since no one has noticed him yet. He takes a few steps forward and discovers a giant staircase, realizing that he can now go down. He goes down to the next floor and looks around for any possible clues as to where the main hall is. The first thing he finds is a security post, the door of which, for some reason, is open, as if inviting him inside. Oram decides to take a look inside, realizing that he was lucky. He immediately found an excellent observation point. Oram recalls Kim Moojin's words that these people would be meeting in the conference room on the 18th floor very soon. He carefully looks through the various video camera screens to find the right room and continue surveillance. After a fairly short time and several dozen attempts, he finds a suspicious hall similar to the one he needs. Suddenly, 2 security guards appear behind him, calling him a trainee and wondering what he is doing there. They add that today all the entrances are blocked so that no one can get here, and they are trying to figure out where he came from. They also say that his clothes look very suspicious, after which they demand that he come with them. Oram understands that if his plan is revealed, the ice witch will simply destroy him, so he must knock out the guards. Making a sharp dash towards the enemy, he delivers a quick blow to disable him. Immediately after this, he turns to the second guard, who doesn't have a single chance because he is an ordinary person. The guard starts to panic, asks what he's going to do, and takes a few steps back. After this, he manages to press the panic button to start the alarm system and signal the others. Oram lands a few quick punches to his face to knock him unconscious, but it is too late as he has been exposed. Council members, hearing a loud alarm, wonder what is happening and why the alarm was triggered. Some of them are starting to suspect that a rat has gotten in, so the evacuation protocol needs to be activated immediately. The chairman says he has ordered increased security and states that if there is an intruder in the building, he must be apprehended. Oram continues to move quickly between floors in the hopes of reaching his targets before they escape. He is well aware that he doesn't have much time, so he needs to hurry if he wants to complete the task. A few moments later, several bodyguards appear in front of him, who immediately recognize him as a stranger. One of them says that he will catch this rat, but first he needs to check if he has accomplices. He adds that his colleague can call for reinforcements just in case, although they are unlikely to be needed, since this man is clearly weak. Immediately after this, he lunges forward, declaring that this boy must get down on his knees and beg for mercy. Oram delivers a sharp punch straight to the face of the chief security manager to remind him that he can't be arrogant. The blow is so powerful that the manager is thrown to the side, unable to cope with the inertia. After this, the other guards try to pounce on him, claiming that he doesn't know when to stop. Oram makes a sharp dash towards these opponents in order to scatter them and move on. One of the security guards says that reinforcements will arrive soon, and in the meantime, she can help them get back on their feet. However, after some time, the body of her colleague flies at this girl so that she cannot use the healing spell. She lacks the agility to dodge this attack, so she falls to the ground, off balance. Oram says that it will be much easier for him since they are not going to run away, which means that beating them will be more pleasant. However, once he has dealt with all the remaining guards, he feels his phone start to ring. He quickly takes it out and realizes that his sister is calling him, and she will probably ask him some uncomfortable questions. He carefully walks past the unconscious bodies of the other guards and asks what she wants. Yuri sternly asks if everything is going according to plan, expressing hope that he is quietly waiting for his turn, as he promised her. Oram says in a calm voice that his word is law, after which he asks how quickly she will come, because his back hurts. Yuri states that she can hear an echo for some reason, and wonders if he went in there alone to solve everything himself. Meanwhile, Oram continues to look for the conference room and assumes that something has happened to the connection, since his phone is old. Yuri starts to lecture him, but he quickly finds the right place and says that he will calmly wait for her further. After this, he knocks down the doors and tells her to stop grumbling and play quietly with their little sister. Yuri hears a loud noise and wonders if she imagined he kicked something wooden, as if it were the doors. Oram says he has a meeting, so he will call back later and ends the call, ignoring his sister's angry protests. Immediately after this, he looks at the chairman and asks if he is the leader of this meeting. The bandits, who have already received a serious dressing down several times, rush forward, declaring that they will deal with him. Oram looks at them with a smirk and says that they seem to have forgotten how Irene beat them up on the roof. Oram also adds that this time he will be more serious and will teach them a real lesson that they will not forget for the rest of their lives. The bandit leader claims that he lost only because he let his guard down, and now this man will regret his words. Oram says that if these impudent people are attacking his friends, then he will make sure that they never appear here again. The chairman suddenly orders his men to stop and asks Oram if he has any business with him. Taking a few steps forward, he states that his men were extremely rude as they immediately realized who they were dealing with. The bandits stop abruptly and look in surprise at the chairman, who decided to talk to Oram personally. He immediately apologizes for the behavior of his subordinates, saying that they made a serious mistake. Oram says that the man who calls himself their leader must already understand that apologies will not help here. Suddenly, several guards appear behind him and say that they are sorry they couldn't stop him. The chairman asks them to raise their heads and says that he will not reprimand them for the failed task. He immediately emphasizes that they are too weak to cope with such an opponent and that this was expected. He grins and says that this man is clearly not the type to be easily dealt with or subdued. He also asks if he is the one who defeated the second fighter in their guild ranking. He notes that it is natural for him when the weak lose to the strong, but it was not easy to defeat this fighter. The chairman says that everything becomes clear from his aura and asks Uram what his name was in his past life. Uram proudly declares that he does not reveal his name to those who are significantly weaker than him, since it is beneath his dignity. The chairman smiles, realizing that he hasn't seen such a proud man for a long time, but decides not to change his tactics. He says that in a past life, the deceased fighter was his comrade, capable of single-handedly destroying the dragon. Uram realizes that Yuri was the one fighting this man and asks the chairman if he wants revenge. The chairman says that Uram is rather impatient and asks him to listen to the speech until the end. Immediately after this, he asks if he hasn't thought about why people from another world appeared on this earth. He adds that the strongest were sent here, but unfortunately, some defective ones also got caught up in this process. After this, he says that this world is an arena to choose the true deity from among all the others. He also adds that whoever defeats all the ringers should achieve the final victory and become a god for all worlds. After this, he extends his hand to him and says that he is proposing an alliance that will definitely help him live better. He also adds that he will stand by his side when he becomes a god and will be a good companion who will not need anything. The chairman states that his comrade has lost his chance, but perhaps he would have been stronger if he had not lost it. However, Uram is much stronger. After carefully assessing his skills, the chairman says that he is worthy of taking a place next to him in the future pantheon of gods. Uram looks at him with irritation and says that in the past he lived a long life and understood several things. He also states that none of those who called themselves gods were normal, and the same applies to him. After this, Uram decides to show his aura, saying that he will never serve someone weaker than him. The chairman says irritably that, apparently, words really won't help here and they will have to move on to action. He goes into battle mode and says that he asked politely, but to get the talent, you need to put in the effort. Uram prepares for battle, and the chairman says that he will show why he should be on his side and serve him. He also happily declares that now is the time to demonstrate why becoming a god is his destined destiny. Uram delivers a powerful punch right to his vulnerable spot, but he intercepts his fist. Uram is very surprised and feels his hand begin to bleed from the injuries he received. The chairman looks at him with a sly smile, realizing that he has just demonstrated a power superior to his opponent. Uram takes a few steps to the side, is surprised, and stops fighting for a few seconds. He starts shaking his hand and says he would like to apologize, and the chairman notes his quick change of heart. He also adds that the apology is accepted, after which he invites him to kneel to complete the procedure. Uram smiles and declares that he thought the leader of the small fry was weak, but he was wrong, and now it has become more interesting. Without thinking twice, he rushes into the attack again, trying to unleash a hail of blows on his opponent and break through his defense. The chairman continues to block these attacks, but this time they do not cause as much damage to Uram as before. He tries to go on the attack himself, but Uram skillfully blocks each of his attacks, gradually studying the enemy. The chairman gradually loses his temper and wonders if Uram doesn't understand that this fight won't change anything. Uram, in turn, says that the more words the enemy speaks, the more gaps he has in his defense. Catching him in his mistake, he delivers a powerful punch straight to the face while simultaneously pushing his fist aside with his other hand. The chairman steps back, feeling that his pride has been hurt more than his face. Looking at his opponent, he realizes that his energy has increased significantly and decides to give it his all. He decides to use the Demon of Destruction's fire art to end it before it's too late. Uram rushes straight at him, but the chairman has already prepared a powerful blow to stop him. This plan is not destined to come to fruition, as Uram proves to be too fast and manages to dodge. Uram punches him right in the face again, saying that he fights too slowly, so he doesn't have a chance. This blow turns out to be even stronger than the previous ones, so the rest of the minions freeze. They look at the chairman in horror and ask if he is okay, hoping that their boss is alive. Uram decides to use the Divine Devil art and says that he will now show how to strike correctly. The chairman carefully observes the man's energy and finally guesses who is in front of him. Uram decides to further strengthen himself with a dragon slash, using the first form of his art. The chairman receives a powerful blow and is thrown aside, wondering if the heavenly demon has been reborn. The energy received turns out to be too strong to absorb, so he flies away several tens of meters. The chairman quickly rises to his feet, reflecting on how all his dreams were in vain and destroyed in an instant. He realizes that he made a big mistake when he decided to tame a beast like the heavenly demon, because it was great. He also recalls that there is another important detail that may come to light if the fight continues. The thing is that some of his subordinates were under the protection of the heavenly demon in their past lives, so they can side with him. He quickly turns to his subordinates and tells them that they must attack him simultaneously and ensure victory. They ask him if he is sure about this, and the chairman declares that they need to kill this scoundrel before it is too late. The fighters quickly grab their weapons and say that if this is the chairman's order, then this scoundrel must be captured. Oram says the chairman sent his subordinates to their deaths after he was only slightly injured. However, after a few seconds, he feels his body suddenly begin to fall apart due to the abilities he used. He understands that the damage to his internal organs received in the battle with the Reaper has not yet completely healed. This temporarily reduces his mobility, and he gets hit in the leg by a giant spiked ball. Oram reflects on the fact that the situation is becoming very dangerous, and if this continues, he might just die here. Meanwhile, Yuri sits next to her sister and wonders when even her mother will come back and let her go. She understands that Oram is definitely in trouble, and if something happens, he won't get away with it, and she will definitely take revenge. Some more time passes, and Yuri notices that the blood bond ring is glowing, meaning he is in trouble. However, a few moments later, their mother joyfully enters the apartment and says that she has finally returned. She apologizes for being late and says she bought them a cake, and Yuri is glad that she had a good time. Mom says she's going to set the table now, but Yuri says her friend is waiting for her, so she'll be back later. Mom says she didn't know she came so late, and then wishes them a lot of fun. Oram was once a great man, who once united the martial arts world and could not be defeated. However, the situation is now completely different, as he has lost most of the power that belonged to him. Oram realizes that he has not reached the level of his previous life and has become more frivolous. He realizes that he first needs to get out of here to think about what strategy to follow. He decides that he needs to buy time to use the divine art after restoring his internal energy. One of the guards rushes at him with a sharpened katana and delivers a powerful blow, but he manages to dodge down. Immediately after this, he counterattacks with a knee strike that lands right on the opponent's forehead. The other guards try to attack, saying that this scoundrel is exhausted, which means they have a chance to finish him off. They call him a pathetic piece of trash who doesn't know his place, but now he will definitely pay for what he did. Oram once again dodges a powerful sword strike and prepares to counterattack. He proudly states that his physical condition leaves much to be desired, but they are still not even close to being comparable to him. After this, he decides to run away, realizing that no matter how brave they are, he still won't be able to defeat such a number of people. As he gradually deals with isolated opponents, he realizes that in this case, he should have listened to his sister. Finally, he gets to the chairman and says that if he is in charge, he should go one-on-one. The chairman says that he can see what he is planning even from here and orders the others to continue attacking him. The fighters realize that they have a chance to wear down the enemy and finish him off, and they feel a surge of fighting spirit. Urim understands that he has no choice but to fight to the end, and he hopes that he will succeed. A few moments later, Yuri appears from a portal that has appeared next to the ring and puts up a super strong ice shield. Yuri reminds him that she told him to wait for her, and Uram says that he had reasons to come here alone. Yuri says that if he takes on a job, he should do it properly and not have difficulties with such small fry. Oram claims that if it weren't for the internal injuries, he would have defeated everyone, but Yuri says that's a very dubious story. Oram and Yuri come to the conclusion that it is better for now to focus on finishing off the remaining enemies as quickly as possible. Oram regains some of his inner energy and says that he will hit every one of these insolent bastards. Yuri activates a magic seal to summon ice spirits, who usually grant a portion of their power. Immediately after this, she summons several ice blocks that crash directly into the heads of her opponents. These blows send them brutally flying until only the chairman remains standing. He looks around and realizes that he no longer has any small fry to rely on. Oram turns to this leader of scum and says that he is the only one left, so he doesn't have a single chance. The chairman realizes that if this creature had not appeared, he would have been able to catch the heavenly devil himself. In his mind, he calls them damned insects who destroyed his great plans to restore world domination. He decides to use the Divine Flame skill, which destroys everything in its path, and declares that he will take them with him. Oram asks him if he seriously thinks he will allow him to use the self-destruct technique. Immediately after this, he quickly prepares one of his moves and delivers a powerful blow that stuns the opponent. This blow is enough to throw him into the wall and completely immobilize him for a while. Yuri says that they need to finish off this man, as he poses a great threat to them. Oram asks why he needs to be killed, and Yuri adds that these people know where they live. Oram states that in this case, he will destroy his energy channels in order to permanently deprive him of his powers. He assures that after this procedure, he will become an ordinary powerless person who will never be able to dream of revenge. Thus, the chairman loses any opportunity to represent anything in this large world of reincarnations. The entire corporation is destroyed because its leaders no longer have the necessary influence and power. Oram happily returns to school with his sister, reflecting on the fact that the threat has passed and life has returned to a peaceful course. For a while he should enjoy carefree school days, during which he doesn't have to strain himself. Oram shows his friend several photos with Irene and boasts that he knows the celebrity. Yuri happily reflects on the fact that now that the Hunter's Hall is over, he can live a peaceful life without worrying about anything. Urim says that the peaceful days give him great pleasure, and Donald is surprised by his manner of speech. He also informs him that their entire class is going to Japan on a school trip, and Urim begins to listen to him attentively. He recalls that he had heard this many times before, but did not attach much importance to it, and is happy about his first trip. After some time, they are transported to Incheon, from where the heroes fly to Japan for their first excursion. The pilot addresses the esteemed passengers and says that they will try to make the flight comfortable. After some time, they land in Japan, in the city of Osaka, which is famous for its historical monuments. Yuri looks around and says that she thought it would be a little more fun here. Urim and Donald are having a great time, but the same can't be said for Yuri, who looks like she's very bored. Urim managed to learn a little Japanese, so he decided to treat his friends to takoyaki from a nearby stall. Donald praised him for speaking an unfamiliar language so well, and Urim was pleased with the witch's translation spell. After a while, he says that he urgently needs to visit the restroom, and Donald begins to look closely at the map. He says that he needs to go around the corner to the right, then straight ahead to the fork, and then turn left. Meanwhile, we are transported to one of the mysterious temples, inside which something truly amazing is happening. An expensive car stops near the temple, and a man in a business suit gets out of it with a very important air. He moves forward and is met by an elder who says that they have been waiting for him for a long time. He goes further and comes across a small pedestal with a statue on it, next to which he needs to place notes. The man hands the elder a small folder, saying that it contains all the necessary information about the target. He also adds that they need to get rid of her quietly, and when the task is completed, they will visit the congressman together. After some time, hired killers arrive at this place and meet with their master. The master asks if he has received all the details of the mission, and the killer nods silently, not daring to say a word. The master tells him to deal with this enemy without making any mistakes and return as quickly as possible. The killer says that the task will be completed and then quietly takes off, leaving only dust behind. Urim says he found himself in a very difficult situation, despite the fact that he was confident that everything would go well. The problem is that he is lost, and now he has to figure out where he is and how to get back to his comrades. However, after some time, he begins to sense a strong intention to kill someone nearby. He tries to understand the reason for such a serious thirst for murder and decides to go on reconnaissance to find out everything. An ordinary schoolboy would not attract the slightest attention, but suddenly everyone in the area disappeared. Looking up carefully, he realizes that the energy in this place seems particularly alien and ominous. Urim decides to check what is going on there in order to possibly prevent any crime. Meanwhile, the killer brutally deals with his target, but does so quite quickly and skillfully. Looking at the dead man, he says that the target was destroyed, meaning the mission can be considered completed. He quickly wipes the blood from his weapon and says that all that remains for him to do is clean up his tracks and disappear. Satisfied that there was not a single piece of evidence left at the crime scene that could lead to him, he turns around. Immediately after this, he sees a schoolboy fly into his window and look at him attentively. Urim is very surprised by the strange and bloody carnage that is happening in this room and tries to figure out what is going on. Looking at the hired killer, he asks if he is a reincarnator, but the latter grabs his sword. Meanwhile, the teacher tells the rest of the students to gather around him as they are leaving soon. Donald remembers Yuri's words that Urim will get there on his own and tries to figure out what happened to him. The teacher turns to him and tells him that he needs to come too, as it is time for them to board the bus. The assassin, meanwhile, turns to Urim and asks him who he is and who sent him here. Urim says in a calm voice that he is just a law-abiding citizen who was passing by. He asks why he killed the man, but the hitman states that the witnesses must be destroyed. Urim understands that if a person immediately rushes at him with a knife, then he is unlikely to be in the mood for a constructive dialogue. After driving him into the wall, he says that he will have to make sure that he answers all the questions. This blow turns out to be incredibly powerful, and the killer clearly did not expect that an ordinary schoolboy would have such strength. Urim haughtily asks if he has any desire to speak after such a serious blow. The killer, meanwhile, is slowly trying to recover from the blow, but his resolve is not broken. Taking careful aim, he suddenly throws out several shurikens to catch Urim off guard. Urim really didn't expect such a sharp-ranged attack, since he was usually only fought in close combat. However, his reaction speed and agility are great enough for him to dodge this throw. The killer says he doesn't have time to waste his energy on some pathetic brats. Urim, dodging another katana strike, says that it looks like he'll have to beat the crap out of him for quite a while. However, the assassin's true intention was to confuse the enemy and buy time. Seeing that no one was closing the exit window, he immediately jumps out into the street and leaps from one roof to another. Urim understands that this killer is quite smart, since he was able to quickly figure out that he needed to run away if he was weaker. After that, he rushes after him, saying that the situation is getting more and more interesting. He jumps from roof to roof and continues to pursue his target, saying that there is no escaping him. The killer, meanwhile, says that he is being followed, emphasizing that he will lure him to the nearest base. After a while, he disappears into thin air, and Urim follows his trail to a small estate that is suspiciously quiet. Urim looks around and assumes that the assassin suspects that he may be being followed. Having jumped down, he wonders how he will now justify himself to the teacher and whether his sister will be able to help him. Looking around, he says that this place looks quite ominous and it is too deadly silent here. He stands motionless for a while, then says that he is tired of this stupid game of hide and seek. After this, he looks up and tells them to come out as he already knows where they are. He rudely declares to all the lurking assassins that their camouflage techniques have no effect on him and that he immediately noticed their presence. An unknown person appears out of nowhere and says that this man himself has come into the lion's den. They ask him who he works for, and Urim says that if he answers, they will all run away in fear, so he remains silent. He replies that this is just the rudeness of an ignorant brat, adding that this boy needs to be taught a lesson. The other killers immediately respond to their master's call, saying that they will destroy this presumptuous youth. Urim asks them if they are the kind of people who like to talk only with brute force. He states that they need to take action, when suddenly these killers take to the air, moving incredibly fast. To the average person, such movements are barely noticeable, but Urim has practiced for a long time to strengthen his reflexes. He calls upon the spirits of martial arts to help him and says that things are getting more interesting. Meanwhile, we are transported to another part of the city, where ordinary school children are heading to continue their excursion. Yuri wonders in his mind what he is so busy with that he can't even pick up the phone when his best friend calls him. After this, she looks at her hand and discovers that the ring has glowed red, meaning he is in serious danger. Donald asks her what she is doing, and Yuri replies that Urim is nearby and she will bring him. Immediately after this, she closes the door and, making sure that no one is watching her, decides to teleport. Materializing in another place, she reflects that it seems something has happened and the quiet life is over. Urim jumps to the side, despite the fact that a huge number of killers continue to pursue him, giving him no time to catch his breath. They constantly attack him with long-range attacks, and at the moment, they manage to hit one of his arms. The assassins jump right at him, realizing that now is the perfect time to finish him off. The master of this temple reflects on the fact that the boy has started well, but for him it is all over, and he has no chance. Urim abruptly grabs the sharp chain, not paying attention to the fact that it causes serious damage to his hand. After this, he suddenly begins to pull her towards himself in order to turn the tide of the battle in a second. The killer doesn't have time to react in time, because he never expected that an ordinary schoolboy could come up with such things. Urim spins around to attack straight into the faces of these killers. The chief assassin is surprised that this boy managed to quickly escape from the ring of attackers. However, they continue to attack him, saying that they must not stop and continue to wear him down. Urim decides to use his signature martial art, saying that he doesn't have time to play with them. He decides to use his second form of demonic art to perform powerful spinning attacks. This allows him to launch a quick attack that destroys several enemies at once. The chief assassin observes what is happening and realizes that this technique belongs to only one person. Watching him, he realizes that his fighting power is weaker than in his past life, but his movements leave no doubt. Urim meanwhile turns to his last remaining opponent and asks him if he is trying to escape. The killer replies that he is not going to stand aside, and he is even interested in how this fight will end. He says that he is interested in finding out what level the heavenly demon reached after being reincarnated. Urim states that judging by his reaction, it can be assumed that they have already met a long time ago. He notes that perhaps some of this is his fault, but he can't help it. He proudly says that during his life, he had so many enemies that it is impossible to remember their names. The killer jumps into the air and says that his arrogance has not gone away and that he will have to back up his words with action. Meanwhile, Yuri materializes not far from the battle site and looks around. She suspiciously analyzes every detail of her surroundings, realizing that this place is clearly something unusual. Yuri wonders how fate brought her wayward brother to some temple with spiritual gates. She says irritably that as soon as she finds him, she will simply finish him off to let off some steam. After this, she passes through the gate, but does not meet a single living soul, but feels that something is wrong here. Yuri realizes that space is distorted here, and that is why she was unable to transport herself directly to him. Suddenly, she feels the presence of another entity nearby, which has been watching her closely all this time. A strange-looking man appears in front of her and says that this is a place where no one is allowed to enter. He waves his hand and says that the attackers are to be destroyed, since this is the order of the boss. Urim quickly turns around, realizing that she had let her guard down and had fallen into a very serious trap because of it. However, she still manages to block to at least partially protect herself from this attack and reduce the damage. However, the energy of the impact is so great that she is thrown to the side and crashes into the wall at full speed. She covers her hands with powerful ice armor in advance to reduce possible damage and prevent fractures. After this, she angrily turns to the big guy and asks how he dared to attack her from behind. She immediately turns to her ice powers and says that she will not ignore his treachery. After this, she creates a powerful ice wall from sharpened blocks and directs it towards the enemy. She asks him how dare he ruin her comfortable school trip, and then promises that he will pay for it. She also adds that, in addition to this big guy, Uram, who dared to do something stupid again, will also have to pay for the ruined vacation. The giant Hulk is powerless against such powerful ice magic, and after a few moments turns into something like an icicle. However, he turns out to be much stronger than the opponents she encountered in this world because he maintains his consciousness within the ice. Yuri guesses that this creature was able to find a way to gradually crack the ice in which he was trapped. Within moments, this giant bursts out of its icy sarcophagus and screams loudly, expressing rage. Yuri realizes that she will have to act more seriously, since this opponent is proving to be unusually stubborn. Despite his remarkable strength, the giant still needs some time to recover and regain mobility. Yuri immediately summons ice spirits to his side to freeze him again and not give him time to breathe. The giant just starts moving towards Yuri, but almost immediately falls into the next trap. Yuri glares at her opponent and advises him to remain still, as she has no time for him. She calls upon the ice spirits to come to her aid and give her even greater power. After this, she decides to deliver another ice blow to him to put an end to this battle. A huge stream of energy erupts from her hands, rapidly expanding as it moves forward. The giant keeps repeating the same mantra that the aliens must be destroyed, not realizing the danger. After some time, the ice strike begins its movement to hit the creature's head directly. Yuri says that this should be enough to completely destroy even such a strong opponent. Where the giant's head had just been, a bright cloud of steam appears, obscuring the view. However, after a few moments, it becomes obvious that this giant was able to survive even such serious damage. Yuri is surprised that she hit the creature's head right on target, and he acts as if he didn't notice. The enraged giant says that he will destroy everyone who dared to set foot on this forbidden sacred land. He quickly cracks open another ice tomb he was trapped in and rushes forward to destroy it. Yuri says that for such a stupid creature, he has an unusually strong body, which causes a lot of trouble. The giant continues to fight desperately to destroy all the intruders and jumps to attack the witch. Yuri jumps to the side and flies into the air, saying that random attacks won't work on her anymore. The giant looks in her direction and says that the flying aliens are no different from those who move on the ground. He then gathers strength in his legs and flies into the air, trying to grab her and declaring that the aliens must be destroyed. Yuri decides to use her ice spear skill, telling him to shut up and stop making noise in her ear. Aiming at him with numerous ice shards, she orders him to finally die and stop bothering her. However, the giant continues to block all these attacks, feeling as if this ice has no effect on him at all. Yuri watches him closely and says that she will be very interested to see how long he lasts. She continues to levitate to maintain her height advantage and attacks him again and again. The giant tries to reach out to her, loudly promising to kill any stranger who invades this sacred land. Yuri flies away from him and says that she has never seen a more stubborn pile of muscles. She wonders how many attacks he can withstand and tries to understand what his body is made of. Her opponent keeps repeating the same mantra, clearly demonstrating that his consciousness is very limited. At a certain point, he finally reaches the necessary distance to deliver a powerful blow with his hand. However, all of this turns out to be just part of Yuri's plan, which says that he must now freeze forever. Immediately after this, she touches his hand, and his body is almost instantly covered in ice. The giant looks at her in surprise, trying to understand why he can't overcome the resistance of the ice this time. Yuri says that he has a very strong body, but he is powerless against the cold that comes from within. She tells him that all the ice he destroyed was broken into small pieces and injected into his body. Afterwards, she states that this is why he is frozen inside, and that it is the perfect magic for a muscle-bound body like him. She rolls her shoulders and says it's time to find her wayward little brother. Having broken her opponent into small pieces, she says that this time he will definitely not get off with a simple remark. Meanwhile, Aram continues to fight with his mysterious opponent, who has not yet revealed his name. He jumps to the side after a less than successful attack, but this does not affect him much, and he still retains his combat ability. After carefully assessing his opponent, he says that he still maintains his form, despite his new life. Aram says there is nothing surprising about this, since he has been training like crazy since a very early age. He also accuses his opponent of being incredibly weak, as he lacks the strength to even scratch him. The killer says that in this case, he will be serious and recommends that he try to dodge this attack with all his might. They continue to attack each other, but neither side is able to find a hole in his defense. At a certain point, the assassin decides to use his signature move, a knife strike. However, he takes a few steps back to protect himself, but this causes his attack to miss. Aram suddenly breaks away and asks him if this is all he can do, noting that it is quite weak. At this moment, he himself prepares a serious blow, charging a huge amount of energy into his fists. He doesn't have time to react in time and jump to the side, so he still receives some of the damage. He thinks about how he managed to dodge it well and tells him not to talk until he hits him properly. And yet, a few moments later, a powerful blow lands in his face, leaving serious damage. Oram puts a huge amount of force into this strike and deliberately shifts his center of gravity to the left. Thus, thanks to this blow, the assassin understands who he is dealing with, but is not destroyed in 1 second. Oram says that if he had hit more accurately, the fight would have ended that very second. The killer looks closely at his opponent and tries to figure out how he still got hit if he dodged. Smiling, he realized that this was exactly the kind of skill a heavenly demon must have in order to be recognized. Oram watches his opponent's gait closely and realizes that it can only belong to one person. After a few moments, the assassin creates a huge number of copies or begins to move so quickly that it is impossible to distinguish him. This technique is called the blood shadow step, and it is necessary to quickly confuse your opponent. This way, he will never understand where the real blows are coming from, because he would have to be too fast to do that. Oram, fortunately, has been training long enough to withstand even such techniques. He looks closely at his opponent and says that this battle brings back pleasant memories for him. He uses martial arts energy to charge his arm and increase its strength, deflecting one of the blades. And the next moment he finds himself behind him, and Oram says that it was not without reason that he was shown his familiar attacks. After this, he sharply turns towards his opponent and intercepts his blow, stopping the attack. From the outside, it may seem like the fight has already been won, but this fighter is not the easiest warrior. He almost immediately follows up with the same momentum using his other hand, which was hidden. Oram understands that if you grab him by one hand, he will use the technique with the other, and this technique relies entirely on attack. One look at this fighter, and he realizes that he has a style that is aimed at mutual destruction at any cost. Oram smiles and realizes that this boy is still as arrogant as before. He speaks joyfully about how his determination is visible, even if it is so serious that it will lead to his death. After this, he says that in this case, he will fight with full force in order to show respect. The assassin looks at his opponent in surprise and realizes that he is now fighting at full strength, and there is no way to dodge it. Oram decides to use the skill Illuminated Wind Strike to make the direction of his next strike impossible to guess, and he manages to inflict several cuts on the killer's body, causing him to drop his knife. However, he grits his teeth and, despite the severe pain, tries to raise his weapon and continue the fight. He makes a lightning-fast move to intercept the weapon and prepares for the next battle. He tries to choose his target with his eyes and says that this is definitely not the end, and he will still show everything he is capable of. Immediately after this, he rushes forward to deliver a fatal blow with his knife to Oram. Oram, in turn, says that he praises his enthusiasm, emphasizing that he still doesn't know when to stop. After this, he jumps to the side and says that, unfortunately for him, this battle is already over. The injuries suffered by the killer are so severe that he can no longer continue the fight. After this, the killer falls to his knees and feels that he simply does not have the strength to get back to his feet. Oram turns to his opponent and says that he has just missed his last chance, which he had not taken advantage of earlier. He finally calls his opponent by name and tells him that his name is Cheon Axel, while the other guy doesn't say a word. This man was once the greatest assassin who tried to get rid of the heavenly demon 10 times. After his last attempt failed, he decided to commit suicide to avoid shame. However, the heavenly demon then told him to stop, as he wanted to talk to him. He stated that he would give him another chance, but he must serve him and continue to try to take his life at any time. He gave him one last chance to finally complete his work in exchange for him swearing absolute loyalty to him. Axel accepted this offer and said that now he would be the most faithful assistant of his new master. He proved his loyalty again and again by destroying the entire organization he had once served for so long. Oram appreciated his loyalty and fighting ability, and then taught him the blood shadow step technique. Thus, the greatest killer of the era, who mastered the highest art of movement, ended up in the cult of the Heavenly Devil. He earned countless rewards, became one of the 4 great guardians, and never tried to attack him again. However, now the time has come for the last chance that he once gave him, and now he must choose his path forward. Oram asks him in a serious tone about which path he is now going to choose. Axel waits a few seconds, after which he says that he entrusts his life to the master and will no longer try to kill him. Oram remains silent for a moment, realizing that this is a very serious confession from a man like Axel. He says that he must stay close until his life fades away, since this is now his task. He understands that the words that were not spoken then, truly sincerely, now sounded like a bolt from the blue. However, this time Oram felt that this killer was speaking from the heart and was not trying to deceive him. Oram exhales joyfully and says that he finally feels the unprecedented lightness that he had dreamed of so much. Afterwards, he asks if he is the leader of this order, and Axel states that he was unable to defeat the strongest reincarnated. He also says that his commander is a master of the ghost knife technique and is the former king of the 72 fortresses. In order to remind him of a specific name, he states that this is the one who actually leads the Phantom Sword. Oram asks him in surprise if Junhawk has also been reincarnated and tries to understand where he is now. Axel mentions that the main base of the Ghost Sword is located nearby, and Oram is happy about this. He says that they need to be destroyed right now, and Axel replies that they need to be careful because they are serious enemies. Orem asks him if he is laughing at him, since he has already defeated these opponents before. Axel states that he had no such intention, and that he only wants to convey objective information to his master. He adds that many reincarnated people arrived on Earth long before them and scattered throughout the world. He also states that they were building up their forces, but he arrived later than them, and so he had to leave the Phantom Sword behind. He also states that he knows Urem's power, but still believes that it is too dangerous to go there alone. He looks at him shyly and says that they need to become stronger in order to deal with these opponents. Urem says that he is already strong enough, but Axel continues to insist that such an attack is reckless. Urem exhales tensely, then smiles, realizing that his comrade is behaving the same way as in his past life. Turning around and starting to pull himself up, he says that he is still as cautious as he was before. However, suddenly he hears a loud voice that is already very familiar to him, so he would prefer not to hear it. Yuri irritably asks him what the hell he was doing here, and Urem says that something happened and he had no choice. Yuri asks him why he can't understand simple words about her wanting a quiet life without constant fights. Urem quickly apologizes to her, then wonders what happened to her clothes. Axel asks him who it is, and Urem states that it is his close friend, and Axel assumes that it is someone like Sang-Guan. Yuri says that she doesn't care what he got himself into because they are going home, because their clothes are dirty and they need to leave. She throws away the ring and says that they will change clothes and then go to the meeting point as quickly as possible. After this, she turns around abruptly and summons a small shard of ice to help her in her task. After a few moments, she casts a freezing spell forward and says that she needs to sort out something. Urem watches in bewilderment as an ice block forms with him inside the spot where his comrade had just stood. Urem asks her why she did this, saying that this man was her comrade in a past life. Yuri replies that she doesn't know him and that she froze him, not killed him, so if they are close, he can take him with her. Urem watches her leave and wonders why this girl has such a disgusting and nasty character. He understands that he has nothing to do, and that now is the best time to return and not attract attention. To avoid attracting even more attention, he takes with him a giant block of ice in which his comrade is trapped. After some time, the leader of the Ghost Sword learns that Axel has betrayed their cause and switched sides. The leader asks if he is sure of this, adding that there was no reason for it. The master says that he is now serving someone whom their master knows very well and with whom he was previously closely acquainted. He tries to choose his words carefully and says that for now, these are only eyewitness accounts that may not be confirmed. After this, he declares that this person is the Heavenly Devil, and the guild leader immediately turns around in horror. He remembers himself from his past life, when the Heavenly Demon came to him to destroy him and called him a pathetic nobody. The bandit tried to beg for mercy, saying that he would never be seen again, but he burned his face. He called it an insect and said that such creatures were far worse than the most vile creatures on this earth. The guild leader says that the Heavenly Demon has finally returned and is now walking the world again. Smiling madly, he says that the time has come for long-awaited revenge and demands that everyone gather their people. He declares that they will attack this scoundrel as soon as they complete their preparations and will not leave a wet spot of him. After the school excursion ended, the days went on as usual and were no different from standard training and studying. Yuri creates a fake training facility in order to hone his skills to the maximum. She understands that after the last battle, she needs to become stronger as quickly as possible. She reflects that perhaps the one she is thinking about has also been reborn, although she herself has not seen it. From her point of view, in order to recover, she will have to regain the power she possessed, and to do this, she will have to start over. The key to regaining her power lies in creating the ice heart and absorbing its power. The first step to creating this heart is to concentrate the ice energy to its maximum to form the base. She also understands that time flows much faster here, and she no longer has the 3 centuries it usually takes. She gradually forms a small base from which she can create an ice heart with maximum effort. However, she constantly thinks that she needs to find a way to speed up the process many times over. She decides that in this life, she will try to use this technique differently, to change her approach a little. She uses magical writing to subtly manipulate the structure of this magical artifact. After a few moments, the heart begins to break into small pieces, but this is a controlled process. Orem deliberately decides to divide the ice heart into 30 fragments, trying to make them equal in size. She suggests that each of them needs to be filled with power so that they grow separately, and then they can be connected. This way she can achieve the result much faster and finishes cooking after a while. Yuri is thinking about how he can maintain the required mana level, and then the fragments will reach the required size within a year. Reaper appears behind her and speaks with admiration about how she managed to create the ice heart again. He also appreciates her change of approach and says the new formula will significantly speed up the process. He carefully assesses the sizes of these ice fragments and realizes that they are matched almost perfectly. Meanwhile, the action moves to a forest located several dozen kilometers from our hero's home. Uram continues to train to achieve unprecedented levels of physical prowess and skill. Uram reflects on Axel's words, noting that he was right and his current powers are not enough to revive the cult. He also realizes that in order to protect his loved ones, he will need even more strength than he ever had. Thus, he also comes to the conclusion that he needs to regain the power he achieved in his past life, but for a different purpose. The key to everything is the energy of Qi, which contains the potential of the forms of divine devil art. After some time, he returns to Yuri's underground training complex to continue his training. He reflects that even if he increases the amount of energy now, his body simply won't be able to withstand it and might explode. He understands that in order to bypass this limitation, he needs to use 2 energy reservoirs simultaneously. He had already used energy cultivation in his past life, but now he had new opportunities. He didn't have such opportunities in his past life, so it would be a mistake not to take advantage of them now. After some time, he decides that he has found the optimal strategy for energetic manipulation of his body. He gradually begins to strengthen the internal energy, directing a gigantic flow of Qi into all the reservoirs at once. Over time, he manages to reach a new peak, but this energy turns out to be unstable and extremely difficult to control. Uram opens his eyes with difficulty and realizes that he needs to maintain a constant level of concentration. The point is that energy focused at one point can explode at any moment, so caution is required. He decides to let go of this energy, realizing that it is a failure since what he just accumulated dissipates into thin air. However, he decides to keep trying because he cannot afford to wallow in disappointment, as that is the path to defeat. He pulls himself together and continues to try to increase the volume of his internal energy and become stronger. After some time, he makes another attempt to concentrate more energy in his body. However, this only leads to another defeat, and he is forced to come to terms with the fact that he needs to look for new approaches. He foresaw this outcome, so after failure he continues to try again and again until he achieves a result. Uram decides that he must be persistent and will definitely achieve success because he is the great heavenly demon. He begins to feel as if his body is burning from this energy, constantly circulating between the 2 poles. He wonders if this means he is already starting to reach his limit and will soon make a breakthrough. The energy pole in his head gradually increases in size, causing the pressure to become more and more severe. The same thing happens with the other energy pole, concentrated in his stomach. Uram understands that both poles are starting to get out of control, but if he stops now, an energy collapse will begin. After some time, his body begins to experience severe overloads as the energy changes the direction of circulation. It's getting worse and worse for him as his body temperature increases significantly with each passing second. However, at this moment, Yuri comes to his aid, asking him to concentrate and stabilizing the reverse energy flow. Uram quickly turns around and realizes that this energy could only have come from one person. Yuri says that if he loses concentration now, the flow will be disrupted and they both could die. She calmly informs him that she will help stabilize the circulation of mana, so he should just continue his technique. Uram closes his eyes and realizes that now is not the time to argue, as she is truly helping him. Now he just needs to trust her and focus again to finally break through to the next level. The thing is that the Ice Witch's ice was harmonious, while her Qi energy was fierce and opposite in nature. The opposing energies entered into interaction, and Uram experienced a state of true transcendence. After some time, he realizes that he has reached a new level of skill and feels that he is now capable of more. His body was finally transformed, the energy found a suitable vessel, and he became one of the most powerful beings in the universe. After a while, he rises to his feet and rejoices in the fact that he has finally achieved a new level of mastery in this life. His internal energy has more than doubled, which guarantees success in mastering the forms of divine art. Previously, these forms were unavailable to him, but now he can use his full potential without any problems. However, he still has some time to get used to it, when suddenly he hears Yuri's voice. Her voice gets quieter and she says that he will owe her in the future. Uram turns around and realizes that she has fallen to the ground and lost consciousness due to extreme fatigue. Meanwhile, danger is getting closer, as the hero's enemies are not asleep and continue to plot. The leader of the Phantom Sword Guild arrives at the airport to finally find his main target. His assistants inform him that they have finally managed to find out where the heavenly demon lives, and now he will not escape pursuit. The guild leader talks about the need to prepare a squad, emphasizing the need to act covertly and think everything through. He declares that after the fall of the Hunter's Hall, they will finally capture the heavenly demon, and all of Korea will finally submit to them. After a while, the action moves to the room that belongs to Yuri, since that is where Uram decided to take her. He brings her a glass of water and tells her that she should feel better now that she will be able to quench her thirst. Yuri picks up the glass and says that the water is too icy and demands that he bring another one immediately. She states that if he follows her anyway, he can bring tea instead of just water. After this, she uses telekinetic magic to pick up the glass and place it on the tray. She asks him if he is too tired and immediately reminds him that she almost died because of helping him. Urim takes this as a test of his tolerance and declares that he is not tired, because thanks to her, he is still alive. After that, he turns around and says that in that case, he will just make her some warm tea. However, he still hasn't learned to fully control his emotions, so he slams the door louder than usual. Yuri smiles, looks at her book, and thinks that pretending to be sick and resting for a while isn't so bad. Meanwhile, Urim reflects on the fact that he can no longer endure such torture as serving the cursed sorceress. He squeezes his hand with all his might to create new matter and split what is inside. After a while, he opens his hand and an unknown powder spills out, but Urim did this on purpose. He understands that in this situation, it is necessary to set firm priorities and develop a clear strategy. He understands that the first thing he needs to do is get Yuri back on his feet, and to do this, he needs to make a healing potion. After some time, he looks with satisfaction at the elixir he has prepared and declares that it can be sold. It is a drink that contains ingredients he stole from the temple after defeating one of the elders. It also contains ingredients used in modern Eastern medicine, meaning it will quickly get the witch back on her feet. After this, he joyfully places the hot elixir on the tray, and confident that it will cure the witch in a second, moves forward. After a while, he comes into the room, and Yuri immediately asks him why it took him so long to bring her one cup. Taking a closer look at him, she realizes that something is wrong and asks why he has that expression on his face. Urim hands her the elixir and tells her that he has prepared something special for her to help her recover faster. Yuri looks suspiciously at the tray he hands her, trying to figure out what it is. Urim happily says that this is not just an elixir, but a special tonic according to the recipe of the heavenly demon, which he has kept for centuries. Yuri cautiously reaches out to the tray and announces that he will try it anyway. However, suddenly she feels a strange aura and realizes that the time for jokes is over, and now she needs to act seriously. She suddenly jumps up and hits the tray, causing the elixir to fall down. Urim doesn't have time to understand what's happening, and most importantly, he doesn't have time to intercept the valuable elixir that he had been preparing for a long time. Yuri quickly grabs the first piece of clothing he can find and reports that there are intruders in their home, so they need to be on guard. She also states that, judging by the battle with the Reaper, these people are very well trained and can cause serious trouble. Meanwhile, Urim looks in horror at the special tonic, which was destroyed because Yuri accidentally broke it. Yuri advises him to act faster, since every second counts, because an invasion could begin at any moment. Urim tries to control the incredible rage that rages within him, because his beloved brainchild was destroyed. Urim turns to his sister and tells her that he is going to kill anyone and everyone who tries to invade them. Yuri agrees with this idea, after which she states that the tea was excellent and she is very grateful to him. Meanwhile, a brutal battle between the Reaper and a clan of assassins takes place on the street. The Reaper hasn't fought such powerful opponents in a long time, and this fight was easy for him, but he's still standing. The clan leader wonders if they are sure they have come to the right place, but they claim that there can be no mistake. The master says that the Reaper serves the witch, and since he defeated 10 guards, it means that the heavenly demon should be here too. After some time, a small fragment begins to fly towards them, which nevertheless can be deadly. However, the guild leader makes a sharp dash forward and delivers a quick, decisive blow with the sheath of his katana. There's a harsh, angry question in the air about who the hell they are and how they ended up near their house. Yuri and Urim quickly throw on their training clothes and run outside to figure out what happened. Yuri quickly turns his gaze to the Reaper to understand why he lost the battle with ordinary people. She guesses that he was immobilized by a special spell, which means that there is a magician among these people. However, our heroes won't have to fight alone, as help is already on the way. Kim Mugen, Irene and Axel quickly come to their side, arriving just in time. Urim says that this is a fantastic help, as they could use some extra strength for the fight right now. Axel quickly looks around to assess the situation at lightning speed and figure out what strategy to choose. He turns to his teacher and tells them that they must remain cautious, as they are facing difficult opponents. He reminds that this man is the same Junhak, who is now the head of the Phantom Sword. Urim looks at him carefully and asks if he came here for revenge or is trying to become a servant. He adds that in the past he turned him to dust, but now he seems to have forgotten that fear. Junhak angrily states that the heavenly demon still fearlessly says whatever he thinks without worrying about anything. Yuri decides to interrupt their conversation and states that she doesn't care who he is, but he dared to attack her Reaper. She also adds that he will pay with his life for this, and she does not plan to leave anyone present alive. Yuri unleashes a hail of ice arrows at them, but they all crumble when they hit the force field. This force field was created by magicians who knew how to create such barriers and prepared them in advance. Yuri says irritably that they actually have a well-trained mage with serious skills. Junhak states that no matter how strong their defense is, it doesn't matter, and if they start the fight now, they will win. After this, he creates a large portal and states that if they want to fight, they should follow him. Yuri watches the portal closely and realizes that it is still pulsating, as if inviting him to enter. The heroes' opinions are divided. Some consider this a dangerous trap, others that they need to go. Yuri says that it really is a trap, but if they retreat now, those people will come back and won't leave them alone. Yuri emphasizes that these villains could threaten her family, so they must be neutralized right now. Without thinking twice, they enter the portal and find themselves in an unknown location that looks like an abandoned construction site. At this time, the opponents had already taken advantageous positions and prepared for their appearance. Junhak states that he knows full well that people like the Heavenly Demon do not retreat under any circumstances. After this, he says that he finally intends to end this confrontation and send him to the next world. He threatens that this time he will make him kneel and apologize for what he did. Urim and Yuri quickly look around and realize that there are too many opponents here for a direct fight. Urim looks closely at his main opponent in this battle and realizes that he has become much stronger than in his past life. However, he still doesn't stand a chance against him, and Urim asks why he came such a long way. Junhak asks if he really thinks he can feel safe after destroying everything. He adds that both he and this traitor will pay in full for his actions and for his tricks in his past life. Junhak also states that she promises him the most painful death imaginable. Urim asks him if he remembers how it ended last time and smirks at him for still challenging him. He adds that, just like then, he still doesn't know his place, but if that's what he wants, he will accept the challenge. He also states that he has no time to waste on weaklings, so everything must be decided in a fair one-on-one duel. Smiling and looking carefully at his sister, he says that it will be much easier for both of them. Yuri realizes that this is a good move, since with the numerical advantage, the duel will be more profitable for them. Yuri nods, looking at him, and thinks that in this situation there is no reason to object to it. Junhak states that this is ridiculous, and smirks at being asked to duel in a body that has just been revived. After analyzing his condition, he realizes that he does not feel any powerful internal energy emanating from the Heavenly Demon. Junhak declares that she accepts his proposal, promising to make him realize how stupid he was. Urim says with a smile that he is full of self-importance, but, as in the past, he will make him lie at his feet. Urim understands that Junhak has accumulated a lot of internal energy, but thanks to training, he has become even stronger. Rushing forward, he is confident that he can deal with such an opponent and that it will not be particularly difficult. Junhak also rushes from the spot to meet his opponent as early as possible and deliver a sharp blow. Urim charges his fist with all his might to deliver a sharp blow and break his opponent's head. However, his blows are not fast enough to match the seemingly decrepit old man. Junhak jumps to the side and counters, saying it's too slow and that he doesn't stand a chance. After this, he immediately goes on a furious attack and forces Urim to choose a safer and more conservative defensive tactic. Junhak asks if he really thinks he can leave even a scratch on him if he attacks so half-heartedly. Urim jumps to the side and lands on the ground, but his opponent immediately follows him. Junhak smiles and declares that the tiger from the past has been reborn as a pathetic kitten. Urim advises him to stop talking nonsense and come closer for a real fight. Junhak feels his whole body trembling with impatience to finish off his worst enemy, and he gives in to the provocation. Urim, in turn, moves much more relaxed, since he knows perfectly well that he can manipulate his opponent. Junhak rushes forward and prepares to strike with his sword, making a sharp and quick lunge towards the enemy. Urim responds to his barrage of attacks, and the duel begins to stall, as no one can gain an advantage. At a certain point, Urim begins to dodge these swings with incredible speed. Urim feels that his clothes have been slightly grazed by the sword, and realizes that his skills are sufficient for the duel. Junhak says that the Heavenly Demon probably now regrets allowing himself to relax like that. He reminds us that before his fists shook mountains, and his internal energy was endless, but now it's just empty air. Urim jumps to the side and says that he finds it funny to watch his smugness. He also understands that there is no point in dragging out the fight, since this person was reborn earlier and has more time to spare. After this, he decides to use the third form of his divine art. Finding the right moment, he decides to switch to the skill Air Dragon Claws to disarm the enemy. Junhak rushes forward and says that these are just pathetic attempts that will not help him win. He delivers a sharp blow, but does not have time to notice that the enemy has already dodged and is behind him. Urim understands that the enemy has no chance to parry the attack from behind, because he is too fast. Junhak just smiles in response and says that it was a cheap trick that was easy to predict. After this, he turns around sharply, demonstrating speed and reflexes that are unusual for such an old body. Immediately after this, he fills his sword with spiritual energy as quickly as possible to give it killing power. Then he makes a sharp swing, and Urim continues to stand motionless, as if paralyzed by fear and horror. Junhak loudly declares that today, the Heavenly Demon will finally leave this world and turn to dust. However, after a few moments, it turns out that he was not attacking Urim himself, but only his residual image left after the movement. Urim immediately strikes his body, saying that he worked with all his might, but did not take into account the reason why he died last time. Urim has been in a different place all this time and now has the perfect moment to attack. Junhak angrily swings his sword, calling him pathetic, and Urim begins to analyze his weaknesses. He says it takes him a few seconds to charge the attack, and during that time, his defenses are weakened. Smiling, he declares that it is this weakness that will be the cause of his death, but he is too stupid to understand this. Junhak feels like his body is starting to act strangely because he has suffered too much damage. Oram flies into the air and says that Junhak seems confident in his speed, so it's better to play one game. Junhak hears and notices movement behind him, and then turns around sharply to strike. Oram gets ahead of him and punches him in the face with all his might, signaling the decisive moment. Junhak struggles to hold the sword in his hands, but at the last moment he finds the strength to hold on. He throws a backhand punch in frustration, but it's not enough to catch such a fast fighter. Oram says that he hit his energy field, so his circulation will be disrupted for a while. He prepares to strike again and declares that now everything will be like an adult and he will not be able to get away with it. Junhak is still suffering from the effects of reduced mobility, so he has no choice but to take these blows. Oram is doing his best to finish the fight as quickly as possible and not allow any tricks to be used. Meanwhile, Junhak takes out a small device that looks like an ordinary smoke bomb. He declares that he cannot allow himself to be defeated and quickly throws a smoke bomb onto the ground to push the enemy back. Immediately after this, he turns around and begins to run away cowardly in the hope of saving his life. Oram immediately jumps after him and wonders if he really thinks they'll let him go just like that. However, as soon as he makes a sharp leap forward, his movement is immediately seriously constrained. The magician, who had been guarding the duel this whole time, decides to intervene to help his master. Oram falls to the ground and realizes that he won't be able to get up quickly due to the binding spell. He understands that his mobility has been significantly reduced, so he needs to find a way to free himself as quickly as possible. Junhak joyfully tells his students that the moment of truth has arrived when they can finish off their sworn enemy. After some time, a huge number of people attack him in the hope of defeating him. Oram immediately goes into a defensive stance to prevent serious damage from this trap. Yuri runs towards him to help him get out and get to his main enemy. Several fighters jump out to meet them, focused on inflicting a lightning-fast, crushing defeat. Yuri calls them pathetic, cowardly bastards and promises to destroy them all for daring to stand in her way. Her friends also rush forward to help her quickly overcome unnecessary obstacles. However, this clan has quite a few fighters in reserve who are ready to sacrifice their lives for the success of their leader. Kim Mujin decides to test his fighting skills, which he still retained after being reincarnated. Irene also decides to use the Vajra lightning skill to knock out several enemies at once. Axel, on the contrary, tries to let them get closer so that they cannot dodge his attack with the steel swallow. Yuri recreates an enhanced version of Steel Rain to deal with the survivors. Axel says that they will deal with these opponents on their own, and she must help Uram. The Ice Witch once again summons the Ice Spirits to share their power with her. She takes careful aim and creates a huge ice spear to instantly finish off the nearby mage. The mage was too focused on suppressing Uram that he was unable to dodge this powerful attack. Uram notices that the magical aura that has been constantly binding him is gradually weakening, and he has a chance to break free. With a sharp movement, he breaks all the chains that prevented him from moving freely. Junhak continues to furiously order his students to attack and kill this villain. The remaining fighters in reserve rush forward, declaring that they must carry out the teacher's order. Uram says that this is what he expected from the vile coward, and states that he should have been better prepared. Jumping forward, he delivers several blows along the way to immediately knock out all the approaching opponents. Junhak looks at the approaching enemy with fear and realizes that he needs to change tactics immediately. He turns to the rest of the fighters and orders them to retreat as quickly as possible and regroup before a new attack. However, after a few moments, he realizes that his body is starting to turn into a block of ice and he can no longer move. Looking at the witch, he says that he curses all existence and the world into which he was reborn. Finally, he raises his head up and, not believing his defeat, says that everything cannot end like this. After some time, all that remains is a huge ice sculpture, and the threat can be considered eliminated. Uram's friends quickly arrive and anxiously ask if they are okay, and if they are injured. Uram punches the ice block and wonders if they don't know what it means to fight one-on-one. Irene looks around and says that this time they really have a reason to rejoice. After making sure that there is no longer a single enemy here, she declares that victory is theirs and now they can celebrate. Yuri, in turn, approaches the giant ice block and says that their adventures are actually just beginning. She wonders if she should take care of this guy so that he will tell them all the information they need. After some time, they are transported to Yuri's underground training facility to participate in an interrogation. Irene also appears here and says that it is time to make a decision on an important matter. She asks the others what needs to be done with this man now that he is in their power. Irene takes out a knife and states that it must be destroyed to avoid future problems. Uram says that he blocked his energy channels so that he will never pose a threat again. He also says that it would be right to decide whether this person will live after telling everything he knows. He also insists on getting the really important information because otherwise he will simply be finished off. Junhawk says that the Ghost Sword's goal was to spread control over the entire world. He reveals that they originally planned to destroy the Heavenly Demon and use Korea as a springboard. He also reports that similar organizations exist in China, emphasizing that he does not know their exact numbers. Yuri asks him about the actual number of reincarnators and their organizations that have settled here. She advises him to answer honestly, because if he tries to joke, she will simply freeze him forever. Junhawk says he doesn't really know the exact answer, but there are indeed quite a few. He notes that large organizations exist in the Middle East, Russia, the United States, and other countries. He suggests that the total number of such people in different groups could reach approximately 1,000 people. However, these 1,000 people control a huge amount of resources and subjugate many warriors. Junhawk also says that this is all he knows, and he can't share any more important information. After some time, the heroes gather in a small hall to discuss what they heard. Oram says that if what he heard is true, then reincarnators in each direction are trying to establish their control. If this is true, the influence of these organizations seeking world domination will only grow and create problems. Oram says that if they want to destroy this threat, they cannot allow such organizations to emerge. Yuri immediately remarks that she would like to live a normal life if possible, since she has no interest in it. The most important thing for her is to live with her family and enjoy simple joys. After a short pause, she says that she is unable to allow this now, as a new threat has emerged. After this, she states that she must be prepared for anything, since they simply will not be allowed to live in peace. Yuri says they need to come up with a good plan because they can't drop out of school now. Their parents expect a lot from them. Kim Moojin says that in this situation, one of the few loopholes can be used. He explains that they can graduate early if they win awards or achieve high results in competitions. He also suggests taking part in a sports tournament and a mathematics Olympiad, and then graduating under his patronage. Yuri says that Uram is an idiot with developed muscles, so he can participate in judo competitions. Yuna asks why she keeps calling him a fool, but she states that he gave her every reason to do so. A few months later, Uram naturally wins a judo competition thanks to his impressive skills. Yuri also wins several mathematics Olympiads without any problems, thanks to his sharp mind. After this, a ceremony of early completion of the educational process is held for particularly outstanding students. Their parents come to this ceremony and only now realize how quickly their children are growing up. The mother says that she is very happy for them, but she is very worried because they are too unusual. The father says that he is also worried, since the children are unusual and do not take after their parents at all. He decides to simply watch them from a distance so they can live their lives. After the ceremony, Uram quickly heads to a special underground center to continue his training. This time, the effectiveness of the classes increases significantly, so he can achieve even greater results. His comrades also come here to train and realize that they have become stronger. Axel says that before it felt like a repeat of his previous life, but now he has reached new heights. Irene happily runs up to them and says that if no one is against it, they can have a sparring match. Uram says that he doesn't have time for this now, and the others also refuse since they don't have time for this. Irene says that you need to train in a real fight, so it is necessary to conduct sparring. Yuri suddenly intervenes in the conversation and says that it really helps, and she is even ready to participate. Irene turns her head in surprise, and Yuri confirms her request and informs her that she wants to fight her. She explains her intention by saying that she needs close combat practice in case someone tries to set up an ambush. Irene says it sounds incredibly cool, as she has long dreamed of sparring in real combat mode. Yuri confirms his intention and says that they will actually fight as if everything is real. Kim Moojin says it's very interesting, and Aram says he bets 9 out of 10 that the witch will win. As soon as the signal to start the fight sounds, Irene takes off at lightning speed and tries to get to her opponent. Irene also says that it won't be that easy to get it, and she will have to put in a lot of effort to do so. Yuri summons the breath of the ice spirit to cover the ground in ice in a large radius. Irene tries to strike, but Yuri eludes it, as if gliding on smooth snow on a snowboard. Immediately after this, she decides to use the ice spike skill to attack her enemy's back. Irene quickly turns around and realizes that her opponent is acting quite creatively and combining different approaches. He praises her combat intelligence and says that it is a very well thought out attack that requires ingenuity. Immediately after this, she cuts with her hand 2 ice spikes that grew near him and did not reach their target. After this, she gathers as much power as possible into her hand to return the sharpened ice spike to her opponent. This ice chunk has impressive speed and can cause serious injury if left untreated. Yuri channels the icy energy in one of her limbs to create a powerful ice sword. She then performs a quick melee attack to cut the ice shards into several pieces. Her physical abilities are at a high enough level to fight in close combat. Oram and Axel come to the conclusion that Irene fights more thoughtfully, and for such a fighter, the ability to think in battle is a great rarity. Irene continues her determined attack, trying to break through the enemy's defense and destroy all the ice around her. She also uses fast leg movements that are charged with diamond body energy and have increased durability. In this way, she breaks through ice barriers without fear of receiving serious damage or fractures. Yuri quickly creates ice shards right behind her and tells her that she better not let her guard down. Irene turns sharply towards the attack and tries to understand how she managed to prepare it so quickly. Several large icicles fly towards her, and she manages to block them by increasing her strength. However, the impact is strong enough to send her flying and crashing into a wall. After this, a powerful smoke screen appears, making it impossible to observe the battle. Once the smoke clears, it becomes clear that Yuri has gained the upper hand in this duel and has put her opponent in a deadlock. Irene raises her hands and says that she lost because her internal energy was exhausted in this fight. Kim Moojin and Axel say that both girls have become much stronger than during the battle with the Phantom Sword. Urim happily says that now he will have to work hard to keep up with them. A few days later, they return to the house, where Irene joyfully arrives to share urgent news. She hands them a note and says that they both need to look at it, and Urim asks what it is. Irene says that it is important to read this as quickly as possible in order to make further decisions. Urim quickly unfolds the sheet of paper to read what his faithful comrade has given him. After a while, his eyes become very surprised, as if he saw something that could help him a lot. He looks at the letter and says that it is really very unusual and changes a lot. He states that he never thought he could receive such a letter, and Yuri asks him what it says. Urim states that this letter was written by Jun Gawi, who was his faithful companion whom he once found in China. Urim also states that now that he knows he is in Korea, he invites him to join him. Irene asks if he will take them with him so that they can reunite and discuss further strategy. Urim understands that if they unite with his followers, then he will truly gain much more power. Smiling, he says that the second stage of the Heavenly Demon cult has almost blossomed before them. Afterwards, he turns to Yuri and asks her if she is still not impressed by his incredible power. Yuri says that he hasn't done anything on his own, but has only joined in with others' endeavors, and she doesn't trust them. Yuri also tells him that if he goes there, he should bring back some good souvenirs for his family from the trip. Urim asks why she is not going with him, to which she replies that she is not a member of his cult. Urim thinks for a moment, then says that they need to pack their things as quickly as possible and go to Beijing. They joyfully talk about how the restoration of their great cult is just around the corner and that only a few steps remain to be taken. In a few days, they will head to Daxing International Airport, which is located in Beijing. Urim says that traveling on a private jet is an incredible luxury that he will definitely use again. After this, they go to customs control to check their luggage and move on. After a short time, they finally get the opportunity to go outside. They look around and move calmly in the hope of finding the right people who will help them. After a while, Irene freezes in place and carefully examines the man standing nearby. Irene immediately turns to her mentor and points to a young man holding a poster welcoming the Heavenly Demon. This young man looks quite attractive and is indeed holding a poster greeting his master. Urim approaches him with a smile and asks if it is really that same Jun Goi standing in front of him. In response, the young man folds his hands in a specific gesture that signifies deep commitment and greeting. Once upon a time, he had declared his allegiance to his master by saying that he wished to have the opportunity to serve him again. This time he continues this oath and says that he will devote himself entirely to his master. Urim says that he is now sure of who is in front of him, noting that these words brought back memories. Jun Goi invites him to follow him, saying that he would like to accompany him to the nearest hotel. After a while, they get into the car and set off along deserted roads where few people travel. Urim asks his interlocutor if they are really going to meet with the followers right now. Jun Goi states that he has sent a message to his trusted people and that they will be able to discuss further plans tomorrow. Urim says that there is no point in rushing to organize a meeting now, since they can rest and look around. After this, they head to various attractions to take souvenir photos. They also try to taste modern Chinese food to see how much it has changed. Finally, they reach their hotel, where they rent a rather expensive room to have a good rest. Urim and his companions go inside, while Jun Goi politely invites them to make themselves at home and not deny themselves anything. He also says that they have prepared drinks and various dishes so that they can have a good rest. Irene asks Urim if he wants to drink in this life, since he is currently in a minor's body. Urim says that he is now physically a teenager, so non-alcoholic drinks have been prepared for him. Jun Goi also says that he is driving, so he will limit himself to the same non-alcoholic drinks. After this, they decide to have some fun and start telling stories from their lives. At a certain point, the soul begins to demand more celebration, so they turn on karaoke to sing. Finally, when the mood of the rest of the comrades is already starting to go off the charts, they realize that it is time to end the evening. Urim says that they all passed out after a few drinks, and Jun Goi says that everyone is very tired. Urim says it's time to sleep, completely oblivious to the fact that his ring has turned red. He calmly makes his way to his bed and falls heavily onto it, feeling like he could get a good night's sleep now. Urim also says that putting drunk bodies in different rooms is quite a hassle, and Jun Goi thanks him. He smiles and says that he thought about it and now remembers the past when everyone was drunk as hell. Oram remembers that they were the only ones left standing back then, and Jungowi states that he remembers it that way too. Oram, falling asleep, says that tomorrow he will meet with the rest of his followers and discuss further conquests. Jungovi listens attentively to his speech and does not say anything, but he understands that these words are truly sincere. After this, he presses the light switch and wishes his master good night, hoping for a long sleep. After some time, a thick night falls over the city, but it contains much more danger than it might seem. Oram wakes up abruptly when he hears a strange noise that is not typical for this room. He sees that there are several opponents in front of him at once and calls on his comrade to wake up. Oram states that they are under attack and therefore need to be on alert as quickly as possible. He also warns him that these people are well armed, so he needs to put up barriers of protective energy. He himself quickly rushes into battle and disarms one of the opponents, completely depriving him of the ability to fight. Immediately after this, he intercepts the knife that he had been holding in his hands the whole time, receiving a powerful instrument of retribution. He immediately delivers several quick and heavy blows to the opponent's body, completely destroying his life force. After the first assassin is sent to the other world, Oram sets his sights on the remaining two and realizes he must remain vigilant. One of them makes another attack, but this blow immediately turns out to be the last one in his life. Oram tells his comrade to retreat, since he himself can deal with them, thanks to his strength. Taking aim at one of his opponents, he throws a knife in his direction to distract his attention with a daring move. The enemy immediately falls for this provocation and blocks to avoid damage from the flying knife. Oram doesn't waste a second and immediately rushes forward to grab his opponent by the head. He then delivers a powerful knee strike directly to the opponent's face to knock him out. The last opponent falls, and it becomes clear that they were able to fight off the attack, even though Jungowi wasn't even involved in the fight. Oram says that he no longer senses evil intentions, so the barrier of internal energy can be removed. He tries to understand who these people are, and most importantly, he cannot understand why they knew where he is. He turns to his comrade and tells him to quickly pack his things, and they will leave here together. However, after a few minutes he feels a very sharp pain in his stomach. Looking down, he realizes that he has just been pierced by a sword where one of the energy poles is located. Jungowi commits a grand betrayal and begins to laugh loudly, gloating over his former ally. He says that now the updated version of Jungowi is right in front of his master and is ready to carry out his orders. Oram looks at his former ally with irritation, trying to understand what all this means and how it came to this. The situation still remains shrouded in mystery, as Jungowi is in no hurry to reveal the reason. Instead, he makes several movements with his sword into the body of his former comrade to cause him even more pain. Oram asks what all this means, and Jungowi says that in this world, the heavenly demon cult doesn't even exist. He also states that he does not intend to obey him in this life, so he must finally die. Oram makes a sharp jerk to break free from the primitive shackles and get even with him. Jungowi watches this, trying to understand how this is possible, because the sword accurately struck his inner pole of energy. Oram continues to fill his body with rage and says that Jungowi is a pathetic bastard who betrayed him. However, the damage to the inner pole of energy did not pass without a trace, so he feels much worse. He tries to tense his body to regain the ability to fight, but the energy dissipates. Gradually, he begins to feel that everything in front of him is becoming cloudy, and he is losing his balance. Oram looks at his opponent in rage and realizes that all the accumulated energy has dissipated into nothingness. Jungowi happily says that the drugs he added to his drink have finally worked. He emphasizes that Oram drank a huge amount of poisoned water, but the effect only became apparent now. He also states that the heavenly demon remains the strongest being even after reincarnation, but this will no longer help. He declares that it is time to end this senseless farce and delivers a powerful blow to his body. Oram falls to the ground and hits his head hard on the floor, after which his consciousness begins to fade even faster. He tries to keep his eyes open, but they close rather quickly and he plunges into the abyss. After some time, he finally comes to his senses, but now the situation has changed significantly. He realizes that he and his other comrades have been captured and placed in an unknown place. Oram looks around, after which he hears Jungowi's worried words that this man needs to be killed immediately. He notes that this guy was able to move even after swallowing a ton of poison and receiving critical damage. Jungowi loudly declares that if he is given time, he will simply recover, so he must be destroyed right now. The guard watching them says that killing this man is strictly forbidden. He states that he has received orders from his superiors to keep him alive, so they will rely on him. Jungowi tries to object, but the guard intervenes in the conversation and says that his energy pole is damaged. He emphasizes that they cannot understand the reason for his concern, since now there is definitely nothing to worry about. They also say that they shouldn't just kill the heavenly demon they captured with such difficulty. He also says that even all the humiliations he experienced in his past life will not be enough. He notes that this guy needs to understand the price of the arrogance with which he looked at others in his past life. He declares that this man must die the most miserable and painful death possible. He then punches him in the face to remind him that he is now in a losing position. He also starts talking loudly about how he will destroy his subordinates right in front of him so that he will suffer. And in conclusion, he promises that he will make sure that he dies in his death throes in a pool of his own blood. He continues to beat him and complains that he still cannot control his anger, despite all his attempts. After this, he continues to beat him for some time, but does not achieve the desired results. Urim continues to pretend that he is still unconscious so as not to lose the element of surprise. He thinks that he needs to prepare a proper plan before he manages to break out of here and kill everyone. Suddenly, one of the guards says that it's time to put an end to these cheap vendettas. He states that the boss will arrive soon, so it is necessary to prepare in the best possible way. The irritated security guard turns around and leaves, saying that he understands everything and will no longer engage in amateur activities. After this, all the guards, including Jungawi, go to an unknown location so as not to disturb their captives. Jungawi turns around to check one last time if his captive has regained consciousness. None of the captives move, so he decides that everything is fine and he just imagined it. After this, he immediately turns around and leaves so as not to lag behind his comrades. After this, he loudly closes the giant door, which is needed to contain the suddenly awakened prisoners. Urim quickly opens his eyes and is glad that he now has the opportunity to move and try to free himself. He decides to assess the situation and looks around to find out who else is with them. He quickly discovers Axel and Kim Mujin here, who also turned out to be prisoners of these scoundrels. After this, he decides to look in other directions to find out if there is anyone unfamiliar here. However, the only one he sees here is Irene, who also still hasn't regained consciousness after this drinking binge. Urim reflects that he had no doubt that the past would catch up with him, but he did not expect his subordinates to get into trouble. After this, he realizes that in order to save them, he must immediately restore his energy pole. He tries to see if he can do it, despite the fact that his pole is completely destroyed. After several futile attempts, he realizes that breathing exercises will not help because the damage is too severe. However, he also understands that if they remain tied up, he will definitely not be able to survive this cruel situation. Thus, he reflects on the fact that he has no other choice but to try to take extreme measures. He intends to turn to another energy pole, which has been located in the back of his head all this time. He decides to concentrate the internal energy in it and direct it throughout the body in order to stop its loss. He understands that if he makes one wrong move, the chi points will become distorted, and in that case, there will be no turning back. However, this time he already knows perfectly well what he needs to do in order to avoid serious problems. He tenses all his muscles and understands that he will definitely succeed if he puts in enough effort. After some time, several more mysterious people in sinister-looking suits arrive at the meeting place. After this, the main gate to the mysterious fortress opens, and another silhouette appears there, which belongs to the boss. All the other subordinates who had been waiting for his arrival immediately bowed their heads to show respect. None of them dare even look up when this man passes by them, lest they incur his wrath. This man is dressed in a rich suit, and his gait is leisurely, but his movements are very precise. After this, he turns to his subordinates and asks them where the main guest of today's event is. He proudly states that he would very much like to meet the heavenly demon after so many years of separation. After a while, the doors to the room with the prisoners begin to slowly open, and moonlight bursts into the room. The leader of this gang, together with his guards, slowly enters inside, not suspecting any danger. At first glance, there really is nothing to worry about, since all the prisoners are exactly where they were a few minutes ago. The leader of this gang says that he can't believe that he has practically finished off the heavenly demon. Coming closer to him, he says that finally the rage that filled him in his past life will be quenched. After this, he wonders how they can finish him off so that they can enjoy it to the fullest. He adds that you can simply skin them alive or slowly inject them with deadly poison and enjoy their agony. They say that as soon as he imagines it, his blood begins to boil with incredible pleasure. After a short pause, he says that first we need to start with humiliation and simply cut off the arms and legs. Immediately after this, he turns to Jungawi, who immediately responds to the call of his new master. He speaks of cutting off the limbs, adding that he will grant him this honor as a reward for his faithful service. After a short pause, he says that the exception will be the king of the mountain fists. He notes that the woman will have other uses, so it's best not to get rid of her limbs now. Jungawi takes a few steps towards his target and draws his sword, saying that he will fulfill the master's will. After this, he carefully assesses his defeated opponent with his gaze to find out if everything is all right. On the one hand, caution is no longer necessary, since his opponent is mortally wounded and bandaged, but everything is more complicated than it seems. Jungawi had always been a cautious person, and this time his intuition did not fail him, as he noticed a strange detail. He found that the profuse bleeding from his abdomen had suddenly stopped, and he quickly realized that things were even worse. He realizes that the man's wound has simply healed, despite the fact that it was inflicted by a special weapon laced with poison. Oram begins to fill his body with the energy of hatred and wonders if they noticed his trick. After this, he gets to his feet and says that Jun-Goi is a real bastard who dared to betray him. The place where he had just been sitting is practically nothing left but a bright red flash that consumes everything. The guards wonder what it is and try to figure out how he was able to achieve this while being in their midst. Oram creates a powerful explosion, after which it becomes clear that he has broken free from his shackles and knocked his opponent to the ground. Jun-Goi doesn't even have time to understand what's happening to him before he suddenly finds himself on the ground and loses his fighting ability. The same applies to all his friends, who took advantage of the moment and freed themselves from their bonds. Jun-Goi wonders how the destroyed energy channels could be restored, as it is simply impossible. Oram asks him how he dared to betray them without thinking about the consequences of such an action. Irene flexes her fists and says that these scoundrels need to be destroyed right now to take revenge for this. Oram picks up a sharp sword with his foot and realizes that it could be useful to his comrade, although he does not know who they are. After this, he throws this weapon at Axel and says that this situation is starting to get on his nerves. Smiling, he says that it is time to finish them off once and for all, to erase them from this history. The leader of this gang of criminals says that none of them can be left alive and that they must be killed quickly. Oram is the first to rush forward in order to take on the main guards and destroy the leader of this gang. One of the guards gives orders, saying that 5 must fight the leader while the rest choose their opponents. The leader says that Uram has restored the energy channels, so their protection must not be allowed to be broken. One of the guards, feeling the most confident, rushes forward to deliver a kick. As expected, this blow does absolutely nothing, as it is too obvious for such a genius. The guards are surprised that his technique was useless against such an opponent, and this makes them even more angry. He calls the Sky Demon pathetic and soon gets punched right in the face. This blow is enough to completely take him out of the fight and discourage him from getting involved in such fights. The remaining opponents continue to press the attack and say that there is no need to panic, because this man is alone. Oram dodges with unprecedented ease a sharp jerk and a blow from a simple weapon that could kill him. However, this time he gets even more opportunities to deal with his opponents creatively. These criminals are not strong enough to react to his lightning-fast strikes. Finally, he is attacked by one of the main guards, who says that rage will lead to his death. Oram abruptly dodges his attack and says that he only knows how to talk, but still hasn't learned how to fight. After that, he grabs him by the neck and tells him that he should try to attack for real. After a few moments, he simply snaps his neck so as not to have to deal with this opponent. After this, he says that it is quite boring and asks them if this is all they are capable of. The guards cannot believe that one man has taken out 3 leaders in an instant with astonishing ease. The next second, one of them gets another reminder that fighting against this man is pointless. The guard who remained on his feet asks whether the difference in strength is really that great. He immediately turns around to run away, but Uram cannot allow him to hide under any circumstances. After he deals with this enemy as well, he slowly moves forward to fight the main one. After this, he stops a few centimeters away from him and studies him carefully with his eyes. Not realizing who is standing in front of him, he wonders who he is, assuming that it is one of the defeated enemies. After a short pause, he says that he is unlikely to remember him because too many have fallen by his hand. After this, he still decides to give his name, saying that he is the Lord of the Valley of Poisons. Oram briefly reminisces and realizes that he actually encountered this man named Sobek. He recalls that it was a mystical sect of Muram, and they specialized in poisoning, and many were afraid of them. Initially, they were in neutral relations with their cult, but after they joined the Evil Alliance, a clash occurred. They were destroyed by the Heavenly Demon cult in a brutal battle that didn't last very long. Sobek fought bravely until the very end, but ultimately lost and was destroyed by the Heavenly Demon himself in a fair fight. Sobek now says that everything is exactly as it should be, since he couldn't just lose. He adds that he is even glad that everything turned out this way, since he must kill him with his own hands in order to take revenge. He activates his poisonous aura and says that this will be the correct outcome that will restore order. After this, he orders him to get ready, adding that this time he will definitely make him fight in cruel agony. After some time, the walls of this complex, created to contain Uram, begin to crack violently. Soon these walls are shattered into pieces as Uram begins to pursue his enemy. He watches his every move closely and tells him that he will pay for touching them. Sobek says that he can try to get to him, but this will not happen because he will definitely lose. Immediately after this, he quickly takes aim and launches poisonous spikes at him, which should poison him. Uram easily delivers a powerful punch to knock away these spikes without taking any damage. Sobek is surprised that he so easily repelled the weapon laced with deadly poison and realizes that he has become much stronger. At this time, Uram pushes off from one of the fragments in order to shoot forward even faster. Uram asks him if he really thought he could deal with him with such a pathetic weapon. Sobek comes to the conclusion that this man has reached an even higher level, which means he is extremely unlucky. Uram catches his opponent in another mistake and delivers a powerful blow to pierce his body. Sobek only has time to block the subsequent kick and maintain his balance. Oram looks closely at the thrown weapon flying at him and understands that he needs to dodge. The knife miraculously does not scratch him or poison his body with deadly poison. Oram looks at him in surprise and asks when he managed to go down there in such a short time. Sobek says he managed to dodge the throw even faster than he initially thought. He throws another knife and states that it looks like this attack won't be caught that easily. Immediately after this, he attracts the knife with a special tape and begins to run away to buy time. Oram continues to pursue him and wonders if he is really trying to escape. Sobek continues to try to get some distance, then throws away several more poisoned knives. Oram successfully dodges this attack and immediately uses the divine art of Heavenly Demon's third form. After charging up a suitable attack, he decides to use the Wind Dragon Palm to catch up with the enemy. He fires several long-range projectiles that quickly reach their target. Sobek jumps to the side and realizes that his opponent is already freely using divine art. Oram suddenly appears behind him and says that he finally caught up with that damned snake that was trying to escape. After that, he delivers a powerful blow directly to his body, but he manages to block it with his hands. Oram reminds him that he has been self-confidently provoking him all this time, and now he is trying to escape like a snake. Sobek says he didn't expect to be cornered at that age and underestimated his strength. Immediately after this, he places his foot on his hand to push off and gain even more space. He makes a sharp dash and finds himself several dozen meters away from his original target. Sobek looks closely at his opponent and says that in that case, he should also use this new technique. After some time of preparation, he decides to rain down 10,000 poisonous blades on him. Oram watches this technique closely and realizes that he is using a technique that is a mixture of neighboring schools. He also understands that this technique still doesn't measure up to the incredible art of flower rain. He decides to dodge the massive amount of projectiles, realizing that it will not cause him any inconvenience. After this, he finally finds a suitable point of support that allows him to lift off the ground. He quickly bends, simultaneously dodging the projectiles flying at him, and prepares to jump. He flies into the air with incredible speed, as if his body was fired from a cannon, cutting through the air. He also continues to prepare another blow, and says that this time Sobek will definitely meet his end. After this, he prepares another powerful blow, and gets ready to tear apart his opponent's body. A few moments later, his hand rushes through the strange substance at great speed and pierces Sobek. However, Oram understands that this is just another trap, into which he, without realizing it, accidentally fell. Sobek says that it is annoying to see the face of Oram, who did not understand that the captured enemy is just a puppet. After this, he joyfully says that the heavenly demon has finally come to a final and irrevocable end. He grabs his hands so that he cannot escape from the death trap and get to the safe zone. Gradually dissolving into space, he speaks of how he will enjoy the incredibly cruel death of his enemy. Oram realizes that this damned scoundrel had planned everything from the very beginning and tried to set him up. A few moments later, a powerful explosion is heard in the air, dispersing a huge amount of chemicals. Irene and the other comrades immediately rush in that direction, realizing that their lord is in danger. Irene reaches the site of the explosion, after which she stops, realizing that she cannot go further because of the toxic fumes. They watch closely what is happening and realize that a huge toxic cloud of smoke has formed around the Lord. Irene turns to Urim and asks if he is okay, while he does not answer. Axel understands that he simply doesn't have time to wait, and immediately declares that he will clear away this smoke. After a few moments, he prepares an effective dispersal strike skill that destroys the fog. Oram finally realizes that he can breathe out now that the toxic fumes have been dispersed once and for all. He did inhale a small amount of the toxic gases, which is why the veins on his body begin to appear and darken. Irene and Kim Moojin immediately head towards him, but Uram stops them and says that they need to wait a few seconds. After a short pause, he begins to slowly exhale the air that is in his body, along with the poison. After some time, the clean air is replaced by toxic fumes that he managed to inhale during the fall. Once it's over, he says his throat is a little sore, but overall he feels great. Irene asks him if he is okay, and Uram says that the poison does not affect him, since he is already hardened. Irene and the others say it's amazing, and Uram adds that he can cleanse his body of poison, but he still has a lot to learn. Finally, he says that Sobek's personality is much more important, because when he grabbed him, it turned out that he was a puppet. He notes that in order to find Sobek's real body, information is needed, which they must extract from someone. This number one candidate, of course, turns out to be Jungawi, since he is the only one who survived this massacre. Urim advises him to tell the truth, otherwise he will regret being born. Urim looks sternly at his former comrade and says that he must tell them where Sobek went. Jungawi looks at his former comrades with a blank look and understands that they are unlikely to let him go alive. He states that if they are going to kill him anyway, they don't have to drag it out and put on this show. He emphasizes that he understands their intentions perfectly well and will not resist if they decide to do so. Urim looks at him sternly and calls him a pathetic traitor who still dares to set his own conditions. In order to teach him a lesson, he decides to use the proven method of physical violence. he delivers a powerful blow straight to his body to send him flying and slam him into the wall. He also states that death will not atone for his sins anyway, so he must only answer the questions asked. After that, he lifts his head and asks why he betrayed them and where Sobek went. Jungoi says that Sobek is the mayor of the city, but this is only his official cover. He adds that he is actually the head of a reincarnation organization called the 10th Network Union and is using his powers. As a result, the union has not been officially recognized by the government as an armed group, and their influence is growing. Junhak adds that if they plan to pursue him, they should head east of the city to find shelter. After this, he says that this is all the information he has, and Yuram asks why he betrayed them. Jungoi gives a fairly honest answer that he was incredibly afraid for his own life. He says that after his reincarnation, he worked to revive the heavenly demon cult, but was threatened by others. He believes that it was an inevitable choice for the sake of survival, so he had no choice but to submit to these people. He states that this world is different from the past life, and here the weak always win, being humiliated until the last moment. He also talks about how this world is not a place where brute force alone rules, as it was before. He emphasizes that the current heavenly demon cult is quite weak, as it has neither fame nor power. Oram cannot tolerate such an insult, and says that he has heard absolutely everything he wanted. After this, he delivers a powerful blow directly into the energy channel of his former comrade, whom he once valued highly. This blow does not kill him, but it completely destroys his energy channels and deprives him of his powers. Oram says that he respects his opinion, but cannot forgive betrayal and attempted murder. Turning around, he says that in memory of the past, he will limit himself to only destroying his energy channel. After this, he says that now he must live quietly and below the grass so as not to attract attention. Also before leaving, he says that there is one more thing he would like to clarify. The thing is that his cult is not weak, and they will make a name for themselves in the near future. However, it is very important for them to find out what happened a few hours ago when all these people were singing karaoke. Oram's ring begins to glow red, indicating that his sister is in danger, but he ignores it. They have to find out what happened to Yuri, and they realize that at that time she was playing with her little sister. However, she suddenly feels a surge of magical energy appearing within her, which is rapidly approaching. After this, she gets up and orders the Reaper to protect her little sister, and she herself says that she will go to the toilet. After a while, she runs out into the street and hears a familiar voice, which says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Yuri looks up at the sky and sees a beautiful girl levitating without fear of being noticed. A few moments later, the girl looks at the ice witch and calls her by her old name, Sui. Yuri immediately creates a magical barrier to teleport into the pocket dimension and fight her. The girl watching her does not object to this outcome and does not even move, despite the possible danger. Yuri asks her who she is and how she knew her name from her past life, demanding that she slowly introduce herself. The girl smiles and says that her appearance may have changed, but she is surprised that she did not recognize her. After this, the girl reveals that she is Lena, who was killed by the Ice Witch herself a long time ago. Yuri looks at her in surprise and asks if it is really her, not believing what is happening. She asks her how she ended up here, to which Lena replies that she missed her very much all this time. She also asks her if she remembers the moments they spent in the distant past. She reminds her that they grew up together, learning magic from a mentor to become stronger. She also reminds that over time, Lena quickly matured and became known as a fire mage. The same thing happened with Sui, and she quickly became a famous ice mage and was considered the strongest. Sui smiles and says that this is indeed true, reminding that those times did not last long. Lena asks her in a colder voice if she remembers what happened shortly after that. She recalls that an unprecedented volcanic eruption occurred, which led to a large-scale disaster and loss of life. She also recalls that cowardly people began to fear fire because of this and began to avoid it. They also began to accuse her of causing the volcanic eruption without understanding the situation. Lena emphasizes that her conscience was clear and she did not feel the need to run away until people came to kill her. She was hurt and bitter then, but she was too busy running to confront these people. She didn't want to hurt anyone, but the people caught up with her, and when they tried to kill her, the mentor sacrificed himself. She could not stand it any longer, and cornered by lies and accusations of witchcraft, she destroyed her enemies. At that moment, Sui came there to take the side of the people who had already ruined her life. They fought for several days, and it was an extremely brutal battle, as they were on equal terms. However, in the end, it turned out that Lena was not strong enough, so she lost the fight. Lena admits that she clearly remembers the day when she died in front of her sister. She adds that she remembers her face, distorted with shock and guilt over what happened. After this, she says that soon after she left, a man appeared before her, whom she did not expect to see. This man was the mentor she thought was dead, but he somehow turned out to be alive. Despite what's happening, he came to save her, and she doesn't see anything suspicious about it. Lena happily reports that it was then, thanks to her mentor, that she did not die, and having come to her senses, she wanted to find Sui. After this, she states that when she recovered and tried to find her, she had already hidden from the world, shocked by what had happened. Lena says that Sui blames her, but she is interfering with the Master's grand plan, who was also reincarnated in this world. After this, she uses fire powers and says that she personally does not feel any ill will towards her sister. She adds that it is the student's duty to help the mentor who saved her life twice. After this, with a crazy smile, she declares that because of this, she will have to disappear from this world. She also says that she wants to test if the Ice Witch is as strong as they say and forms a fire seal. Yuri calmly replies that if she plans to plunge the world into chaos, she will destroy it, regardless of the identity of the enemy. Lena launches a powerful attack, releasing several fireballs at once. She also says that she is not the same as before and has become much stronger since their last meeting. Yuri blocks the fire attack without any problems and then forms several ice shards. She says that she can block such attacks even with her eyes closed, and for her, it's nothing. After taking a close look at her opponent, she decides to use the Ice Fang skill to quickly eliminate her. Lena responds by saying that her rival is still as impudent as ever, but now she will make her pay for those words. Immediately after this, she tries to break the distance and rushes forward with the speed of a rocket. After dodging Ice Fang, she states that such an attack is too weak and won't even scratch her. After this, she points her hand towards her sister and declares that she will now send her to real hell. Yuri takes a few steps back, feeling her concentration break for a moment and causing her to stagger. Yuri decides to use a special move she prepared a few days before and retreat. This allows her to easily close the distance and avoid serious damage from fire. Lena reveals that she always dreamed of fighting her again, as she was the only one she couldn't defeat. Yuri informs her that she will lose this time too, as she doesn't look strong enough. A few moments later, icicles begin to quickly appear next to Lena, rushing straight towards her. Lena only manages to miraculously dodge them, otherwise they would have pierced her body. Yuri immediately runs towards her, armed with an ice blade, to quickly finish her off with a few blows. She informs him that she will not be able to match her, as she has never been a strong enough opponent. Lena smiles slyly and asks if she really thinks so, strengthening the fiery aura. After this, she summons the spirits of fire and demands that they consume everything that is in front of them. Immediately after this, she creates a powerful flash that can burn and melt anything. Yuri manages to use a light defensive spell, causing a counterattack explosion. Yuri jumps to the side and realizes that this power is incredible, so she needs to retreat as quickly as possible. She decides to use the smokescreen to create some distance and get some rest. Lena smiles and says that this is exactly what she expected, because she knew her sister would be strong. Looking at her again, she wonders if she really won't die from such a serious attack. She snaps her fingers, summoning the fire spirit, and says that this gives her special pleasure. She notes that it would be boring if she lost too easily in the first minutes. After this, she prepares a powerful blow with a fire whip and offers to begin a real battle. Yuri, in turn, summons the Frost Guardians to repel the impending enemy attack. Even though the ice is very thick, the fire whip still cuts through it easily. Yuri creates an ice sword and shield that can withstand high temperatures without melting. After this, they continue fighting, and Yuri realizes that close combat is still her weakness. In this fight, she fails to get a critical advantage and continues to bounce from side to side. Gradually, her ice melts completely, and the weapons she fought with become useless. Yuri can't believe what's happening, realizing that she's being pushed into a corner and needs to act. However, she does not understand what measures she will have to take to win this difficult fight. After this, she looks up at the sky and notices a bright flash that gradually gets bigger. Yuna says that she has already tasted death, but she is not a cruel person at all. She angrily declares that she will end her life in an instant without causing her pain. After this, she turns to the spirits of fire and demands that they destroy the enemy in front of them. A giant flame of fire begins to fall on Yuri, leaving her with little chance of escape. She decides to take desperate measures and use advanced magic, which requires absorbing a piece of the icy heart. There is no time to think, so it is necessary to use the unfinished version, which remains unstable. She also understands that she could die if something goes wrong, but she has no other choice. From her point of view, this is the only way to strengthen her mana and win this fight. Lena watches her in surprise and notices that even she is beginning to feel a burning cold that was not there before. Yuri suddenly turns to the guardians of the frozen tundra, who have been patiently awaiting her order all this time. She creates magical seals and commands them to finally release their icy fury into this world. A second later, the giant energy comet is hit by powerful ice attacks. Gradually, nothing fiery remains of this comet, and it turns into a huge piece of ice. This ball looks like a frozen planet, and from the outside, it is impossible to even understand that a huge amount of energy is locked inside. Yuri decides to use this energy to create a powerful internal explosion and shatter it into small fragments. These fragments fly right over Lena's head, who never expected that her grand attack would end in failure. She looks in surprise at the fragments flying towards her and says that this simply cannot be, At a certain point, she realizes that she has no time to be surprised and that she needs to defend herself. At the last moment, she creates a powerful ice barrier, after which a gigantic blow immediately crashes into it. Lena feels that her defenses are gradually becoming weaker and tries to understand how this is even possible. Under the onslaught of these ice shards and blows, her fire shield gradually cracks. Lena reflects that she expected a difficult fight, but she didn't think it would be this tough. Yuri also slows down for a while, realizing that she has run out of strength to continue the fight. Lena reflects on how Yuri's strength far exceeds expectations, and this is entirely in line with their plan. After this, she realizes that it is time to retreat and smiles, looking at her sister to hide her feelings. She disappears into the portal and says that today is not the last day of their meeting in battle. Yuri gives her a stern look as Lena tells her that they will see each other again in the near future. As she leaves in an unknown direction, she says that she has long wanted to meet her sister. Yuri doesn't try to stop her and shows no desire to continue the conversation. She's just waiting for her annoying sister to leave so she can get a break. After this, she falls to the ground, feeling that she has committed a risky act by consuming the unfinished heart. She reflects on the effects of forced absorption of the ice heart that are already taking their toll on her body. Meanwhile, Urim continues his reconnaissance and, together with his comrades, finds Sobek's hideout. Kim Moojin tells them to rush inside before he notices them, to use the element of surprise. Sobek had actually noticed them a long time ago, but decided to wait to deal with them personally. Despite their movements, he realizes that he expected the appearance of such a detachment of intolerable opponents. After this, he carefully straightens his tie and announces that it is time to begin the real hunt. Urim and his comrades continue to advance without encountering any resistance, as there is no one around. Sobek suddenly jumps out to meet them, as if wanting to fight and end this duel. However, at the last moment he turns sharply and continues to retreat, luring them behind him. Urim reports that the enemy has uncovered their intentions, so they must be immediately caught up with and destroyed. Sobek demonstrates incredible agility, jumping from branch to branch. Urim and his comrades also have high speed, so it will not be possible to escape from them in this way. Urim orders him to stop and tells him that otherwise, everything will end badly for him. After some time, he reaches a foggy area that hides his location. Urim and the other fighters catch up with him, and Sobek reports that they have driven themselves into the grave. He challenges them to a fight and says that if they are so confident in themselves, let them come forward and accept death. Urim informs him that this is a great opportunity as he is going to smash him to smithereens. Axel asks him to stop and think about the situation they are in. Urim asks what he means, and Axel says that this fog looks a lot like a trap. Irene declares that she is not afraid of this and resolutely moves forward to deal with the enemy. After a short pause, she adds that real men always go ahead, no matter what. Urim notes that this is a great phrase, especially for a person in a female body. After this, he exhales heavily and realizes that no one is listening to him, which irritates him. After waiting a second and a half, he announces that if it comes to a fight, they will have to fight their way out. Axel and Kim Moojin look at each other and realize that these two people are destined for each other. After waiting a little, they go further and further, hoping that he will lead them into some kind of trap. They quickly find their comrades, but it becomes obvious that Sobek is somewhere else. Irene states that she thought it was an unusual fog, and indeed it is, as she does not sense any enemy presence. However, after some time, her keen sense still hints to her that something is rapidly approaching her. She raises her hand sharply to block the attack, and it bounces off her as if it were a twig. However, in reality, these are not twigs at all, but sharpened knives soaked in deadly poison. Urim wonders if he really decided to hide in the fog and try to wear them down with such a tactic. Kim Moojin says that he will try to destroy this foggy structure, but he will need a little time. Yuna says that she understands him, and then demands that the rest of her allies protect him. They surround their comrade with a reliable barrier in order to prevent any attempts to interrupt his spells. Axel and Irene control two sectors at once, preparing to intercept or reflect the blades back. Urim also plans to repel attacks with his own body, as it is too strong for these knives. A real massacre begins, and steel blades snap in the air every now and then, reflecting back. Kim Moojin reflects that it is not so easy to break out of such a formation, but he will still try. Having analyzed this structure, he realizes that he has quite quickly found a way to destroy it. He understands that a catalyst is needed to maintain the trap. If it is found, the structure will be destroyed. He finds it quite quickly with the help of his mysterious vision and moves forward. His speed begins to increase incredibly quickly, and soon he becomes out of reach of blades. Finally, he gets to that very catalyst, which is securely sewn into the ground, but this does not mean that it cannot be retrieved. Having gained sufficient strength, he delivers a quick blow in order to pierce the ground and destroy the catalyst. Gradually, the fog begins to clear as the catalyst has been destroyed and there is nothing left to support the trap. Several fighters, who had been watching them closely all this time, immediately appear in front of the heroes. Urim says that Kim Moojin did a great job because now those pathetic rats can be seen. Sobek says he's a little impressed, as it's not that easy to destroy such a structure. After this, he says that it will have little effect anyway, since he has already thought through even this possible scenario. He orders his comrades to go forward in order to kill them and leave no one alive, as this is a waste of time. Axel says that they will take it upon themselves so as not to distract him with pointless fights. Uram begins to flex his arms again and says that he will tear his head off pretty quickly. Without thinking twice, he rushes forward, not worrying that this might be another trap. Two puppets come out against him at once, but they don't stand a single chance against him. Uram quickly grabs one of them by the wrist in order to immediately break the balance and pull them towards himself. At the same time, he delivers a quick knee strike directly to the android's head in order to incapacitate it. Another puppet, armed with a knife, makes another lunge to cut him and poison his body. Uram intercepts his wrist again, taking advantage of his incredible speed and ability to counterattack. He puts another opponent in the path of a knife attack in order to block it and deal with both of them at the same time. After this, he decides to grab him by the throat, since this robot remains a little confused after the blow. Uram squeezes that throat with all his might and asks if that is all he can do. However, after a few moments, he realizes that he was wrong to boast about his strength because a knife is already flying towards him. It is only by some miracle that he manages to dodge this attack, which was quite obvious. Uram asks Sobek if he really decided to intervene personally, assuming that his toys had simply run out. Sobek takes out two long blades and says that he dreams of breaking his neck with his own hands. And his determination turns out to be incredibly high, since this man was killed by him in a past life and now thirsts for revenge. Uram, in turn, does not take this fight so seriously, since it is just another stage on the path to greatness. Uram confidently attacks him, not paying attention to the fact that he is armed with knives because he can block them with his skin. He looks at his opponent with a smile and asks if he is really going to wring his neck. After this, he suddenly breaks the distance, strikes him right in the face, and recommends that he try to do it if he can. Sobek, irritated by his opponent's actions, realizes that he is losing ground, so he needs to counterattack. To do this, he makes several elusive movements to create a small window of time for the strike. Uram calculates this development perfectly, so he takes a step back, avoiding the attack. However, its speed proves insufficient, and it still pierces his skin along with his clothes. Sobek carefully analyzes his opponent and realizes that he has indeed become much stronger than during their last battle. Uram also notes his increased skills and says that his defense has become much stronger and is now not so easy to penetrate. After this, he decides to announce that he will put all his energy into the next blow to finish him off. Sobek agrees that this is an excellent strategy, since now everything should be decided in one clash. Uram rushes forward to use the skill Crooked Dragon Strike and crush it. Sobek, in turn, uses the Blood Shadow's skill to break through his defense and destroy the heart. They rush towards each other, and now all that remains is to hope for who will have more killing power. After they separate, it becomes clear that Sobek's strike has achieved its goal. However, Sobek himself received very serious damage, which now prevents him from fighting normally. Uram, despite the damage he received, acts as if he wasn't seriously hurt by the blow. At that very moment, Sobek lost a huge part of his body and now simply cannot function. Uram calmly steps back, while Sobek is surprised that he still couldn't get to him after so many attempts. Uram does not respond, considering that communicating with losers is beneath his dignity. The remaining fighters say that this cannot be, since they never imagined that their master would lose. They look at each other and say that if they continue fighting, they will also be killed, so they need to retreat. Turning sharply, they begin to retreat as quickly as possible, so that it is impossible to catch up with them. Irene states that since they abandoned their master, they are pathetic cowards, and Axel adds that there is no point in pursuing them. Axel asks what happened, and Uram replies that he is fine and tries to find out where the rest of the fighters went. After he learns that they have escaped, he says that there is little point in pursuing them. Irene happily says that in this case, they need to return quickly, since they are expected at home. Uram smiles and says that all they really have to do is go home after what they did here. Finally, he stops to turn around and make sure everything is okay. Looking around, he understands that something is definitely wrong here, but perhaps it's just his imagination. Axel asks what happened, to which he replies that he just imagined it and there is nothing to worry about. After this, they leave, leaving the lifeless body of their opponent lying on the ground in the hope that this will be the end of it. However, after a few minutes, his body begins to heal, as if someone had injected him with a regeneration elixir. Sobek comes to his senses quite quickly and gradually gets to his feet as if nothing had happened to him. However, he begins to move in an unknown direction, and his movements give the impression that he is not himself. They arrive at the Beijing airport, through which their heroes plan to evacuate back to their country. Axel approaches his master to talk to him about a very important topic. He asks him if something is bothering him, while Kim, Mugen, and Irene are actively sorting things out. Urim says that he has a bad feeling. He definitely finished off Sobek, but his soul is still uneasy. Axel says that if your intuition is sounding the alarm, it's not just a coincidence, and you need to closely monitor the news. Axel states that as soon as they return, he will immediately order an investigation into everything related to this man. Urim says that maybe he is overreacting, so first they need to go home. After a few hours, they actually find themselves at home, where they have the opportunity to rest. Urim suddenly opens the door and says that he has returned, hoping that his disgruntled sister will jump out at him. However, he quickly discovers that the house is quite quiet, as if she had disappeared somewhere. Urim unceremoniously opens the door to her room to find out where she is and why they haven't contacted him. After a few moments, his eyes fill with horror and surprise as he sees something he didn't expect to see. He realizes that the portal that had previously signaled her need for help has reappeared in front of him. Axel and his other comrades appear behind him and ask what happened, and Urim orders them to follow him. He notes that it seems that the problems have affected not only him, but also his sister, so it is necessary to act decisively and quickly. He emerges onto the other side of the pocket dimension, which has become much colder in the meantime. He sees one large rectangular object that looks like a tomb. Urim wonders what happened and sees the Reaper closely guarding the place. The Reaper reports that there was a battle here, and during the fight, the witch used an unfinished ice heart. He notes that, because of this, an aggressive icy aura is now trying to consume her body. Urim asks how she feels, to which Reaper states that she is unconscious. Kim Moojin says that she appears to be suffering from what is known as the 9-yin gap. Kim Moojin explains that the symptoms are exactly the same as those experienced by the Lord of the North Sea Ice Palace in the past. He notes that it can be cured, but the yin energy needs to be neutralized with powerful yang energy. Urim wonders if they can save her if a powerful energy of the opposite nature appears. Kim Moojin says that this is practically a guaranteed salvation, and Urim replies that he understands everything. Immediately after this, he decides to use his skills to save her and combine the energies. Axel reports that the Lord is circulating his own internal energy to fill it with yang energy. Urim reflects that it wouldn't take much effort to create this energy. However, the main problem is its quantity, because if his internal energy runs out, he will die. He can only hope that she will come to her senses soon, and he will not have to spend all his internal resources. Axel is surprised that the Overlord's body is burning, and Irene states that it is due to an overflow of yang energy. Gradually, Yuri gains enough energy to slowly begin to come to his senses. She looks at her savior in surprise and realizes that her wayward brother has returned again to save her. Urim continues to transmit a huge amount of energy to her, so that she finally comes out of this state. Axel monitors their energy signatures and says the energy is finally stabilizing. Yuri feels much better now and slowly says her brother's name, unable to believe that everything really happened like this. Gradually, he stops the energy transfer procedure and happily says that he succeeded. However, he immediately realizes that he has almost no strength left to maintain his balance. Immediately after this, he loses consciousness, and his comrades rush to him to help him up. Urim opens his eyes after a few hours and tries to understand where he is and what has been happening to him all this time. Irene immediately approaches him and asks how he is feeling, while he complains of a headache. Urim says that he will live, after which he immediately asks what happened to the witch. Yuri says she didn't think he would treat the Ice Heart's recoil in such a barbaric way. Urim replies that this is the longest word thank you he has ever heard and reminds her that she is in his debt. Yuri smiles and says that she really has nothing to say, and she is very grateful to him for saving her. After this, they decide to tell each other about the adventures they had over the past few days. Yuri, finishing his story, says that Lena escaped, and she lost consciousness due to the recoil of the Ice Heart. She also says that the ring should have lit up and asks what they were doing. Urim remembers what they were doing at that moment and replies that they were fighting intensely. Yuri says that he left for another country, let the traitor go, and didn't come when he was really needed. Urim looks down sadly and says that it is really hard to rely on him, and that is a problem. Yuri is very surprised that he didn't go berserk, and suddenly admits the guilt that seems to be weighing on him since the trip. Kim Moojin says that if the ring sends a signal when the owner is in danger, then it should have sent it several more times. Yuna says that if the owner loses consciousness, the ring stops working and the signal is cut off. Irene suddenly checks her phones and jumps up from her seat, saying that everyone else needs to see this. Urim asks her in surprise why she was making so much noise, after which he turns his attention to the phone. After a few moments, his eyes widen again, as he clearly sees something he shouldn't have seen. The whole point is that Mayor Sobek is coming out to the public for another public statement. Yuna is trying to figure out how this bastard managed to survive, because they definitely finished him off a few days ago. Urim states that no one can survive such a blow, and that it is impossible, which means that something is clearly wrong here. Yuri confirms his fears, saying that there is clearly some kind of magic involved. Yuri remembers that Lena's sudden appearance and Sobek's resurrection are too obvious a coincidence to ignore. She also says that she will gather information, and he should avoid further trouble. After this, she says that they need to return home, so as not to frighten their parents. Approaching the portal, she says that her mother is probably restless, as she misses her very much. Urim counters that he never gets into trouble, and Yuri repeats his request to behave calmly. Yuri says that he doesn't even know where and when the next blow will be dealt, when suddenly his sister bursts in. Yuna shouts the names of Yuri and Urim to get their attention as quickly as possible. She happily talks about how great it would be if they went to an amusement park for the weekend. This proposal turns out to be very unexpected, but they agree and go there a few days later. Urim takes some cotton candy to snack on and try new sweets. After this, he makes a claim to his sister, saying that she herself told them to behave quietly, and now they are walking around here. Yuri asks what else she could do since her little sister asked her to take her to an amusement park. She points at her and says that he should pay close attention to how happy she is and be happy about it. Urim says that this is indeed the case, since they are unlikely to be attacked in broad daylight. Urim asks what she eats alone, and she states that she eats the kebabs they bought her. Urim says that this is unfair, and demands that she immediately share, taking one kebab. After some time, they decide to create the perfect route around the attractions. However, due to petty arguments and squabbles, they do not notice that someone is closely watching them all this time. Urim wonders where they should go first to have some fun. Urim says that he came here only for his sister, because for him these attractions are boring. However, once he actually gets on the roller coaster, he quickly changes his mind. For him, such things are an incredible adrenaline rush and excitement, while Yuri behaves absolutely calmly and indifferently. The same can be said about all the other attractions, where their heroes experienced an incredible range of emotions. Yuri continues to behave absolutely calmly and almost indifferently, as if the human world does not exist for her. Urim finally experiences the joy of an amusement park and says that it is actually a lot of fun, although he didn't think so before. Urim says that it is necessary to move on to the next attraction, but he needs to calm down and behave carefully. Meanwhile, Kim Moojin says that the next plan is to visit the carousel, which is sure to be interesting. Urim asks him if he means that thing that just slowly spins in a circle. Kim Moojin says that Yuna really wanted to ride it, and Urim suggests choosing something else. Yuna immediately starts to act up and says that she wants a carousel, but Urim replies that it's boring. However, once he gets used to the carousel, which happens in about 5 seconds, he starts having fun. He acts as if he's never been on a ride like this in his life, and enjoys every second he spends there. Kim Moojin says that this man has been training all his life, so his emotions are understandable. Urim says he's hungry, and suggests everyone else go get something to eat. The others agree, when suddenly Yuri turns around sharply, sensing a strange presence nearby. From the outside, everything seems to be in order, but it is impossible to hide from the watchful gaze of the Ice Witch. She immediately tells her brother that he needs to move away, adding that someone is following them. After this, they turn to their comrades and demand that they guard their little sister while they are gone. Yuri immediately says that they need to go to the restroom, and Yuna is surprised by this because they left recently. Yuri says that unforeseen circumstances have arisen as her brother is about to throw up because of the carousel. Yuna asks him if that's really the case, and Urim says that his stomach feels a little twisted. They claim that they will return quite quickly, so no one will even have time to get bored during their absence. Urim asks her why she set him up, to which she replies that this was a quick way for them to get out of trouble. After some time, they get the opportunity to look around and track down the person who was following them. This trail leads them into a deep alley, inside which, it would seem, there is no one, but this is only an illusion. Yuri looks around carefully and realizes that there is definitely a human signature here, and demands to leave immediately. A few moments later, a human silhouette appears from a small crack that seemed completely empty. The man says in a calm voice that he is glad to meet them, emphasizing that he has been watching them for a long time. He also asks them if they can spare him a couple of minutes, as the conversation won't take long. Urim and Yuri immediately prepare to activate their powers and, if necessary, destroy the enemy. Their interlocutor raises his hands and says that they do not need to strain themselves, since he is an ordinary person without strength. Yuri carefully analyzes him to understand whether he is really telling the truth or trying to deceive. She truly understands that in front of them is an absolutely ordinary person who has no energy pulls. When asked who he is, the young man identifies himself as Marcus Ivan, a U.S. intelligence agent. Urim asks him why he came and how he knows about them, to which he replies that they are quite prominent figures. He states that their battle with the other reincarnators left a lasting impression, and reveals that Sobek is alive after all. Marcus notes that the Sobek who is currently performing in public is a puppet, and the real body is still hidden. Yuri asks why he decided to just share such valuable intelligence information with them. Marcus says he represents the ARG reincarnation organization within the government. He states that their goal is to eliminate any threats that could cause chaos, but their hands are tied. He adds that the number of dangerous reincarnators has increased sharply recently, and they are trying to expand their staff. He also states that he has learned that these people have single-handedly destroyed great and powerful organizations. He states that he understands that it is still difficult for them to trust him, and therefore asks them to seriously consider the offer of cooperation. He also states that they will provide them with any intelligence and, in case of danger, will provide support faster than anyone else. He hands them a business card and tells them that if they decide to contact him, they can call this number. After this, he expresses his sincere hope that their meeting will take place quite quickly. Urim asks her what she thinks about the proposal of this man, who seemed quite honest. Yuri holds the business card in his hands and understands that it would be wrong to ignore this offer. From this point of view, it is at least worth thinking about, and perhaps even accepting the conditions of these people. After a while, Yuna happily turns around, seeing the familiar silhouettes of her approaching relatives. She waves her hand happily and says that they should come closer as soon as possible. Urim and Yuri exchange glances and realize that they can spend this day peacefully, since the one who was watching turned out to be a friend. Urim says that you need to put all your problems aside and have some fun with your little sister today. A few days later, they move to the international airport to board a private jet. After this, he takes comfortable positions and says that the time has come to expand his sphere of influence. He proudly says that the time has come to go to America to meet new allies. Marcus says that the heavenly demon is heading to the United States and tells his comrade that everything must be ready. This unknown young man says that it is necessary to prepare a worthy reception for dear guests. After some time, the flight ends and lands, after which the plane stops. Irene says that this kind of world tour is simply amazing, and she is already looking forward to new adventures. She also says that this is her first time flying to America, as she has never been there even during her tours. Yuri says that they didn't come here to have fun, and Irene replies that even in such situations, you need to be more cheerful. Axel asks the Overlord if he is sure that Cheon-Ryu has also been reincarnated, and is told that it is practically guaranteed. He adds that he heard that Cheon-Ryu is currently in the ARG with the Empire's best blacksmith, Tell. Axel recalls that this blacksmith created his favorite blade from his past life, which he used for a long time. He also says that the very thought of being able to wield his creation again excites his blood. Urim says that good weapons will make his life easier in the coming events, so it would be foolish to neglect them. He adds that it is worth listening to these people to understand whether they are trustworthy. After some time, they reach the headquarters of this organization, which is located in Los Angeles. Marcus greets them joyfully and says that he is glad that they finally decided to trust him and come here. He notes that they have come a long way, so it is better to discuss everything inside the building so as not to attract attention. However, as soon as they step inside, they immediately find numerous gazes focused on them. These glances belong to a pair of unknown warriors who are watching them closely and analyzing their steps. One of them says that two legendary creatures actually came here to talk. He also says that they are rumored to be working together, and now we can see it with our own eyes, which is incredible. He smiles, and his energy begins to shine, as he states that he is bored of just standing on the sidelines. Immediately after this, he jumps down to give the guests the warmest possible welcome. Urim and his comrades immediately freeze, sensing the approach of another fighter, and try to understand his intentions. This fighter lands on the ground with a distinctive thud, causing a bright explosion and a small amount of smoke. Irene says that apparently this is a trap and recommends going on combat alert, but Urim stops her. The fighter who decided to greet them says that he was finally waiting for this meeting. He also immediately addresses the heavenly demon, adding that he will be brief and challenges him to a duel. Marcus asks a fighter named Rock what he's doing, to which he replies that his fists are itchy. He also states that everyone knows that in his past life he was the strongest, so his help would be useful to them. He adds that perhaps his power is not so great now, and his help will be much less valuable. Irene says that this is incredible impudence, and declares that if he wants to challenge the Overlord, he will have to step aside. Rock states that such a weak opponent is not in his area of interest, so he does not even consider her. Irene immediately loses her temper with rage, and declares that he seems completely out of touch with his place. Rock realizes that he may have said too much, as this girl's aura is extremely dangerous. But another man approaches him and says that he is ashamed of his comrade's behavior. He also adds that many are eager to see the renowned power of Urim and his team, which is why they behave this way. He offers them a friendly duel, but Yuri immediately refuses, saying that she has neither the time nor the desire for it. The swordsman wonders if they are afraid of losing and showing their weakness in front of others. Yuri lets out an irritated breath and says that this is one of the cheapest provocations she has ever heard. After this, she decides that this was planned from the beginning and orders the site to be prepared. After a short time, they find themselves in a special room where other fighters are training. Marcus says that this is just a friendly sparring match, so the use of force is strictly prohibited and decorum must be observed. The first round begins, and the first fighters to go out are Irene and Rock, who have decided to challenge the others. Rock says he takes back his words and apologizes for being rude, then suggests they measure their strength. Irene accepts the challenge and says that this is exactly what is needed, and asks him not to make excuses if he loses. Immediately after this, they throw their hands forward to grab each other and find out who is stronger. Irene and Rock begin to press against each other with an incredible force that any person would envy. However, despite the fact that they initially seemed equal, Irene quickly begins to win. Rock tries to figure out what to do, and Irene declares that she cannot afford to lose in front of the Overlord. Rock begins to lose ground faster and faster as his body gradually gives up its resistance. Many people begin to respect him very much, and gradually the tension becomes extremely high. Rock only has time to wonder how such a fragile girl manages to gain such incredible power. After this, his knees give out completely and he falls to the ground, thus demonstrating his inability to continue the fight. He honestly admits defeat and says that he is very impressed by Irene's incredible strength. Kim Moojin says that this is the first time he has seen such fights and is trying to understand what this strange technique is. Oram says that fighters always fight using brute force, and it is difficult to compare with Irene in this regard. After this, the second round begins, in which Axel and an unknown girl become participants. After the signal to begin the fight, he realizes that he needs to use close combat to finish everything in one blow. The girl says that she is fighting for her comrade, and that this time victory will definitely be his. Axel decides to speak with his actions instead of words and immediately breaks the distance. The girl tries to hit him to seize the initiative, but he immediately appears right behind her. Axel lands one powerful punch right across her back, but doesn't expect it to be enough to break through her defense. However, it quickly becomes clear that his attacks are completely ineffective against a more durable opponent. The girl turns towards him and wonders if he is a representative of the assassin class. Smiling, she declares that in that case, she will definitely win this sparring match. Oram says that Axel will indeed lose in this fight, and Irene asks how that is possible. Oram states that this woman sacrificed attack for defensive purposes, while Axel specializes in attack. But the most important thing is that during friendly sparring, you can't kill, so he is limited in his attacks. Axel wonders in his mind if normal attacks really can't penetrate this defense. After this, he decides to use a secret technique to find a weak spot in this fighter's defense. However, he quickly stops and realizes that this technique is deadly and is unacceptable here. Immediately after this, he calmly closes his eyes and understands that he has only one way out of this situation. He honestly admits that his internal energy is almost exhausted, so he cannot continue the fight. The girl looks after him in surprise, and he turns around and says that he couldn't break through the defense, so he lost. After this, she calls out to him and says that any normal person would have immediately realized that Axel was holding back. She then asks if he could break through her defense if it were a real fight to the death. Axel calmly replies that in that case, her head would have flown off her shoulders the second the fight began. The girl turns around with a smile and says that such confidence in his abilities impresses her. Meanwhile, Marcus says that the second round is over and the victory goes to ARG. Next up in the ring is Kim Moojin, who is full of confidence that he can bring a point of victory to his team. Oram returns to his comrade and says that the enemies need to be more careful. He notes that this opponent is not as simple as it may seem, as he has an outstanding aura. He adds that this is an incredibly strong aura, not typical for ordinary people, so Kim Moojin will have a hard time. Marcus announces that it is time for the third round and begins the fight. Kim Moojin's opponent stops to introduce himself and says his name is Gabriel Vance. Kim Moojin takes a fighting stance and also states his name, observing military etiquette. Gabriel Vance says that he cedes the right of first attack to the enemy and offers him the opportunity to act at any moment. Kim Moojin takes this as a mockery and asks if he is trying to show his superiority. He decides that this cannot be allowed to happen and immediately takes off, charging his body with energy. He jumps forward to get into a comfortable stance and delivers a quick kick straight to the face. Gabriel Vance immediately intercepts the punch with a simple, unbreakable block. Kim Moojin continues to act arrogantly and says that he will quickly teach him not to be arrogant. Immediately after this, he decides to move on to his signature leg manipulation technique. He uses shadowless kick tactics to confuse his opponent. Gabriel Vance watches him closely, choosing opportune moments to block his punches. He manages to completely neutralize the enemy's tactics, despite all his efforts. Thus, Kim Moojin spent a huge amount of effort without achieving any results. Kim Moojin is amazed that this man was able to counter his signature move with such incredible ease. After this, he jumps to the side, thinking that he needs to break the distance and wait for the right moment. Gabriel Vance politely takes a few steps back, as if considering whether he should go on the attack himself. After this, he decides to use an energy attack and challenges the enemy to try to repel it with all his might. Kim Moojin constantly wonders what this strange force is and realizes that he feels monstrous amounts of energy. Now he intends to show him the overwhelming difference in power that currently separates them. After this, he makes several quick dashes towards the enemy and uses the supernova skill. This strike creates a powerful energy discharge at the point of contact between the fist and the air, which flies forward. Kim Moojin tries to fend off the attack, but finds that he is too slow to cope. Kim Moojin understands that it is impossible to dodge, so he can only cover himself with a block. However, even a simple block may not be enough to withstand this monstrous blow. Even though he kept his balance, the attack had significantly depleted his combat stamina. However, he will have to continue the fight, even despite being very tired. However, now he has a much more serious problem. His opponent has simply disappeared from sight. Gabriel Vance suddenly appears next to Kim Moo-jin and calls him by name to get his attention. Immediately after he says these words, he prepares to knock all the strength out of the opponent. Kim Moo-jin tries to understand when this man managed to close the distance so quickly and regain his strength. He continues to block the blows, but realizes that he does not have enough stamina to continue the fight. Moreover, his bones could simply break if he overdoes it while trying to block such powerful attacks. However, his body quickly gives into the damage he has received, and he simply falls to his knees. Gabriel Vance stops immediately, and then politely asks if he is ready to continue. Kim Moo-jin reflects that he could not have imagined that this man would turn out to be such a strong opponent. He realizes that his skills were enough to break through his spiritual defense, which is quite strong. He understands that if Mr. Urim and Yuri are not taken into account, this will be a difficult opponent for any fighter. After this, he decides not to tempt fate and honestly admits his defeat in this battle. Urim, who closely followed the fight, understands that Kim Moo-jin is far from weak, but this opponent turned out to be stronger. He decides to remember the name Gabriel Vance, as he will always need such valuable allies. Marcus, in turn, says that ARG is currently leading the series in 3 victories, so everyone needs to step up their game. They finally begin the 4th round, and Yuri's opponent says that it is a great honor for him to fight such a great figure. After this, he quickly begins waving his staff and states that he can't wait to see if his magic will work on her. Yuri doesn't respond, but decides not to be rude to his opponent, since they have no reason for enmity. She creates a small ice barrier to protect herself from the energy blasts, which don't even scratch it. Her opponent says he underestimated the Ice Witch's power, and declares that the next attack will be stronger. However, after a few moments he realizes that talk of the next attack was started too prematurely. The thing is that the witch has already begun to influence his body, and is gradually turning it into ice. The magician looks at what is happening with indignation, and tries to understand when she managed to use this spell. Yuri, in turn, states that his level is too low for him to fight her on equal terms. Meanwhile, the magician finds himself almost completely encased in ice, and has no chance of escape. After some time, he completely turns into an ice block, but his vital signs are still normal. Marcus is in a hurry to finish the round, as this mage is of incredible value to their company. Urim, smiling, says that she called all this cheap provocations, but still it hurt her. After this, he says that it is finally his turn, and emphasizes that his fists are already itching. Urim says it's just a friendly sparring match, but he needs to win to save the Overlord's face. He also says that he cannot give in to the Ice Witch, so he must deal with the enemy in one blow. After this, the final round begins, and his opponent is the same young man with whom Marcus spoke earlier. Marcus says it's time to find out which of the 2 teams will be stronger. Urim carefully analyzes the enemy, and realizes that this is definitely not an ordinary reincarnator. He understands that this person's energy is unusual, but for some reason it seems familiar to him. The young man suddenly says that he is immensely happy to meet him after a long separation. After this, he bows respectfully and says that in this life he also counts on his guidance. Urim says with a smile that, apparently, they have already fought in a past life, and asks what his name is. Instead of answering, the young man takes his sword out of its sheath and says that this is a very interesting secret. After this, he smiles and adds that this secret will become an obvious fact quite soon. Urim immediately recognizes this aura, since he has not met such people for many years. Looking closely at his opponent, he realizes that the sword god is standing in front of him, and in his youth, he declares that it is indeed him. After this, he takes a few steps back to prepare for further combat. The sword god makes a small dash towards the enemy, and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Urim immediately understands that he needs to act at the limit of his capabilities if he does not want to lose. He quickly jumps to the side, but the sword passes just a few millimeters from his clothes. Urim is glad that the sword god has also been reborn and found himself on this earth, and that he, moreover, is his ally. This man was an unrivaled swordsman in his previous life, when he was still conquering the world of martial arts. He was his faithful right hand, and also one of the 4 guardians he didn't expect to meet here. The sword god looks a little different now, but his movements remain incredibly precise and polished. Urim continues to block the sword strikes with his fists as before. The sword god realizes that he must use another skill to force the enemy to retreat. Grabbing the weapon, he quickly draws it from its sheath and delivers a powerful blow. Urim takes a quick step back, but immediately begins to slow down to avoid falling in the arena. After this, he stabilizes his position and returns to counterattack. His powerful knee strike was specially designed to turn the tide of the fight. The sword god realizes that this is just a feint followed by a punch, and tries to block it. He says that this is exactly what he expected from his lord, and such attacks do not impress him. After this, he continues to build up energy, and says that he will increase the pace of the attack. Urim continues to dodge even these attacks and realizes that the enemy's speed is so high that it is difficult to predict. However, he understands that if he plays by the rules, he will quickly become exhausted and lose his stamina. This is why he decides to go on a furious offensive, so as not to give the enemy time to react. The sword god blocks his blows and notes that his reflexes are still at the highest level. Immediately after this, he begins to use the skill Chaos Banishment and states that this attack is impossible to dodge. After this, he advances the skill to its next evolution to use Reverse Slash. This blow is necessary to put an end to the duel and determine the strongest. Urim understands that in this situation he too cannot hold back, so he must give it his all. He claims that his opponent is underestimated and uses Vortex Dragon Strike to seize the advantage. Having waited for the right moment, he delivers a powerful and precise blow that should disrupt the enemy's plans. His calculations are correct. The blow knocks the sword out of the opponent's hands since it was not balanced enough. The sword god understands that he has been deprived of his main weapon, which means victory in the duel is slipping away from him. Smiling, he says that it is commendable to have reached such a level at such a young age, and that this is exactly what he expected. Urim says with a smile that the sword god has not shown even a quarter of his strength, but continues to give compliments. The sword god states that he cannot use lethal techniques against his longtime comrade. Urim immediately asks him if he plans to join the nascent cult after this is all over. The sword god folds his hands in a welcoming gesture and states that he is grateful for the offer, but does not plan to return to the heavenly demon cult in this life. He says that he appreciates the offer, but has no intention of returning to the heavenly demon cult in this life. Urim replies that if he is forced to do this, then he can confess to it, and then together they will deal with these scoundrels. The sword god informs him that he has something he must protect, and in this life he wants to stay close to them. Urim listens carefully to his words and understands that he himself has acquired something that he must protect at any cost. Before his eyes appears the image of his parents, as well as his younger sister, who loves him very much. He smiles and notes that this is a worthy goal to which one can dedicate one's life. He shakes his hand and says that everyone has started a new life, supporting his choice. Marcus notices that the guy is acting strange and states that it is now time to move on to the main purpose of the meeting. He says that at the meeting it is necessary to explain to Mr. Aram and Ms. Yuri why it is worth cooperating with them. He states that the screen shows an image of the reincarnation organization they are monitoring. He adds that their identities are unknown, and they act unpredictably, making it impossible to track their bases. Urim notes that they have discovered traces of suspicious magic being used in one of the terrorist cells in the south. He notes that reincarnators are unconsciously controlled by some method of mental manipulation from ancient techniques. He emphasizes that the company believes that Sobek's appearance and disappearance are somehow connected with this. Yuri assumes she knows who is behind this, and believes it is probably Lena and Rinos, her former mentor. She notes that she has encountered him before and understands that he is acting on orders, and Sobek is just one of his puppets. She also says that in this life, they probably joined him because this mental technique is too familiar to her. He reports that the next slide clearly shows how this organization somehow creates chimeras. He adds that the number of reincarnators has sharply decreased recently, so they may be involved. Marcus adds that the created chimeras look like animals and are completely devoid of intelligence. He also says that attention needs to be paid to a group called Baria, which has been operating in these areas for a long time. He reports that this group is led by a powerful magician named Hamad, whose identity is unknown. Marcus also says that they kidnap civilians, men, women, and children, without regard for them. He adds that the Nigerian government has approached them for help to solve this problem. Marcus reports that unstable chimeras have recently been spotted in northern Nigeria, which is another clue. He believes that all of this is somehow connected with Rinos and his minions who are involved in dark deeds. He says that at the moment their goal is to rescue the hostages and destroy this group. Irene declares that there is no forgiveness for these creatures and that they must be destroyed, every single one. She also says that kidnapping children for experiments is the ultimate inhumanity. Yuri looks closely at the materials and realizes that even at first glance, these children are about the same age as her sister. She says that they need to name the place and time, and then they will do everything necessary. She firmly states that from now on they will cooperate with this company and support their endeavors. A week passes, and the story moves to the hot jungles of Nigeria, located far from here. Deep in this jungle lies the camp of the very group that must be destroyed. These scoundrels do not yet suspect the danger they have drawn themselves into by embarking on this path. Urim watches what is happening closely and reports that this is the very group that needs to be tracked down. After this, he turns to his squad and declares that the time has come to begin clearing out the Augean stables.